A lone figure, draped in the Akatsuki's signature red cloud black cloak, stood in wait beneath a stunted pine. With a sudden poof, a small purple frog with orange markings materialized, holding a scroll. The Akatsuki figure knelt to accept the scroll. A thumb, bitten to draw blood, was smeared across the seal, allowing the scroll to be opened and read. "Do you know what the scroll says?" The frog nodded. "Hi. Jiraiya says it's time to clean house." A slow nod was the only response the summoned creature received. "Tell Jiraiya I'll be prepared." 3 months later, a certain shinobi from Konoha was buried under a mountain of paperwork in the Hokage's office. Tsunade sighed, her gaze fixed on the spiky blonde head, her heart a mix of guilt and fury. "I can't talk you out of this, can I?" It was a statement, not a question. Naruto looked up. His typically bright, expressive blue eyes were now like polished stones. I worked my ass off for this village. I nearly died getting Sasuke back alive, and the village and council almost had me executed for hurting their precious Uchiha traitor." He shook his head. "I can't take it anymore, Bah-chan. I gave and I hoped that one day the village would see me as more than just the Kyuubi, but now I know it's a foolish dream." "Like your dream of being Hokage?" Tsunade challenged the Chuunin. Of all his friends, only Naruto remained a Chuunin, largely because Konoha's council consistently refused to support any recommendations for his promotion to Jounin rank. Naruto's smile was sad. "It's a fool's dream. If they can't see me after all I've done. I took down 2 Akatsuki all by myself, you know. And the council insisted on giving the credit to those Umbu you sent, claiming a mere Chuunin could never defeat an S-rank Nukenin. And those bastards didn't even show up until it was all over." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "I trained for months just to fight them, you know, to survive, to bring Sasuke back." He straightened his posture. "Well, Sasuke is back in Konoha, Orochimaru is dead, Itachi is presumed dead, and Akatsuki is no more. I see no reason to stay." Tsunade desperately searched for something, anything. "But what about your friends? What about Hinata?" She knew Naruto had begun dating the Hyuga heiress a few months after his second training trip with Jiraiya. Tsunade shivered as the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Naruto shifted slightly before speaking. "I suppose you haven't heard, but Hinata broke up with me." A vicious grimace twisted his lips into a mockery of a smile. "Her clan couldn't tolerate her continued association with someone like me. Since that seems to be the popular opinion in Konoha, I'd rather take my tainted self away from this village so they no longer have to endure my presence." "Oh, Naruto. Don't feel sorry for me, Bah-chan. Just sign the damn papers and let me leave." "But what if I give you a free travel pass?" Tsunade tried to get the blonde to reconsider. "No thanks. Travel passes mean I'm still bound to this village. I don't want to owe anything to Konoha." Wood splintered under his clenched fists. "I'm dying bit by bit here, Bah-chan. If you don't let me go, I'm probably going to snap and start killing like Gaara used to." Tsunade studied the boy, no, the man, she loved like a little brother. Most shinobi generally had a counselor or at least friends they could talk to, but Naruto never did. He couldn't open up to the regular counselors who looked upon him with disgust and loathing. The old rookies were acquaintances, not trusted friends. The only one he confided in was Jiraiya because the Gama-Sunin put his student above Konoha. In recent years, Naruto had withdrawn from everyone in the village, including Tsunade, Shizune, and Irika. He didn't trust them to prioritize him over the village, and he was right. Konoha came first. Tsunade nodded slowly. "Give me 2 hours. Send Jiraiya to me as soon as possible." Naruto rose and bowed his head before vanishing in a swirl of air and leaves. Tsunade pulled out a specific scroll and unsealed several thick files, containing reports on the attacks and assassination attempts Uzumaki Naruto had suffered at the hands of Konohan's attackers who were never prosecuted or punished. Her anger and disgust grew. The best revenge she could get was to ensure her little brother was free of Konoha, free without the idiots on the council branding him a Nukenin. A sly smile curled her lips as she considered the best way to do this. She was lost in thought when a cheerful greeting brought her back to reality. "You called, Tsunade Heim." "Oh, Jiraiya. Yeah, I wanted to see you." Her expression turned serious. "Has Naruto talked to you? About what he wants?" The Gama-Sunin's expression became very neutral. "About resigning his shinobi status? Hi. And if you have any brains and common decency, you'll help him, but he'll never be able to return. Jiraiya interrupted her gently but firmly. "He doesn't want to. Even I can see he has no reason to. You and I are respected and highly sought after whenever we return to Konoha after a long trip. Naruto only gets spat on and attacked, his property is stolen or destroyed. He's only human, Tsuheim, and all humans have their limits." Tsunade nodded slowly. "I understand that, Jiraiya, but I don't want Naruto to be marked as a Nukenin and put in the bingo books. The council must not have any legal means to go after him." Jiraiya's expression turned very serious. "Strip him of his shinobi status and banish him. Get the daimyo to revoke his citizenship. Tsunade's eyes widened. Don't worry about him. He already has honorary citizenship in many other countries, including Wave and Spring, even Suna if he needs it. But don't let anyone find out until it's a done deal and Naruto is out of Fire Country. A chill ran down Tsunade's spine. But that's so final. I know. His father wouldn't want this. Sensei wouldn't want this. They're dead and have no say. We are alive. Jiraiya was brutal in his honesty. Frankly, I'm more concerned about Naruto's sanity than old promises that were never honored or ones that should never have been made. Seeing her hesitation, Jiraiya softened. He'll always call you Baa-chan, he'll never sever ties with Tsunade. Just with Konoha. Tsunade nodded. All right. I'll do it. Tsunade heaved an internal sigh of relief. Just the usual closing remarks and this bloody council meeting would be over. Go Dame-sama, there's a matter of concern that hasn't been addressed. Tsunade's eyes turned cool as she looked at the sweaty, fat civilian, some gilt head. Really? What is it that has you so worried? Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade raised an arched brow. Taking this as an invitation to continue, the civilian went on. He's been missing from Konoha for some weeks now. According to the mission reports, he hasn't taken any assignments that would take him outside Konoha. No one has any information on his whereabouts. I'd like to move to have him marked as a Nukenin. Her honey eyes turned to ice. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to this council. But, go Dame. Uzumaki Naruto is of no concern to Konoha and Fire Country. I've discussed the matter with the daimyo, and he agreed with me. Naruto has been stripped of his shinobi status and Fire Country citizenship. Cold eyes stabbed each of her most vehement opponents. In the past, she had to tread lightly, fearing they would retaliate against her loved ones, but now she had no hostages. Jiraiya and Shizune were the only ones she still cared for, and both were not vulnerable to the council's machinations. My last communique placed him in Nami, since he accepted the honorary citizenship they pressed on him for saving their country from Gata when he was a mere genin. Hyuga Hayashi went rigid. Go Dame, you can't be serious. I let the shinobi who was betrayed time and again by his own comrades in this village leave with his honor and freedom intact. Tsunade smirked. The daimyo agreed with my decision. He felt Sarutobi did a great disservice by giving in to this council's demands and turning a blind eye to the inhumane treatment Naruto received growing up. The two of us decided it's illegal and dishonorable to execute a loyal shinobi for the crime of being too strong, but since neither of us wanted to force Naruto to stay in Konoha and risk him snapping under the relentless, blind hatred of the ignorant bigots who live in this village, if he ever gives in to the rage that any human in his shoes must be feeling at this point, he'll be far more destructive than the Kyuubi because he has the mind, intelligence, and allies of a human. She felt pride and satisfaction seeing the terror on their faces as they realized just what they had created by their actions. She took a long sip of water before continuing. Uzumaki Naruto is currently based out of Nami as a bounty hunter, and he has agreed to avoid Konoha shinobi in Fire Country. He has sworn he will not attack any Konoha shinobi or Fire Country civilians unless he or his are attacked first. And I trust his word of honor more than I trust most of you. Her smile was more of a death's head grin. If he kills or maims any Konoha shinobi, it will be considered a righteous kill due to interference on Konoha's part. Unfortunate but expected due to our shinobi lifestyle. The smile bloomed into full vengeance. In addition, Princess Yuki of Snow Country, now known as Spring Country, has given Naruto citizenship in her country as well and appointed him as a royal liaison. She has granted him diplomatic immunity status usually given to ambassadors. Any country that has a treaty with Spring has to respect that. That includes us since the daimyo is not willing to risk losing cheap foodstuff imports from Spring Country. Several faces turned several shades whiter when they realized the full implications of the Godame's words. Uzumaki Naruto was out of their reach. They couldn't touch him without being executed for treason by the Hokage and the daimyo. Uzumaki could go to their enemies and sign up as a mercenary or even register as a shinobi, and they couldn't do anything. Nara Shikaku shifted uneasily. Go Dame, this was not a good decision. Oh, I agree, Shikaku. It completely sucks for Konoha. We lose a powerhouse, a shinobi who killed two S-class nuke nins on his own, one who was completely devoted to Konoha, the one who changed my mind about becoming Hokage, but you know what? She leaned forward. I don't care. You fucked up big time. If it comes and bites Konoha in the ass, well, whoop-de-doo. She leaned back in her chair. If you're so scared, spend your own money to hire shinobis, but don't expect them to return. She studied her polished nails. Naruto is very, very good. He's never been given anything in his life. He's always fought and shed blood, sweat, and tears to develop his skill. No Chuyunin instructor or Jounin in Konoha bothered teaching him a damn thing. He had to teach himself the basics that most academy students are drilled in, bits and pieces of whatever he found in different places or cobbled together through observation. Unlike spoiled clan brats who had the full benefits of specialized teachers, clan techniques, and early training, several counselors winced at that jab regarding Uchiha Suzuki. Satisfied, the Godame relaxed minutely. He has no reason to stay in Konoha. His first girlfriend broke up with him, and given the way most people feel about him, he'll never find another one and have his own family. His friends have abandoned him, only going to him when they need help, never supporting him or his dreams. This council has refused to promote him to Jounin despite all his successes. He succeeded in bringing back a traitor who was promptly reinstated and promoted above him while he was fined for using excessive force for defending his own life. The few people who do care for him have their own lives and concerns. Would you stay in such a village? Several of the clan leaders turned away, shame-faced. Everyone knew it was wrong, reinstating the Uchiha after such light punishment for such a serious crime, for punishing the one responsible for retrieving the precious Sharinan Kekai Genkai, but none had supported the furious Godame. They did not wish to use their political leverage in what was of little import to them. The representatives of the minor clans that did support the Hokage, Inyazuka and Abarame, were smiling sadly. Tsunade shook her head. This matter is closed. If I find anyone authorizing missions concerning Naruto even once to change his mind, I will execute the one responsible, clan head or not. Cold eyes settled on Hyuga Hayashi. Any shinobi who accepts such missions will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics and will be subject to 1 month in Ibuki's tender care. Any medic nin who dares treat the shinobi involved will be stripped of their license. All involved will have their chakra vessels sealed for 2 months and be subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Eyes were wide at the harsh, defined punishment. Unlike Saratobi-sensei, I will enforce this. The daimyo fully supports me on this matter. And don't imagine you can hide anything. With Akatsuki gone, Jiraiya has decided to devote his intelligence gathering to traitors and lawbreakers within Konoha. He is especially keen to track all those who would dare harm his student, most likely his only living student since he will never teach another from Konoha. Naruto frowned at his dish of sake. It wasn't very high grade, and it would take gallons to have any real effect on him. He often found it was an effective way of encouraging opponents and informants to underestimate him. He wondered what the hell was delaying the freelancer Gameco had promised him. Naruto knew he was good, and with Kage Bunshins, he could easily duplicate an army to take out any gang of bandits or regular nuke nins. Unfortunately, this group he was after was modeled on the Akatsuki fashion, invitation only, nins with high-rank combat experience and varying specializations. All experienced shinobi knew the weakness of Kage Bunshins, and Naruto hadn't quite mastered the high ration to be all over the place, as it were. He needed a partner for this job. Unfortunately, there were few with the necessary skill level he trusted, so he had been forced to go to Gameco, an intermediary who specialized in introducing parties. A few days ago, Gameco had sent a message with a date, time, and place. As he waited, his memory drifted over the past few years. The first few weeks out of Konoha, he had been terrified, waiting to see if the council had somehow found a loophole and sent Umbu after him, or if some wealthy civilian with a grudge decided to put a contract on his life, or if BAHN changed her mind, or was forced to, and authorized a Black Ops mission to execute him. After 3 months, he relaxed and began to enjoy life. Bounty hunting as an independent was tiresome work because he had to do everything himself. Naruto found himself depending heavily on the network of contacts and friends he had all over the elemental countries. Hours watching Jiraiya manage his espionage network came in very handy as Naruto created a similar latticework around himself. When he came into information on smaller heads, he made a tidy profit by selling the information to other independents without his information network. Information and people were crucial in this business. As long as you knew what people were working towards, you could generally predict their actions. This group, Kuro Kuma, they had none of the grandiose schemes of Akatsuki. It made them less and more dangerous than the Baijuyu collectors. Too bad none of the intel ops of the hidden villages had picked up on them. They already had done quite a bit of damage in several trade routes and smaller economies. Luckily, their operations were basically run by 3 intelligent heads. With all 3 heads gone, the body would die just like any other animal. Naruto-san? The spider sent me. A quiet feminine voice was barely discernible against the general noise. Naruto inhaled deeply. She had barely registered on his senses. Her chakra control was exceptional to have mimicked a civilian. He would have assumed her to be a waitress if it wasn't for the faint scent of weapons polishing oil drifting from her. Slowly, he turned halfway and scanned her. She was standing about 4 feet away, a respectful distance to give just enough warning room for both parties if one decided to attack. If he were to sum up her description in a few words, Naruto would say deadly and beautiful elegance and be quite accurate. Her body was slender and toned under the tight-fitting, well-used armored brown leather garments and boots. Over that, she wore a mottled olive green canvas coat treated to be water-resistant. Her weapon pouches were a lighter brown, and her weapon harnesses and belts were black. Naruto was certain she was concealing more under the voluminous coat. Given the scuff marks on her outfit, Naruto was quite sure she was very good. Her face was the clincher. Almost triangular with fine porcelain skin stretched over delicate, fragile bones. Almond-shaped, slanted black eyes set under flyaway dark brows. Long strands of silky black hair escaped from the neat coronet of braids wrapped around her head to frame her face. He could see the flash of steel senbon used to secure the braids. She reminded him of someone, but Naruto wasn't quite sure who. Oh well, it would come to him sooner or later. Besides, he was more worried about Operation Hydra. Your name. Naruto had given up on making friends at first meetings. He preferred to reserve judgment before reaching out. She bowed her head. Call me Hibara. Genko's local agent can vouch for me. Naruto nodded curtly. Watanabe was a sneak and a coward and a very bad liar since Naruto could literally sense lies using his Kyuubi augmented senses. In the weeks after he left Konoha, he had discovered his sensitivity had increased several-fold. A meeting with the fox left him feeling the furball wasn't so bad after all. He had agreed to augment Naruto's body enough so the deteriorating side effects of channeling the dense red chakra would be greatly reduced. All Naruto had to do was to open his senses to the Yoko, so the Baijuyu could receive some sensory input and the emotional benefits. Of course, it meant the fox often egged him into betting every attractive female just so he could enjoy the endorphins and sensations. Naruto didn't mind too much. He had found women outside Konoha found him very attractive. With his loyalties to Sakura and Hinata gone, he had little reason to restrain himself from enjoying the pleasures of the flesh. Firmly, he pushed the idea of betting Hibara out of his mind. She was going to be his partner. If she was good, it could lead to a more permanent arrangement, and Naruto wasn't going to toy with someone who could cause him a great deal of physical damage. Oh, it would heal, but the annoyance just wasn't worth it. Carefully, he pushed himself off the stool. Let's walk, Hibara-san. Some fresh air will do me good. She didn't say anything but followed his lead. That was one point in her favor. Most women were complete bitches when you were short with them. At least this one was professional. Both of them knew small talk was pointless. They would know each other better after a practice spar. Naruto had a vague feeling he would be working with Hibara for a long time. Naruto observed his companion, who drank with determination. She had already finished 2 jugs of sake on her own and was close to finishing a third. The last mission had been a brutal one. The child prostitution ring was something they couldn't sanitize, and for some reason, it had hit Hibara particularly hard. It was likely a female thing. Over the months they had worked together, they'd come to understand each other's limits, but Naruto wasn't naive enough to think he knew everything about her. The blonde man peered through the low light of the less-than-respectable tavern. The privacy of their booth was assured by sound-dampening jutsu, so he finally blurted out the question that had been bothering him. Hibara-chan, would you mind if I ask you something? Ask away, Naruto-kun. She always insisted on using that affectionate honorific, even though she never showed any other emotional attachment to him. They trusted, respected, and liked each other, but for both of them, the past was a forbidden topic, only the present and immediate future mattered. Are you related to the Uchiha clan from Konoha? You look like the team. She froze. Team? She questioned. Uchiha Suzuki. An old teammate. A spoiled brat and a complete bastard. He went rogue and put a hole in my chest. I chased him for years because I made a promise. When I finally succeeded, they cast me out and threw me to the curb, Naruto explained vaguely. I wouldn't blame you if you were an Uchiha. It's not like you can choose your parents, you know. She blinked, and Naruto saw 2 glistening streaks on her cheeks. Before he could apologize and tell her she didn't have to say anything, she spoke. My father was one. Her voice hardened. He was a total bastard. I was happy when Uchiha Itachi massacred the clan. She looked at him from the corner of her eye, studying his reaction. Naruto blinked. If you say so. He tapped his finger on the smooth, worn tabletop. I never really understood Itachi though. He didn't seem like the type to just snap. And his excuse, testing his limits? Bullshit. He had another reason. Hibara blinked. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Naruto took a sip of his sake, gathering his thoughts. What do you know about Itachi? Just that he was a prodigy, a genius who rose through the ranks to become an Umbu captain at 13. At 14, he slaughtered his clan, leaving only one survivor, his younger brother. Then he joined Akatsuki, an organization that was collecting the Baijus. After the organization was destroyed, he vanished. His body was never found, unlike most of his old allies. Naruto nodded. Yeah, that's the basic rundown. But Itachi was one of the most apathetic people I'd ever met. He said he wanted to test his limits, but slaughtering a clan of cheap imitators who had long rested on their laurels? I don't think so. He would have just gone rogue, taunting Konoha by trashing every single Oinin and Umbu team they sent after him. He would have tested and breached the defenses of every hidden village so he could fight the best of the best. The Uchihas must have done something truly awful to piss him off so completely. The question is, what? Hibara didn't speak for a while. Uchiha Itaki is the only one who can answer that. Yeah, I guess so. Too bad he's probably hiding somewhere far away. It would probably be nice to spar with him without the whole trying to kill each other thing. You want to talk to him? Why, Itaki is a human being who was probably dealt a shitty hand, like most of us. He probably did what he felt he had to do to survive. I just want to know what could have been so bad that he slaughtered his own family without remorse. Only he can answer that. Yeah, well, I'm done for the night. Can you look after yourself? Hibara snorted, a quiet sound. Of course, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and went to the bar to pay their bill and give some quiet instructions to the bartender. Then he headed up to his room on the 3rd floor. As usual, Hibara had the connecting room next door. He stripped off his clothes, carelessly dropping them over a chair before falling into bed, nude except for his boxers, and pulling the blanket over him. A couple of hours later, he woke with a jolt, a flash of red chakra incinerating the effects of the alcohol in his system. An intruder was nearby. Naruto-kun? It was Hibara. Her chakra was fluctuating erratically, which was unlike her. It was probably the sake she'd consumed. Her hair was disheveled and fell down her back. At some point, she had removed or lost the hairpin she used to secure her bun. He watched as she discarded her coat, then her close-fitting armored vest. She struggled with her boots before they hit the floor with 2 soft thuds. Then she swayed towards him. There was no power in her steps or control in her movements. Her entire body swayed slightly as she carefully made her way to him. Her face was flushed pink, and her Sharingan was active from the lapse in chakra control. He had grown accustomed to it. For a long time, he had been terrified. He had only seen the Sharingan in 2 faces, both of whom had tried to kill him. Kakashi didn't count because he never used the full-blown Sharingan against Naruto. Now, it represented control, competence, constancy, camaraderie, and companionship. What is it, Hibara-chan? She managed to sit on the edge of the bed without losing her balance, though she refused to meet his eyes. There's something I have to tell you. After what felt like an eternity, she lifted her Sharingan eyes to meet his blue ones. I am Itaki. Naruto went still. What was she talking about? Itaki was a guy. He stared hard, trying to process what his senses were telling him. She was telling the truth, or she truly believed it. But how could everyone have believed Itaki was a guy? Naruto's brain worked furiously. Alright, ignore that question and focus on the starting point. Assumption: Hibara used to be the Nuken and Uchiha Itaki. Extrapolate. Everything shifted and formed a dazzling kaleidoscope before settling into a new pattern, one that was far more complete than the old picture. It all made a crazy kind of sense. But going back, how? Realizing she was near her breaking point, he scooted closer and wrapped his arms around her, settling her on his lap and tucking her head under his chin. Tell me everything, Hibara. I won't tell anyone else. And then she confessed everything. Her earliest memories were of growing up in barren barracks, raised as an automaton, the regular medical checkups, the near-constant training, returning to the Uchiha clan house just before Sasuke was born, being pushed and driven through the academy and up the ranks. Occasional blank spots in her memories. Blank spots created when her controllers wiped her memories after she had discovered her true gender. Going through puberty feeling almost completely asexual due to the hormone and drug treatments. Finding out the truth about her memory wipe soon after she turned 14 and deciding to slaughter the clan so they couldn't wipe her memories again. At the end of it, she was shaking and crying so hard she could barely speak. I knew I couldn't break the henge, it was a Fuinjutsu, and the only seals master I knew was Jiraiya, so I decided to join Akatsuki. But after a few months, I realized there was no way I could just run off and hide, not when they actually had a chance of succeeding in collecting the baijus, so I started to pass information to Jiraiya, his inside informant. Yes. Once things started to wind down, Jiraiya broke the henge and swore a blood oath to never reveal anything about Uchiha Itaki or Hibara. Then I left. Naruto crooned softly, rocking the woman in his arms. Jiraiya kept his word. He didn't breathe a single word to me or anyone else. He kept your secrets. I was worried for a while that he would tell the Godame. No, he doesn't trust the council. He never tells Tsunade anything he wants to keep secret. Granny would blurt it out if anyone asked her when she's drunk. Jiraiya is the type to owe loyalty to people. Besides, from his perspective, the Uchiha clan got what was coming to them with their illegal experimentation in child abuse. He doesn't have any tolerance for things like that. Not after Orochimaru. Hibara nodded mutely. Then something came to mind. What are you going to do? What do you mean? Do you want to split up? I can understand. Hush. You did what you had to do to survive. Just like me. As far as I'm concerned, everything's fine. Besides, his voice turned teasing, we make a pretty good team, and I'd hate to break up. Hibara laughed a choked sound that gradually became genuine. What could she say to that? Especially since he was right. Hibara frowned as she cleaned and polished her weapons, waiting for her lover and partner to collect the bounties on their latest targets. Bara-chan, we're done here. With deft hands, she slipped the kunai back into the quick-release holster and packed her equipment into a sealing scroll that went into her satchel. 10 minutes later, they were in a bar, sipping sake warmed by katan jutsus. The kunoichi noted Naruto's distant, blank expression. Did you get any flack from the clerk? She asked idly. No. Then what's bothering you? Naruto hesitated before speaking. Do you like this life? Having no ties, no stable home, owing nothing to any particular village, constantly traveling? Hibara went still. She didn't complain about the traveling because they had little choice, they had to go where the work was. But it would become more difficult, especially if she became pregnant, and she would sooner or later. All forms of birth control had a failure rate, and factor in a Jinchuriki's sperm, which was likely more potent than the average male. Not really. But why do you ask, Naruto-kun? Naruto ran a large hand through his messy hair. Curiosity. I've been thinking about the future. Bounty hunting is okay, but having the backup of a village would be better. Most shinobi villages consider their nin's tools to be used and discarded. I will not risk being treated that way ever again. I know. Trust me, I understand perfectly. That's why I think we should explore the possibilities to see which village would suit us best. After several days of debate and data analysis, the pair came to a decision. Kumo is our best bet. They're desperate to have a strong Kekai Genkai and a higher profile with potential clients, Hibara pointed out. They won't be able to resist the Sherinan and two skilled S-class nins. Their raikage is getting old, though. We'll probably have to deal with his successor in a few years. Naruto's nose wrinkled. Hibara nodded slowly. True, but if we play our cards right, we can make sure someone we like is nominated as the next raikage. Naruto bit his lip. I'm not sure about Kumo's political structure. In Konoha, the council has a great deal of influence. That's usually not the case in Kumo, but the raikage is getting old and losing control, Hibara explained. He was able to protect Nii Yujito, Jinchuriki to the Nibi no Nikomata, throughout her childhood and early shinobi career. In fact, there's some gossip that she's one of the leading candidates to be the next raikage. Naruto's eyes widened. Amazing. They're seriously considering her for raikage? Hibara nodded. Yes. Kumo has strong nins, but few have the spark, the drive, and the power to be cage level. The clans have become proud and stale. The raikage is desperate for fresh blood, new life. That's the only reason why he didn't stop the Gokuro clan's attempt to kidnap the Hyuga heiress for the Byakugan. Naruto nodded slowly. He could see the raikage's point of view. He wanted his village to become strong and reputable, and if it was at the expense of another non-allied village, then so be it. Besides, wasn't that what all shinobi villages did? Okay. You've convinced me. A wide smile split his face. Let's go pay the raikage a little visit to see if he's interested. Omada Hiroshi, the fourth raikage, shivered slightly as he hunched over the newest paperwork in the cage tower. His old bones were too vulnerable to the biting chill of the tower, which was set on one of the high peaks of Kumo. It was a strategic spot but better suited for young, vigorous bodies. Carefully, he put down his glass nib pen and turned his thoughts to his ever-present concern, his successor candidates. So far, no clear candidates had caught his interest, though the clans continued to push their scions. Hiroshi himself favored his ward Nii Yujito, who was the Jinchuriki to the Nibi no Nikomata. Like the third Hokage, he had taken up his old job when his old successor and nephew died while sealing the Nibi inside his grandniece, Yujito. Yujito was a superlative kunoichi, an excellent squad leader on the battlefield, but she was not a leader. She didn't have the charisma to draw attention or set hearts on fire. She was reserved and quiet. Oh, she was decisive and quick with orders when fighting, but she was more inclined to ignore what was happening around her as none of her concern. Not a good quality in a political leader or cage candidate. Even she herself admitted it. But as things stood, she was the only one he could trust Kumo to, someone who wouldn't drain the village to benefit a select few. He spun around, kunai out, when a soft, polite cough broke the silence. He was tense but not too concerned. If it had been an assassin, he or she would never have coughed. Who is there? The shadows peeled away to reveal two figures that emerged from the darkness. A not too tall man with spiky blonde hair, wearing a cloth half-mask that veiled the lower half of his face. His lithe build was dressed in green camo pants, pouches on both thighs, black combat boots, and a black turtleneck under a sand-colored trenchcoat. His companion/partner was obviously a kunoichi, dressed in green cargo pants and black boots, with a black t-shirt under a green camo jacket. She had long black hair twisted in a knot secured by chopsticks and senbons, with long strands framing a pale, aristocratic, triangular face and almond-shaped black eyes. Neither of them wore a headband, not even a scored one to mark them as nuke nins, but they were clearly trained shinobi. High-class ones, given that they had penetrated the raikage tower without setting off any alarms. they also bore no killing intent. They wanted something. Feeling a bit more relaxed, the raikage filled his pipe and lit it before taking a deep puff. "What can I do for you?" The pair glanced at each other before the blonde man stepped forward. "It is more like what we can do for you, Raikage-sama." His roomy eyes narrowed sharply. "Perhaps you can start with your names?" The pair hesitated before answering. "Naruto, Haibara." The raikage perked up. "Uzumaki Naruto? Of Konoha?" The blonde man stiffened. Formerly of Konoha, he corrected sharply before forcing himself to relax. "Forgive my abruptness, I have almost no good memories of Konoha." Hiroshi nodded slowly. He had heard of how Konoha's Jinhyuriki was treated. Fools! They did everything they could to anger the boy. It was a miracle he hadn't snapped years ago like the fifth Kazekage, Gaare. I can see that. It was disturbing. Sarutobi was a fool. He watched his village prime an explosive tag and did nothing to stop them. "Young man, you must have an iron will to have reached your current level with so little encouragement or backing." Naruto blinked and smiled hesitantly. "Thank you." Hiroshi shook his head. "It's not a compliment. It's the truth. I've studied the historical data on Jinhyurikis. Those treated reverently, with respect, they served their villages well, often becoming great leaders. It is those despised and hated who become insane and go on killing rampages that are so prominently noted in the records." He took a deep puff. "I was determined not to let that happen to Yujito, so I was very strict about enforcing any law I made to protect her. In fact, I forced many of the clans to send their heirs for special training with Yujito. They grew up with her and treated her like any other high clan child. Whenever they heard uncomplimentary things, they were quick to speak in her defense. When they finally learned she was a Jinhyuriki, it was something secondary, like a Kekai Genkai. All Kumo shinobi know she is a strong kunoichi and an experienced squad leader. They know she will not risk their lives for no good cause, that she will do her best to make sure her team returns alive." Naruto bowed his head. "I heard that." Jiraiya, the Gamasunin, said that Akatsuki always hesitated going after the Nibi because Kumo shinobi were quick to react. The raikage nodded. When they were active, Yujito spent more time doing missions requiring several squads. Akatsuki is good, but not against a group that works like a well-oiled machine, or a Jinhyuriki comfortable with drawing on 90% of the Baijuyu's power without losing control. Especially the Nibi. Naruto frowned then nodded. "The Nibi has control over the dead." "Yes. Yujito can reanimate corpses to fight on her behalf. If the death is fairly recent and there is a medic to repair the injuries, she can force the soul back into the body." Naruto's eyes widened. "Wow." The raikage smirked. "Yes, wow. It makes her a particular favorite of Kumo's shinobi. All the divisions know to make sure there's a good medic on her team. But enough about Yujito. Tell me about Uzumaki Naruto. What brings you here?" Naruto glanced at his companion. "You might not be aware of it, but I have left Konoha with the blessing of the Godaemon Daimyo. I currently have dual citizenship with Wave and Spring Country. I have been working as a bounty hunter when I met Haibara. After some discussion, we decided we wished to join a hidden village, with Kumo as our preference." His blue eyes were level. "Haibara is practically unknown to most villages, but I assure you she is a skilled kunoichi, S-class, and better than me in technique in some fields." The raikage almost dropped his pipe from shock. "Tell me, why Kumo? Is it for vengeance? Do you hope to attack Konoha in the future using Kumo as a shield?" Naruto shook his head. "No, Konoha holds grudges. I do not. You tried to make your village strong by going through with the Hyuga kidnapping. Don't all villages destroy or steal the resources of others? Scrolls, jutsus, Kekai Genkais, weapons, shinobi? You had not had a treaty with Konoha, you were there to sign one, but you hadn't." Hiroshi stared at the young man with thoughtful eyes. "That is a very mature outlook." Naruto shrugged. "Well, if I hated everyone who treated me badly, I would be full of nothing but bitterness. I've learned to let go and move on to survive. Besides, you are more worthy, you've treated Yujito a lot better than Konoha ever treated me. I think if I had lived in Kumo, I would have had a better childhood." Hiroshi could say nothing because it was the bitter truth. He cursed the long-dead Hokages, two particular ones who were responsible for the sufferings of this young man. The private speculation was looking to be more and more real. "Uzumaki, could you do something for me?" Naruto tensed warily. "What? Remove your mask." Naruto blinked but obeyed. The stretchy material rested around his throat to reveal his chiseled features, the long nose, the wide, sculpted mouth, and the faint trio of lines around said mouth that resembled whiskers. A restless hand ran through his spiky blonde hair while his narrow eyes regarded the raikage with veiled wariness. Omada Hiroshi nodded thoughtfully and took another deep puff. "That explains it." Naruto exploded. "Explains what?" "Why the fourth Hokage chose you," Hiroshi explained calmly. "I have no proof. No birth certificate, no clan scrolls, no letters, nothing but my appearance. Jiraiya said I'm most likely his son, but I forbade him to tell anyone, not even Tsunade Bachan. If you think the fools in Konoha would have believed us, you're high on something. He laughed a sharp, barking sound. They'd say I stole the Yandame's looks. Foxes are tricksters and illusionists, you know. Hiroshi cleared his throat discreetly. It does not matter what Konoha says. I know our archives have several blood samples from Konoha shinobi. They were collected from battlefields for our medics to study. He explained. I'm certain we have a sample for Namikaze Minato. He participated in a sparring duel with my old successor, Yujito's uncle. Hiriko used a Kuzarigama that drew blood. The blood sample would have been preserved. He smiled slyly. If it proves he sired you, you have every right to use the Namikaze name. It's not like there's a clan to protest it, no matter what Konoha thinks. Naruto turned away, tears filling his eyes. All of Konoha denied him, and here a complete stranger acknowledged the possibility, willing to help him prove his heritage. He looked at Hibara, who smiled with a warm, understanding light in her usually cool eyes. I don't care if I marry Uzumaki Naruto or Namikaze Naruto. You are one and the same, and I love you. She voiced her opinion and support. Naruto bowed his head briefly before straightening with fresh resolve. This proves my point, Raikage-sama. You are willing to see beyond the surface, to consider what most people would not. I would be honored to serve you as a Kumo nin. Hibara stirred. But we are a bit concerned about your successor, the Rokudame. We would like to meet him or her before fully committing to Kumo. She shuddered. We will not risk being bound to serve one unworthy. A germ of an idea found root. Hiroshi smiled slowly. I have no fixed choice for my successor. Currently, Yujito is the most suitable candidate. The couple looked at each other. Hibara spoke. Could we meet her? The Raikage knew if he pushed too hard he would lose them. The man would only serve those he cared for, the woman would follow him. Trying to bind these two would be like chaining the wind or binding lightning, possible but eventually a futile endeavor. Of course. First, let me prepare a set of visitors' papers for you two. For 2 months? That should be enough time for you to make a decision. He opened a few blank scrolls and began writing out the details of a visitor's pass. A slow smile spread across his face as he imagined the possibilities. They were looking for a place to put down roots, to grow a family. The children of a Jinchuriki, an S-class shinobi, the potential was unlimited. This could be the source of the fresh blood he had been looking for. Shikamaru frowned as he stared down at the remnants of his cold dinner. The sauce was coagulating on the grilled meat. Eat up, Shikamaru, or I'll give your food to Koji, Ino threatened, shaking a fist. Shikamaru just pushed his plate to his Akimichi friend. You can have it, Koji. I don't feel that hungry anyway. Sakura looked at the strategic genius with some concern. The Nara had lost weight in recent months. What's wrong, Shikamaru? You haven't been going out on missions, but you've lost so much weight. The Konoha Jonin looked at the Nara. They tried to get together for dinner at least once a month. This time, Kiba, Niji, and Lee were away on a tracking mission. Suzuki was never invited after the scene he made the first and only time Ino cajoled him into joining them. Tenten eyed the Nara with critical eyes. Sakura is right. Next time you have to go out in the field you'll pass out after just a few hours of running. Haven't you been training? Shikamaru shook his head. Haven't had the time. I've been spending all my time analyzing the intel reports from months back. A frown creased his nose. Konoha is in trouble. What do you mean? Shino usually did not speak, but when he did he meant it. Shikamaru tapped the wooden surface beneath his hands and organized his thoughts. Have you heard of aka Arashi? Or Hanashin? Sakura shuddered automatically. Red Storm and Death Flower? Who hasn't? Every single Konoha shinobi who encountered them has died, and we still don't have a clue what they look like or anything else, including their affiliation. Shikamaru shook his head. Now we do. They are Kumo Elite. Bolt. Eyes widened. Bolt was the Kumo equivalent of Umbu. Usually, any missions they undertook never created any ripples. Aka Arashi is Bolt. Ino was incredulous. I thought no one survived any encounter with the pair. How do you know? A scouting team doing recon had a branch house Hyaga with them, Shikamaru replied bluntly. He saw the attack used. It literally created a hurricane of cutting winds and red energy that overloaded or sliced everyone within several hundred yards. Only those in the eye of the storm were safe. While he attacked long range, she attacked close range. Hanashin is clearly a Kenjutsu and Ninjutsu specialist, a scalpel compared to aka Arashi's hammer. Once the field was clear, they joined a Bolt team who followed their lead. I've been going over past reports where the enemy wasn't very clear. A lot of the shinobi who died from opponents unknown were most likely killed by this pair. It is only recently, after that large-scale lethal massacre where those Kirei Arashi attacks were used, that the names were discovered by intel operatives. Ino shook her head. I don't get it. If they have two really good nins, why isn't Kumo publicizing it to get missions? Shikamaru's eyes were solemn. They have, Ino. Mainly in IWA and countries without shinobi villages. I don't know if your dad has been complaining, but Konoha has been losing some large regular merchant contracts. The factors said they found another more reliable village. From the reports, it is most likely IWA or Kumo. Koji nodded slowly. A lot of merchants have been saying that. It's because Nami and Spring automatically increase the cost of any goods heading for Fire Country or Konoha. They have been giving merchants who hire shinobi from other hidden villages a discount. Ino stared, confused. She knew prices had been increasing recently, but she never figured out why. But why? Sakura looked away, her mouth trembling. It was Hinata who answered, her eyes moist. It is because Naruto left Konoha. He has accepted citizenship in both those countries, and they do not like Konoha anymore. She looked down at her clenched fist. I heard father speak of it. The daimyo and Godame are very angry with Konoha. Naruto asked Tsunade-sama to banish him so he could leave without being marked as a Nukenin. Everyone recoiled. They knew Naruto had left, but they figured it was just a long training trip. None had figured it was a permanent thing, but Naruto hadn't sent any letters. Ino turned to Sakura. That's just a joke, isn't it, forward girl? Naruto always said he wanted to be Hokage. He wouldn't just up and leave. Sakura straightened her head and spoke, her voice thick with unshed tears. Hinata is right. He left. He didn't say anything to anyone but Tsunade-sama or Jiraiya-sama. Even Irika-sensei and Tuka-san and Ayam-san from Ichiraku's didn't know. But why? Tenten voiced the question on all their minds. Why would he leave? Sakura shook her head. I don't know. But even before that, Tsunade-sama stopped teaching me. Her long bangs hid her eyes. Shizune-san refused to tell me anything. I'm still a medic nin, but I learned through the hospital. I don't get any specialized training anymore. Haven't for a few years now. Shino nodded thoughtfully. That explains it. Everyone looked at him. Tsunade-sama blames you, and all of Konoha. In her eyes, we are responsible for making Naruto leave. But we didn't do anything. Ino erupted, furious. That is exactly it. We didn't do anything. Shikamaru's cool voice cut through the histrionics of the Yamanaka kunoichi. We didn't stay in touch with him. We didn't ask about him. We didn't talk to him. We didn't know he was unhappy in Konoha. Hell, we didn't suspect anything was wrong. Only Hinata and Sakura. Sharp eyes pinned the two kunoichi. Tell me, why didn't you two say anything? You two were supposed to know him best. Sakura, you were his genin teammate. Hinata, you were his girlfriend. They looked away. Hinata spoke first. I broke up with him. Father did not like me dating him. He said he was unworthy, a nobody. She silently begged for understanding, their support. He was beginning to respect me as a kunoichi. I didn't want to lose. So you threw Naruto away, Shikamaru concluded in patent disgust. He turned to Sakura. What about you? What did you do or not do? Then he shook his head. No, I don't have to be told. All you cared about was getting the Uchiha. You made Naruto promise. You ignored him except when the rumors about Sasuke reached you, then you guilt Naruto into chasing after the traitor. Whenever he returned empty-handed, you berated him and put him down for failing. Sakura pushed her chair back and ran away crying. Shikamaru glared at Ino, cutting off her words of defense. Don't say AF *****ing thing, Ino. You know I'm right. Sakura ignored Naruto except when it was time to chase Sasuke. And when Sasuke was back in Konoha, she dropped Naruto like a used tissue. He pushed his own chair back and stood up abruptly, throwing his chopsticks down with a clatter. Forget it. I understand perfectly why Naruto left Konoha. No one around here gave a damn about him, us included. In the Hokage Tower, the Konoha Council was holding another more formal meeting. Godame-sama, what measures are being taken to eliminate aka Arashi and Hanashin? Tsunade eyed Hayaga Hayashi and smiled maliciously. None. She waited for the uproar of protest to die before continuing. All umbus sent against the pair have been eliminated. Not one has survived to return, make contact, send a message, anything. We would have to send at least 15 full squadrons to have a less than even chance of taking them out. Such a step would be an act of war. It would give Kumo the right to retaliate openly. If they send the pair against Konoha, we would be facing a lesser version of the Yondaime Hokage, but we would be the IWA Nins. Their techniques and teamwork are destructive on a massive scale. They can literally bring down the walls and storage silos from half a mile away. I will not risk dragging Konoha into a war we are not prepared for. That harsh reminder was enough to still most of the protest. Then what course of action remains? Abarame Shibi voiced the practical question. Avoidance, Tsunade replied bluntly. Nara Shikamaru has been analyzing past reports where the opponents were not so clear-cut. A clear pattern has emerged. 35% of Jonin killed in the past year, opponent unknown, has been closed opponent known, aka Arashi or Hanishin. 80% of our shinobi encounters with Kumo have ended in at least one death, 40% with only one survivor making the report. Kumo has been upping their shinobi training regimes, even their Chunin teams are becoming lethal to an experienced konoha Jonin. They are using more and more new or never seen jutsu, futon, raiten, katan all blended to have effects our shinobi are not familiar with. Unfortunately, few survive to return and make a report so we can develop counters. The standard Doton mud wall is ripped to shreds by their attacks. Inoichi shook his head. I don't understand how these two elites snuck up on us. Kumo has not produced any promising shinobi in years. None of their Chunin have made a good show at any of the exams. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. Jiraiya has a theory. They are not sending their real elites to the public Chunin exams. They are training them in private, in Kumo, sending them for quiet missions and wiping out all witnesses. Aka Arashi and Hanishin are simply the first making a big splash for Kumo's debut. She rubbed her forehead. Most of the guard contracts we've lost have definitely gone to Kumo. She snorted and shook her head. Certain unnamed Konohan individuals tried to change the merchants' minds by hiring shinobi to impersonate bandits. The Kumo Chunin and Genin guards slaughtered them. It is fortunate they had the brains not to take their Konoha Hitaiates with them. The whole council looked at each other. They had come to this meeting expecting to sign off on an S-class mission to assassinate aka Arashi and Hanishin. Now they find out things were a lot more complicated than just killing two nins. Shikaku sighed. So avoidance it is. Until we can get better intel, Tsunade agreed readily. We need something we can use to track the targets, pictures, profiles, names, associates, teachers, students, anything. We can't just declare war on Kumo to take out just two nins when we don't have any means of locating or identifying them. None of them could argue with that. It was hard to plan an assassination mission when you didn't even know what the target looked like under the porcelain mask. Omada Hiroshi smirked as he downed his own sake. He could feel it in his bones. This alliance would last. The last Tsuchikage had been a warmongering barbarian. This young man was more calm, thoughtful, and practical. It helped that he held no personal grudge against Konoha and the Yondaime Hokage. He was more interested in rebuilding. Nobunaga Dikin couldn't help smiling as he sipped his warm sake. He had only been Tsuchikage for 10 years, and he had never expected to be negotiating a full-scale alliance and trade treaty given the general state of unrest with the recent Oto mess and the Akatsuki Baijuyu situation. He certainly didn't expect to be signing one with Kumo after the disaster with Konoha. How did you do it, Hiroshi-san? Kumo hasn't made any good standing in recent Chunin exams. And now you produce two S-class elites. His voice held nothing but admiration. And your shinobi have grown so much stronger. Usually, Doton Jutsu easily counter Raiten or Futon Jutsu, but what your nins use, it is different. Hiroshi poured more sake for himself and Dikin. Good fortune, mainly. I held true to my principles throughout my life. The Kamists chose to bless me by sending me two elites in my old age. Dikin's eyes widened. Two Nukanin, he whispered incredulously. Hiroshi shook his head. Nope. One who was banished since he could not bear to remain in his birth village. His partner who has no record in any village. Dikin sat straight. And you trust them? Two strangers? What if this was a high-level infiltration attempt? Hiroshi chortled. That is exactly it, my dear Dikin. This one would never be sent for an infiltration. His partner, maybe, but he is too open. Who is this gem? This prodigy? Hiroshi shook a bony finger. This one is no prodigy. He is a hard worker and has enough balls for 10 squadrons, but he is not a genius, not the way we classify genius. Hiroshi frowned slightly. He thinks outside the box. He smiled more slyly. His father did too. A growing suspicion bloomed. What is his name? Hiroshi batted his eyes. Aka Arashi. His partner is called Hanishin. The raikage added unhelpfully. Dikin growled. His real name, Hiroshi-san. The foolish banter and tipsiness faded. The Yondaime raikage spoke. Dikin-san, I have chosen this man as my successor. My shinobi and people support him, but if you choose to end the alliance over him, I will understand. His name, Namikaze Naruto. His father was Namikaze Minato. Dikin sagged back as though struck. Deciding to drive the point in, Hiroshi continued. Minato sealed the Kyubi no Yoko within his only son, the boy named Uzumaki Naruto. He was ignored, beaten, and abused by Konoha, and still, he wished to serve the leaf. He bled to kill two S-class nins when he was just a Chunin. He nearly died to retrieve Uchiha Suzuki to save the Sharinan Kekii Genkai for Konoha, and still they denied him the rank of Jonin, his father's name, his heritage. The boy tried so very hard, but all humans have a limit, so he left. The one good thing the Godaime Hokage did was banish him so the council could not mark him as a Nukanin. He left Fire Country and settled in Wave and Spring Country where he has contacts. The Tsuchikage connected the dots. The merchant contracts. The raikage smirked. Hi. Both countries owe nothing to Konoha, they have more affection for the boy because he fought for them, not just Ryo. Dukin was torn. The boy's father slaughtered Iwa Nin, but it was during war, and he had clearly cut his allegiances with Konoha. But still, he is a Jinchuriki and badly treated. Dukin pointed out neutrally. How can you be certain of his mental stability? Pish tosh. Minato was a seals master, and if the boy hadn't snapped after all those years in Konoha, I don't see why he will now. Besides, he is happy, content. He has a wife, a child, friends, and comrades who trust and respect him. Things he had been looking for all his life. Things he never had. The Tsuchikage nodded slowly. I can see that point of view. All our intel reports indicated the boy thirst for respect and acknowledgement, things he never got in Konoha. Exactly. Dukin smiled and shook his head. You are a lucky son of a bitch. Getting ready-made elites, a potential successor, all in one blow. Hiroshi nodded solemnly. I burn incense twice a week. The gods can be cruel, but occasionally they can be generous. Dukin sighed. What about the new jutsu? They seem to be combos, but I don't see how you found and trained so many dual affinities. Hiroshi laughed and shook his head. It is not strictly dual affinities. Two shinobi with complementing affinities work together to amplify their attacks. Naijutsu. Naruto and Hibara pioneered this technique during their bounty hunting time. As part of the alliance, Kumo is willing to teach Iwa Nin the principles and some examples. Dukin smiled at the irony. The son of the Yondaime Hokage becoming the raikage and teaching Iwa Nin jutsu that could possibly destroy Konoha. I cannot say for certain, but I am almost sure the council will go for it. The boy did nothing to Iwa, his father and Konoha were the ones responsible. Besides, he is no longer Konoha, but of Kumo, our new allies. Hiroshi raised his dish of sake and smiled. A new era, a new alliance. Hokage-sama, a message from the Kazekage has been delivered to Konoha. Tsunade looked up at the impassive face of Sabaka no Tamari, Suna's ambassador to Konoha. The Kunoichi had chosen the post to be near Nara Shikamaru. Although their relationship had since ended, Tamari had stayed. Cautiously, Tsunade accepted the scroll, biting her thumb to dab a drop of blood on the seal. She carefully opened the document, her eyes scanning its contents before a look of shock spread across her face. Looking up at Tamari, she asked, "Do you know what the scroll contains?" Tamari's facade faltered slightly. "Yes. Suna is withdrawing from the alliance. We will only maintain neutrality with Konoha." Tsunade shook her head, already knowing the reason. The Kazekage had a deep friendship with Naruto, his first true friend. Their bond had soured after Naruto was banished from Konoha. But why was Suna pulling out now? Is there a specific reason Suna is withdrawing from the alliance at this very moment? Besides the obvious. Tamari hesitated, but decided there was no harm in telling her. Konoha's spies would uncover the truth soon enough. Iwa and Kumo have formed an alliance and invited Suna to join them. The news hit Tsunade like a physical blow. Gaara assures me that the Raikage and Tsuchikage have no plans to attack Konoha. This is more of a trade and mutual defense pact, she said, tilting her head. This will be a great benefit to Suna. Part of the agreement involves exchanging shinobi and techniques. The Raikage's successor was the one who pushed for this. He believes that by strengthening bonds and sharing our power, the alliance will endure. Tsunade closed her eyes. She had argued with the council, pleading for joint training and missions with Suna, but they had always refused. Opening her eyes again, she said, "The Raikage's successor sounds like a very wise shinobi. Have you met him? Do you know his name?" Tamari shook her head. "I have not. Only Gaara has, and he isn't speaking of him." She frowned a little. Gaara has never once called him by name, only as the sixth dot. Tsunade blinked back tears. The sixth. It was a title she had once hoped someone she loved as a little brother would receive. Now he never would. "When are you leaving?" "In 2 days," Tamari answered honestly. "I have already packed most of my things and arranged for some large purchases to be delivered to Suna in a few weeks. I am only staying to say goodbye to Shikamaru and the others." Tsunade nodded slowly. "Very well." She then smiled warmly. "I will miss seeing you, Tamari. I'm sure Shikamaru and the others will as well." The secret architect. A few months later, the fifth Hokage was sipping her tea, nursing a never-ending headache as she waited for the council to quiet down. Every one of them looked aged from the recent stresses, and she hoped those bastards would lose more hair and get a dozen more wrinkles. She waited and waited. Silence. Expectant eyes. "I have the report from the Jounin team sent to protect the Fire Daimyo's diplomatic envoy to Kumo. The news is not good." Several counselors and clan heads took a sip of the herbal tea meant to soothe ulcers. Tsunade took a sip of her own before continuing. "The daimyo was not completely honest with us. The envoy he sent to Kumo were witnesses, as he said, but he was not specific about what they were to witness. The tension mounted until one of the civilians blurted out, "What? A marriage?" The alliance between IWA and Kumo has been further solidified by the Tsuchikage marrying the raikage's grandniece, Yujito Nii. Shikaku frowned. Yujito Nii. Why does that name sound familiar? She is the Jinhyuriki of the two-tailed cat and a highly respected kunoichi in Kumo. It was rumored that she was a candidate to be the next raikage, but that is clearly no longer the case, Tsunade answered bluntly. Is she unwilling? Inyazuka-sama asked. If so, this marriage may not last, and the alliance might fall. Tsunade shook her head. I had hoped for that too, but no. She turned to the shadows. Of the entire Jounin escort team, only Uehai Kurane was allowed to accompany the daimyo's envoy into Kumo where the marriage was held. The next day, they were escorted back to the border where the rest of the Jounin escorts were detained. Kurane will be giving her first-hand report, one question at a time after she has finished her debriefing. Uehai Kurane straightened her back as she stood. She calmly collected her thoughts before giving her report. We were intercepted at the border by 2 squadrons of Kumo Jounin and one of IWA Jounin and pinned down. They made it very clear that only one Konoha shinobi would be allowed entry into Kumo. I was chosen because of my photographic memory. One group remained at the border while a smaller group escorted us into Kumo. They were very professional. No verbal threats or abuse. The pace set was comfortable for the daimyo's envoy. When the terrain was difficult, they carried the civilians. Kumo itself is isolated and difficult to penetrate, with its sheer cliff faces and gorges. But inside the walls, Kumo has changed. There is energy and life. Civilians are gossiping, traders are bustling, children are active. Most of the shinobi moved in groups of 2 or 4. We were taken to a high-class hotel that was full of foreigners. Some seemed to know what was happening, but no one was talking. I saw that Tsuchikage talking with the Kazekage and a masked man, but I thought nothing of it. He looked like an operative of the Black Ops Lightning team, and I assumed he was their liaison or honorary guard. At dinner time, I found out that Tsuchikage would be marrying the raikage's grandniece, Yujito Nii. There were too many shinobi guards to do a reconnaissance, so I stayed in my room. The next day, I took a quick stroll and saw the bride-to-be. She was talking with the same masked man and the Kazekage. She called them both brother and hugged them. The wedding took place a few hours later. The masked man gave the bride away, and the raikage presided over the ceremony. The Kazekage and the Tsuchikage's sister, Sango, were the official witnesses. From what I saw, the bride and groom have genuine respect and affection for each other. They will make an honest attempt to make this marriage work. All information about Nobunaga-dikin indicates he has had no serious relationships or girlfriends in the past few years. His first wife died in childbirth, and the daughter was stillborn. He has no children from any past liaisons. The witnesses from IWA are pleased by the marriage and alliance. I did some eavesdropping during the reception. The masked man. He is aka Arashi. It is common knowledge in Kumo that he is the raikage's right hand, a highly respected and skilled jounin and bolt operative. It is also known that he is a Jinhyuriki, but of what no one who knows is talking. The Kazekage and Yujito trust him and call him brother. The next day, we were escorted back to the border, where the rest of the jounin escorts were waiting. Kurane closed her eyes. 3 Jinhyuriki, highly respected and honored, are very close to the seats of power in 3 different hidden villages. They are the key to this alliance. They will not be easily removed, and the bonds they share will not be easily severed. Chaoza frowned. I do not understand. How can Yujito be so trusted and liked? Didn't the 5th raikage die sealing the 2 tails into her? Even Gaara was feared. Suna chose him for his power. Tsunade shook her head. I do not know. Neither does Kurane. Does anyone know which tailed beast this aka Arashi holds? Jiraiya might, but he has not responded to any of my letters. She smiled sourly. Don't count on him telling Konoha anything even if he does. Several counselors winced at that pointed rebuke. Hayashi frowned. 3 Jinhyuriki with power and influence, in positions of leadership in 3 separate countries that have poor relationships with Konoha. This is not a good thing. IWA, Kumo, and Suna. They might change their minds in the future and attack Konoha. Tsunade grimaced. A certain Umbu division thought so and chose to act without my or this council's permission. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct pleasure of informing you that the highly illegal route division of Umbu is no more. Every single route Umbu sent to interfere in the treaty negotiations is dead. In fact, Kumo sent several squadrons to track route back to their bases outside Konoha and wiped them out. 3 days ago, Danzo was found dead. Officially, he died of a heart attack. Unofficially, the medics believe it is a new assassination jutsu that mimics a heart attack, a lightning-style jutsu that overstimulates the heart. Several Umbu and Jounin known to associate with him, and even some who don't, have died in unexpected encounters with Kumo shinobi in the weeks since. She smiled the now common, skull-like grin. A most welcome gift from Kumo. I must send the raikage a letter expressing my gratitude for getting rid of those thorns in my side. Her honey-colored eyes bored into certain individuals. Too bad they only took care of the shinobi. Several counselors flinched, they had been Danzo's allies and supporters. The shinobi on the council shook their heads. It was a highly illegal action, but it was very surprising how complete and ruthlessly thorough Kumo's reaction had been. Their intelligence operations must be very sophisticated to have penetrated and unearthed Root. But then again, Root had been protected by factions on Konoha's council. Shikaka sighed and tapped the table to get everyone's attention. It is clear. If we stay out of Kumo's way, they will not attack us, but if we interfere in their business, they have no hesitation about wiping those responsible out. Tsunade nodded. Until now, our encounters with Kumo have only been in the field when we are at cross purposes, on opposing sides, trying to gather intelligence. My recommendation is to stop hiding since hiding has not helped one bit. Several shinobi sat up straighter. What are you suggesting? Some wanted to know. Tsunade glanced at a scroll in front of her. The Chuyunin exams are coming up. This time, they will be hosted in Kumo. Usually, we never send genin teams to Kumo or IWA, but I think we should. It will give us a good opportunity to get a first-hand look at Kumo since the exams usually last at least a month. Shivi nodded thoughtfully. That is an excellent idea. We cannot send too many genin teams, but we should send those who have a greater chance of advancing so our jounin will have a reason to stay in Kumo. Tsunade nodded. Abarame Shino, Harano Sakura, and Hyuuga Niji have genin teams that should be ready. My suggestion is to send an additional jounin for each team one-on-one instructors for those who advance. A few more can join me when I travel to Kumo for the third exam. Hayashi frowned. Is that a wise decision, Fifth Sama? You are the Hokage. Tsunade snorted. And that is why I have to be there. The fourth raikage has implied he will be announcing his successor during the third exam. I want to have a first-hand look at the new sixth, to see who we will be up against. Besides, with all the daimyo and dignitaries invited, it is unlikely anyone will try anything. Kumo will probably handle them just like they handled Root. There was nothing anyone could say to that. A familiar face. Uchiha Suzuki frowned as he made his way through the cobbled streets of Kumo. The main avenues were broad and wide, but the side streets were ancient and winding. Kumo was much older than Konoha, and it showed. He did not understand why he was one of the 3 additional jounin sent for the Kumo Chuyunin exams. Kakashi was here, and he also had the Sharingan. Suzuki felt it was a waste of his time, especially since the Kumo shinobi were very cautious about practicing in the public training grounds with all the foreigners in competition around. He sighed. All 3 Konoha teams had passed the first exam, a basic reconnaissance and intel gathering exercise. Each team was given a different target, a Kumo Chuyunin, to trail in a training room designed to mimic several blocks of a small town. They had to observe the target and retrieve specific papers the target either carried on them or secreted in a hiding place that had to be located. The second exam was being held right now. Suzuki distantly wondered how many would pass. In his first Chuyunin exams, the proctor, Mitarashi Anko, literally cut the candidate pool in half with her choice of test. Each team had either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. To pass, they had to secure the scroll they didn't have from the competition and reach the tower with all members. That meant only half the teams that entered could pass. Suzuki wondered if Kumo would have something similar. A flash of gold distracted him. His Sharingan eyes followed a head of spiky, untamed blonde hair. A tall, broad-shouldered Kumo shinobi wore gray camouflage pants, black combat boots instead of shinobi sandals, a navy blue turtleneck, a green flak vest, and his headband tied around his right bicep. A girl barely in her teens, wearing the Kumo headband tied around her arm, was chasing him. Master Namikaze. Master Namikaze. The blonde Kumo shinobi stopped and crouched down to look the genin in the eye. What is it, Katara? Shouldn't you be with your team and jounin senseis? Katara shook her head. Master Nyako and Master Ishain gave us the day off. They have things to do for the Chuyunin exam. But I have a message for you. She held up a folded piece of paper. Namikaze took the paper and quickly scanned the contents. He swiftly produced a lead pencil from one of his flak vest pockets and scribbled a message on the same paper before handing it back to Katara. Katara, please deliver this to the academy for me, too. I know. It's always me who gets stuck with this. Namikaze grinned and playfully messed up the girl's hair. You're just lucky I'm your neighbor. You get to be my own personal unpaid courier. But I get to meet a lot of cool people. Katara grinned back at the shinobi. I'll drop this off at the academy before I head to target practice. With that, she took off. In an unexpected feat of chakra control and raw strength, she launched herself off a pile of stones and straight at a building. Her feet touched the brick for a brief moment before she began running horizontally, parallel to the ground, along the wall. The blonde shinobi watched her go, before doing the same, only far faster. Before Suzuki could even react, he had vanished into the maze of towering buildings. Namikaze. The name felt familiar, but for some reason, the shinobi reminded Suzuki of Naruto. The way his hair was golden and perpetually messy. The way he trusted the young girl, letting her go even without a Jounin sensei around. These thoughts occupied his mind as he wandered back to the hostel where the konoha party was staying. Konnichiwa Suzuki-kun. Come and join us. We're ordering lunch in Niji-san's room since it has a private sitting area. Suzuki winced at the cheerful voice of his former genin teammate but reluctantly followed Sakura to the suite Niji shared with Shino. Suzuki had a double room he shared with Kakashi. Sakura was rooming with Kurane. Suzuki blinked and took a closer look. Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, was there, along with her assistant Shizun, Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Nara Shikaku. Go Dame-sama, you're here early. Tsunade studied the last remaining Uchiha. Since there was no trace of Itachi, only he could restore the Uchiha clan, but he showed little interest in doing so. Determined to foil her opponents, she had dismissed all attempts to pressure him into marriage or at least agreeing to have council-selected surrogates bear sharing and wielding children. Yes. I received a report that concerned me. I felt it was best if I arrived early to prevent any unfortunate misunderstandings. Suzuki eyed the fifth Hokage. She looked like a cat playing with its prey. What kind of information? She smiled kindly. Information about an old friend. Deciding it was best to leave it alone, Suzuki sat down to serve himself from the group meal Sakura had ordered. He listened distractedly to the conversation. The second exam was to locate and retrieve a chakra-tagged scroll within 3 days. All team members had to be healthy and mobile when they left the Badlands and reached the examiner's outpost. The catch was there were only 20 scrolls hidden in Kumigakure's Badlands and 50 teams participating. Even so, there was no guarantee all 20 scrolls would be found, so it was possible that fewer than 20 teams could advance to the next exam. Sakura's team had failed on the first day. One of her genin had fallen into a gorge and was badly cut, needing medical assistance. The injured genin was currently in Kumigakure's hospital receiving treatment, the other 2 were resting. Everyone was hoping both of the remaining 2 teams would pass. Suzuki-kun, you look pretty distracted. Suzuki snapped back to the present. He forced himself to relax. I was thinking, about what? Niji inquired coolly. Suzuki frowned. I met a Kumo shinobi in the streets. He looked like Naruto, but he wasn't. A Kumo genin called him Namikaze. The older shinobi, Shikamaru, and Sakura tensed. The Hokage's eyes sharpened. Are you sure, Suzuki? He was called Namikaze? Suzuki blinked and frowned. Positive. She called him Namikaze-sama. Tsunade began to chuckle before laughing softly. He did it. He actually did it. Sakura stared at her former teacher. What do you mean, Go Dame-sama? Who is this Namikaze? I thought the fourth Hokage was an orphan with no relatives. Go Dame-sama. Inoichi spoke warily. This is a confidential matter. They have no need to know about. Shut up, Inoichi. Tsunade smirked, her eyes glowing with predatory intent. Oh no, you are very wrong, Harano. Namikaze Minato had relatives. He had a son he used as a sacrifice to save Konoha from the Nine Tails, a child he used as a Jinchuriki, a son who was scorned and betrayed by Konoha and those he trusted. Sakura recoiled. Everyone paled. Minato-sensei never married. He never had any children, Kakashi said slowly. You are incorrect. He married Uzumaki Kushina, a shinobi from the land of whirlpools who joined Konoha's ranks as an umbu. They kept their relationship quiet because Minato had many enemies. When the Nine Tails attacked Konoha, he used his only child and heir as a vessel to seal away the Nine Tails. His dying wish was for Konoha to see his son, Naruto, as a hero, but they didn't. Shikamaru could see it all. They saw him as a monster, as the Nine Tails, and they treated him like Suna treated Gaara before the Soundsan invasion, before he met Naruto and became Kazekage. Tsunade smiled, a slightly warmer expression. Correct, Shikamaru. I don't know what the third Hokage was smoking, but he messed up big time. He failed to protect Naruto or honor Minato's last wishes. He allowed the son of our greatest hero to grow up hated and abandoned in an orphanage where he was subjected to several assassination attempts by Konoha shinobi and civilians. The younger Jounin paled, their imaginations easily filling the gaps, what was left unsaid. I don't know how Naruto survived, how he grew up into such a decent young man, but he did. I guess the little kindness he got from Irika, the ramen stand owners, a few umbu, the third, it helped keep him sane. She stared at 3 faces in particular. But after being betrayed by the one he called a brother, ignored by his own Jounin sensei, used and discarded by his first crush, all these things add up, you know. After the 5th time the council denied his application to take the Jounin exams, he decided to cut his losses. He told me he wanted to leave Konoha, so I let him. I banished him so Konoha's council cannot mark him as a rogue ninja. I wasn't going to force him to stay in a village that hated him, she explained bluntly. If things continued, he would have snapped and gone Gaara on all of us or mimicked Itachi, and no one would be able to stop him. He is a Jinchuriki, you know, trained by the Sannin who taught the fourth Hokage. Naruto took down 2 S-class rogue ninja from the Akatsuki all by himself because the Umbu teams I sent to help him took their own sweet time getting there. She glared at Kakashi, who was very pale, his hands clenching and unclenching in an effort to still the tremors. Shino exhaled sharply. It explains so much. Tsunade smiled. Yes, it does. Please, feel free to talk to your parents, your so-called elders, about their actions. Only 2 clans in Konoha supported my requests about Naruto, the Abarame and the Inyazuka. They are the only 2 that have my full confidence. Shino bowed his head. My clan knows what it's like to be disliked and feared for what we contain, to be seen as freaks. Shikamaru glared at his father. I don't see any logic in your actions and choices. In fact, I think it's completely illogical and messed up. If all of Konoha is like this, frankly, I think I want to be banished as well. Niji inhaled deeply. As much as I dislike Naruto's choice of a new village, I cannot help but agree with Shikamaru. He stared blankly ahead. I told him he could never understand the pain and burden of being cursed by a seal, by destiny, or fate, or some power he had no control over. How childish of me. What I've borne is but a fraction of what he's endured. Korone glanced at her clenched fist. She had not paid much attention to the Jinchuriki, considering him an irritant of no consequence. How wrong she was. Tears spilled as she realized just what Konoha had done. We've driven away the 4th son. Yes, you have, Tsunade agreed smugly. And now he has joined Kumo. If we are very lucky, none of us will ever face him on the battlefield because that boy doesn't know how to give up. She glanced at Suzuki, who paled and looked away. Sakura shook her head. We can't just leave it. He doesn't belong here. He belongs in Konoha. Her clenched fists shook. We should. She cried out as the Godame backhanded her former apprentice into the outer brick walls of the room, though not hard enough to create a hole through the wall. Sakura choked as Tsunade's strong hands gripped her throat and slammed the pink-haired Kunoichi against the wall. Listen to me, you bitch. Naruto is off limits. I said this to the council, and I say this to you and every Konoha shinobi in Kumo. If I find anyone authorizing missions involving Naruto, I will execute the one responsible. I do not care if it is a mission to assassinate him or to change his mind about Konoha. Any shinobi involved will not receive any medical treatment from Konoha medics, will be subject to 1 month in Umbu torture and interrogation, have his or her chakra vessel sealed for 2 months, and be subject to 6 months of D-class unpaid missions. Repeat offenders will be killed outright or have their vessels sealed permanently, and right now, you are tempting me to do just that. I have already enforced this law several times with the full support of the daimyo, so don't push me. The Hokage released the kunoichi, allowing the younger female to collapse to the floor on her but like a puppet whose strings had just been cut. Then she turned to glare at the wide-eyed audience. Stay away from Naruto. Do not approach him. Do not communicate with him. If he chooses to approach you, it's a different story. All of you have already done enough to him. Now leave him be. The angry Hokage stalked to the exit and literally tore the door off its hinges in her haste to get out. Shikamaru slowly shook his head. Shino, could you ask the clerk to send for a carpenter? The damages can be added to the bill. Then Suzuki spoke. We only have the Godame's word that Namikaze is Naruto. Shikamaru heaved an exasperated sigh. If you wish to lie to yourself, feel free. I, for one, am almost certain he is Naruto and that he has joined the ranks as a Kumo shinobi. He shook his head. The tactics used by the Kumo ninjas. It kind of explains things. What do you mean? Niji was interested. You've heard of Kumo's growing reputation, right? How their profile has been growing, and they've been receiving big merchant contracts. Everyone nodded. Naruto has friends everywhere, he's traveled all across the elemental countries with Jiraiya. Suzuki stilled. Tajuna named the bridge in Wave Country after him, the Great Naruto Bridge. And Princess Yuki in Snow Country. Those are the 2 big ones. Naruto probably has lots more contacts in different countries and towns, like Jiraiya. If they trust and like him, they trust and like Kumo. But what about Kumo's increased battle prowess? The new jutsu? Aka Arashi and Hanishin? Niji wanted to know. It could be a multi-pronged plan launched by the 4th raikage. Naruto leads the trade and economic growth while aka Arashi and Hanishin direct and lead field operations and other unknowns revamp training and R&D, Shikamaru explained. But we cannot do anything about Naruto. Frankly, I'm not interested in having my chakra vessel sealed, so I suggest we concentrate on aka Arashi and Hanishin. Everyone reluctantly nodded, though several individuals had their own private plans. The konoha contingent was very quiet as they watched the last remaining genin make their way out of the Badlands into the examiner's outpost, a barrack-style house where the jounin sensei and examiners waited. One of those examiners was a pregnant woman who was treated with great deference and respect. She was dressed in a thigh-long sky-blue maternity tunic over navy blue hakamas. Both garments were embroidered with tiny crescent moons and spiral swirls in silver thread. Like quite a few Kumo ninjas, she wore black combat boots and carried a naginata slung in a quick-release harness across her back. Her weapon pouches and kits were slung the opposite way across her front and over her belly. She wore her headband wrapped around her left bicep. Despite her heavy, gravid form, she moved with the grace and control of a trained fighter. It was surprising to see a kunoichi in her current state still on active duty as an examiner. As she moved, she drew masculine eyes and interest. From the back, there was no indication of her advanced condition, just her slim, shapely form. When she turned in profile, her elegant features were what drew the eye. Narrow, refined bones under porcelain pale skin, fine silky black hair twisted into an elegant knot secured by chopsticks and senbons, cool, liquid black eyes set under delicate arching brows. Hibara-sama, the last genin have been sighted. Teams from Konoha and IWA. Hibara inclined her head. Good. Make sure all the wounds are treated, and the scrolls verified. How many have passed so far? Her voice was low and throaty. 12 teams. 5 from Kumo, 1 from Konoha, 2 from IWA, 1 from Kusa, 1 from Mizu, 2 from Suna. Hibara raised a faint brow. I am surprised and impressed. Chakra sensing and tracking tend to be higher-level specialized skills. There's a knack to it, Hibara-sama. Once a few figured it out, the rest did as well. True. Once the cutoff has passed, call the genin and announce which teams will proceed to the next level. The next stage will take place in 2 weeks. With that, she walked out off the barracks overhang and toward a Kumo jounin who responded to her soft words. The pair walked off at a brisk but steady pace. Who is she? Niji wanted to know. The Kumo jounin examiner standing nearby glanced at the Hyaga and smirked. So Konoha was interested in Hibara-sama. Too bad for them. That is Hibara-sama. She is one of our best kunoichi. Niji glared at the smarmy Kumo shinobi. She is pregnant. You are allowing her to risk her health and child in a potentially dangerous environment? Toshino Iori laughed long and loud before he managed to speak between guffaws. No one tells Hibara-sama what to do. She is a force of nature. Besides, everyone in Kumo knows better than to attack her. If an outsider is fool enough. Iori shrugged. She would be the least of the idiot's concerns. Niji frowned but did not press. It was clear Hibara was one of these new Kumo elites. Hopefully, someone else would be able to find out more about her, perhaps from a civilian. Suzuki sighed as he made his way through Kumagakure's marketplace. The quality of glass and crystal sculpture was quite exceptional. He had spent part of the morning watching some retired Kumo shinobi use chakra control, wind and fire jutsus to shape the delicate, fragile materials into works of art. His senses spiked. Quick footwork took him out of the way, but he did not completely avoid the small form running into the back of his legs. The boy had tried to avoid him as well. The small form fell on his butt, practically bouncing from the impact. The small black head tilted back to meet Suzuki's eyes. Gomen Nasei, Shinobi-san. Suzuki froze as he looked into Sharinan eyes. 1 tomo spun in the left eye, 2 tomo in the right eye. The boy looked to be around 5 or 6 years old. No Uchiha had ever activated the Sharinan at such a young age. The boy stiffened, seeing the Konoha headband, and scrambled away on his butt. In a flash, he turned and scrambled to his feet and away. Then Suzuki realized what was happening. Stop! He chased after the surprisingly agile child. The brat was taking full advantage of his intimate familiarity with the alleys and narrow side roads. Wait! I just want to know your name. The boy did not listen but continued to dodge and run. Kaa-san! He cried, running straight to one of the workshops. Kaa-san! Suzuki almost froze from the spike of killing intent. He just barely managed to avoid being stabbed by a Kusarigama thrown by a very skilled, very fast ninja. The weapon was retracted by a sharp jerk on the chain where it was caught by a kunoichi who moved between him and the boy. Suzuki froze as he took in her features. Delicate Uchiha features, the almost triangular face, black eyes set under winged brows, silky black hair twisted into a knot secured by wooden chopsticks and steel senbons. He watched her shift to the balls of her feet, preparing to throw her weapon if he moved. Her face was cold, almost mask-like, as she studied him like she would a snake, a rabid predator. Suzuki forced his eyes to the boy, who was clinging to the pants of her navy blue hakamas. Then up. He nearly threw up when he absorbed what he hadn't seen from the start. She was pregnant, almost full-term, given the way the material of her tunic hugged her rounded bulge. Quickly, he retreated, holding his hands up. If she was Uchiha, if the boy was her son. Suzuki did not want to kill his own relatives over a misunderstanding. My name is Uchiha Suzuki. She tilted her head to one side. Yes, I know. Catching his surprised look, she smirked, a very familiar expression, an Uchiha smirk. Do you think we would not have dossiers on foreigners in Kumo? Suzuki focused on one detail. You are a Kumo kunoichi. She merely stared at him. Suzuki felt his hands shake and clenched them to still the tremors. Uchihas have always been konoha shinobi. She snorted. The bastard who sired me was an Uchiha. I am not. My husband is not. My son is not. We are Kumo citizens and ninja. Suzuki went still, a new possibility dawning on him. An Uchiha who'd had a fleeting romance with a commoner from outside the fire country, leaving a daughter who grew up without a father or clan. Most likely she was looked down on and scorned until some Kumo ninja recognized her latent Kekkei Genkai, sponsoring her entry into the local academy and ensuring she received the proper training. Something settled in him. Regardless of her upbringing, she was an Uchiha. She, her son, her children, they all possessed the Sharingan Kekkei Genkai. Your son will need training to master the Sharingan, he commented, his tone neutral. She scoffed, activating her own Sharingan. 3 tomos spun in each of her eyes. I will teach them, and their father will most definitely help. He is very good at developing techniques and training methods. We don't need you. We don't need Konoha. Suzuki recoiled from the absolute rejection. He was vaguely aware of several Kumo ninja closing in on them. Haibara-sama, is this Konohanin bothering you? The captain of the patrol squad eyed the ninja warily. The female Uchiha, Haibara, snorted and turned away, placing a hand on her son's shoulder, gently guiding him away. Not really, but Uchiha-san seems a little lost. Please make sure he gets back to his hostel safely. Of course, Suzuki didn't protest. If he started a fight, he and the Konoha group would likely be expelled from the Chunin exams. Besides, he had a name now. The entire group was frozen, shocked by the time Suzuki finished his report. The 5th Hokage was more than a little concerned. An unsanctioned relationship was understandable, but a child who was never brought in, visible proof that the Sharingan Kekkei Genkai was clearly outside Konoha's control. The council would throw a fit. Niji stared intently at Suzuki. You said her name is Haibara? Yes. Niji glanced at Shino. Haibara was the name of the kunoichi who gave orders to the 2nd stage examiners. She was also pregnant and matches your description, though she never activated the Sharingan around us, Niji explained. The Kumo nins respect her skills, even pregnant. They said anyone who attacked her would regret their foolishness, Shino murmured. Shikamaru frowned as he considered the new information. She's clearly one of these elites that Kumo has been deploying. He pinched the bridge of his nose. It explains how so many of our shinobi were slaughtered. They were up against a Sharingan mistress who was more than likely a prodigy. Korone looked at everyone. What are we going to do? We can't just let Kumo have the Sharingan Kekkei Genkai. Tsunade laughed harshly. Let them? They already have it. The only way to stop them is to assassinate Haibara and any children she might have. No! Suzuki's clenched fist slammed into the low coffee table. I won't let you. His own Sharingan activated and swirled into the Mangekyu. Tsunade met his eyes without any fear. That is what Konoha's council will want. That is what they will push for unless I get some support for what I want. Suzuki inhaled sharply. His eyes subsided into the 3-tomo Sharingan. I will not allow it. If I find out Konoha ordered the assassination of my only living relatives, I will defect. Kakashi coughed discreetly. Why don't one of the kunoichi here talk with Haibara-san? Perhaps she might be willing to consider migrating if given some incentives. Suzuki snorted. You didn't hear her, Kakashi. She hates Konoha. She'd rather spit on us than accept anything to do with us. Kakashi shrugged. Perhaps. But if we try, we might get a better idea of what makes her tick. If we know just who or what she hates about Konoha, we might be able to take steps. He trailed off knowingly. Everyone turned to Korone. The Genjutsu mistress stiffened then slumped at the expectant gazes. Oh, all right. I'll try talking with her. But I'll need some help tracking her. She looked around expectantly. Shino stirred. My kick eyes have her scent. They will be able to track her. Korone nodded slowly. Okay. We'll start tomorrow after breakfast. The rest of you work on digging up info on aka Arashi and Hanishin while training the genin. The 3rd exam is coming up. It's one-on-one fighting, and they'll need the practice. Korone frowned as she watched the pregnant woman negotiate with the craftsman. She was clearly commissioning some sort of weapon, given the items on display on the walls and under the glass counters. With practiced casualness, she strode into the store and studied the kunao on display. They were a little different, with tails of wire. Were they meant to be used in conjunction with a Raiten Jutsu? What can I do for you, Uehai-san? Korone carefully looked up into the neutral porcelain mask of the younger kunoichi. Korone felt a pang of longing. She missed her own son, an academy student who was under the guardianship of Amino Irika when she was away on missions. I was wondering if we could talk. Hibara raised an arched brow. Talk? I have little time to spare. If you wish, we can talk while I pick up my son. Grateful she hadn't been stonewalled, Korone followed the Kumo Kunoichi, with Shino trailing some distance behind. Korone tried to piece together what they had managed to find out about Hibara. Last name unknown. Husband unknown. Son unknown. Very private and violent when personal information was revealed without her consent. She completely terrified or awed most of her comrades. Only her husband and a few elites could match her. Even heavily pregnant, she could easily match the average jonin. She had a sadistic sense of humor and was relentless in the pursuit of her goals. Finally, Korone decided to take the first step. Why are you so against konoha? Because konoha is full of arrogant bigots that put too much emphasis on bloodlines and not enough on ability, Hibara answered quickly. Korone recoiled. That's not true. There are many ninjas who come from non-shinobi clans and have no kekei genkai. I studied hard to become a genjutsu expert. Hibara glanced at the older kunoichi with knowing eyes. Who are you trying to fool? Me or yourself? Konoha basically pigeonholes its shinobi from a very young age and never factors in growth unless it is truly exponential. You showed promise in genjutsu, so you were groomed for that field. You were never encouraged to expand your kenjutsu or ninjutsu beyond the basics. Even what you do practice is heavily laced with a genjutsu component. She tossed her head back. Here in Kumo, we feel differently. Korone considered the view an outsider would have. Specialization was necessary, but over-specialization could be lethal. Was that why Kumo was thrashing konoha in most of the past clashes? Because konoha ninjas weren't flexible enough to react to new situations? The genjutsu mistress bit her lip. Uzumaki Naruto was the master of unpredictability. If he were here he could change this konoichi's mind, just like he changed Tsunade-sama's mind about being Hokage, or Yuki-sama about becoming a leader, or the dozens of other people he'd met since he became a genin. But he wasn't, he never would be, because no one had the spine to stand up to the villagers, to defy the council, to support the Hokage. And now they were suffering, and it was entirely their own fault. But she had to try. For her village. Carefully, she decided to try a different tactic. Hibara-san, I'm not sure if you are aware of the Uchiha massacre. One shinobi was responsible for killing almost every Uchiha in Konoha. He is presumed dead, but you should know S-class ninjas are very hard to kill. He's already killed all but his brother. If he finds out about you and your children. Korone trailed off, and was shocked by the amused expression on Hibara's face. If you are talking about Uchiha Itaki, I have no concerns regarding him. We have had encounters and we understand each other. He wished to destroy the Uchiha clan of Konoha, not the Sharinan Kekei Genkai, Hibara explained mildly. Then her expression brightened. We are here. Korone followed the younger woman through a trade entrance to a crafter's shop. The narrow corridor wound past several furnaces and smithies and into the open air of an enclosed courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard was a massive stone block, a granite boulder created by a Doton Jutsu. Some distance away was an older man, a craftsman from his leather apron. He was kneeling next to a small boy in olive green shorts, black boots, and a cream t-shirt decorated with random navy blue spirals and crescent moons. The child was no more than 5, barely old enough to start in the academy, and he was testing the range of the fingerless fighting gloves made of spandex and reinforced by metal mesh. They were a custom job since very few children would require gloves that could take damage and channel chakra. Hibara smiled warmly. Ryuuki, have you tried your new gloves? The sweet chubby face brightened. Yes, Mom. I think I can do the new technique I was trying to develop with these gloves. Hibara nodded encouragingly. Why don't you show me? Even if it doesn't work, it might give you some new insight. Perhaps Dad might have some ideas. Ryuuki nodded determinedly and closed his eyes. When they opened, they were bloody red, the Sharinan active with 1 tomo in the left eye and 2 tomo in the right. Korone watched as the boy turned away to face the boulder. And then he concentrated, holding his hands at his sides, fingers slightly curled into claws. Chakra gathered around each hand, a faintly purple energy more concentrated toward the back of each finger than down toward each fingertip. Then the boy slashed, clawed at the air in front of him. 2 blades of purple energy formed and flew toward the boulder, slicing off big chunks where they impacted before dissipating. Korone gasped. Shino's eyes widened. The craftsman smiled proudly. Hibara frowned, a faint crease marring her brow. The pregnant kunoichi walked toward her son and placed one hand on his shoulder. Those chakra blades, they're not wind blades. It was a statement. The boy shook his head. No, it's my power shaped outside me. I got the idea after watching Yuji Toanti practice using Nibi's claws. Hibara chuckled. Do you think it's something others can do? Something you can teach? Ryuuki frowned. I don't know, he confessed. Takio-san had to make many pairs of gloves for me before we found the design of wire and mesh that worked. It might be different for everyone depending on their affinities and chakra capacities. Haibara nodded. But this is a good start. We will show your father your project. I hope you have been keeping good notes, she added sternly. The little boy looked offended. Mom, do you think I'm an amateur? I always keep notes. It's the first thing you and Dad taught me to do. Takio chuckled. He is right, Haibara-sama. He's kept a thorough record of all the past designs that didn't work, so we didn't duplicate any previous failures. I also have some ideas about different materials that might have more oomph for future production. Haibara tousled the boy's messy hair and drew him close to her leg. It was difficult to crouch in her advanced condition, but she never restrained herself from displaying her affections. It was something he had taught her. Korone watched the little boy hug his mother's leg tightly before reaching up to pat her rounded belly and stand on tiptoe to press his ear against the lower curve. Haibara looked at the konoha ninjas, all affection and warmth drained. This is my child, my son, and I will protect him. I will never trust Konoha with his safety because you will let him be used and abused with no consideration for his health or happiness. You've let it happen to so many of your prodigies and geniuses. I will never trust such unworthy, weak-spined, two-faced cowards to protect my child. Tell that to your Hokage. And most especially, tell that to your council. My family will never step foot in Konoha unless everyone who is over the age of 10 as of today is dead. Red bled into black as her Sharingan activated and trapped the two Konoha ninjas in a mild but difficult to dispel genjutsu. By the time Korone broke free from the illusion, mother and son had vanished. The only one in the courtyard was the craftsman Takio, who was cleaning the rock fragments around the test boulder. He smirked, seeing the Konoha ninjas return to the present. Haibara-sama has left with Ryuuka-kun. I guess she's had enough of you too. My advice, forget whatever plans you have. She really, really hates Konoha. Korone and Shino had no choice but to return to the hostel and make their report. She hates Konoha. I would strongly discourage any kidnapping scheme. She will come down like the wrath of the Shinigami on the one responsible. The streets will run with blood if she feels cornered, Korone advised bluntly. She is an elite kunoichi and a mother, and an angry woman does not forgive or forget. The males shuddered and nodded. Shikamaru heaved a deep breath. Bad news kept coming and coming. When would it end? Shikamaru had a nasty feeling it wouldn't. Niji was slightly disturbed. This boy, he is a prodigy, a genius. From what we heard, yes. He was the one who developed the theory, designed the gloves, tested different patterns. I think the wires are designed to channel the chakra in a particular manner, like hand seals, Shino murmured softly. And this is his latest project, Korone sighed. He has done enough that his parents have taught him how to keep proper records, and to take his ideas seriously enough to finance the development costs. Takio, the craftsman, was quite comfortable taking orders from a child. It's like he's done it before. Suzuki closed his eyes tightly. He's a genius. A jutsu developer. He uses the Sharingan to see how the chakra flows and make adjustments to get the effect he wants. Tsunade gulped her herbal tea, feeling very glad she had a supply of the special preparation. She was going to need the calming, soporific qualities. And they still didn't know who the new sixth raikage was. She caught Suzuki's eye. I don't know what we are going to do, Uchiha. If the boy is doing this on a whim with little formal training, imagine what he can do when he is older with the advice and training of masters. When the council finds out, and they will insist on kidnapping or killing Ryuuki. This is going to be a very costly and futile endeavor. His mother, and Kumo, will not take this lying down. Suzuki's expression was unexpectedly solemn. I know, fifth Hokage. I'm beginning to see. I only hope the new raikage will be someone the council will think twice before attacking. If he takes Ryuuki under his personal protection, it will make any Konoha assassination missions a very expensive proposition. Tsunade nodded slowly and smiled a more honest, warmer smile. You are correct, Suzuki. Before leaving Kumo, I will speak to the raikage and drop a few hints. Suzuki nodded and closed his eyes to stop the tears. His clan was not dead. The name might be lost, but the bloodline flourished, it remained strong and true. He only wished it was blooming in Konoha. Korone frowned as she watched the genin wait in the candidates section to be called. Unlike the Konoha third stage exam, the matchups had not been announced in advance. The genin had to be prepared for any opponent. Shino and Niji were down there with all the genin and the other jonin senseis. The fifth Hokage was in the special dignitary area with the other cages and daimyos. Korone looked at Shikamaru, who had just joined the Konoha group. Have you heard anything? Shikamaru shook his head. They're making small talk. The raikage is a cagey bastard. He's sitting tight on the information. Probably plans on making a big spectacle. They haven't even announced the matchups. Figured Shizun could keep track of things for the Hokage, so here I am. Have you heard anything? About the elites? Negative head shakes. No one is talking, and the civilians don't know the details. It's standard Black Ops practice to keep identities hidden. SHHH, Sakura hissed. The raikage is speaking. Omada Hiroshi couldn't help the gleeful smile splitting his face. Who is this successor you are so pleased about? Maroshi Izako, the Mizukage, voiced the question on everyone's mind. The fourth raikage smirked as he took a special note of Konoha's interest. Oh, I have every right to be happy with my choice of successor, Izako-san. He has a very high profile and skill level. In fact, some would say he outclasses the average Kage. And I would have to agree. Everyone blinked at that claim. Just be a little patient and you'll see what I mean. Tsunade frowned as she caught the nuances, the smug certainty. This sixth raikage was someone big, someone with impact. But who? Which of the new elites? The raikage stiffened. The third exam is starting. In the pit below, a door opened to allow a slim blonde man to emerge from the rooms built under the stadium seating. His long legs and slim hips were outlined by the durable material of slightly baggy gray cargo pants that vanished into the standard black combat boots most Kumo elites preferred. He wore a short-sleeved blue t-shirt that outlined the sculpted torso and broad shoulders with the Kumo Hitaiate around the left bicep. Tanned, toned arms were covered with intricate seals in yellow, lilac, red, blue, and brown from bicep to the backs of his wrists. Somehow everyone suspected there would be more tattoos underneath his clothing. His head was covered with messy, uneven bangs that reached his shoulders, blonde tresses that spiked around his face, framing the tanned, chiseled, undeniably masculine features. Long, straight brows were set above penetrating, almond-shaped blue eyes. A narrow aquiline nose, a wide, passionate mouth framed by a trio of faint white lines, a defined jawline, and a strongly cored throat. Namikaze-sama. The hushed whisper echoed and rebounded around the stadium, growing in intensity and volume. It's Namikaze-sama. Namikaze-sama. It's him. Oh Kami-sama. It is Namikaze Naruto. I can't believe he is the third examiner. The Konoha ninjas froze and watched the blonde wave his hand and smile. They watched and heard the adoration, admiration, and respect allocated to the one Konoha ninja. He hasn't taken any genin teams or apprentices. My brother is in the academy, and he's hoping to be his student. My cousin was on his second squadron a few years ago. Tuga tells me he is a god of destruction in the field. Absolute destruction with godlike stamina and control. Understandable since he's a Jinchuriki like Yujito-sama. Don't be an idiot. He's like that before he uses the tails. When he draws on the Baijuyu, nothing can stop him. Has he ever lost control? Not against allies. He always recognizes his team. I saw him go six tails once. He was antsy like any other berserker, but she calmed him down easily enough, knowing laughter. How could she not? She is his match, his wife, his mate. He has no idea how much I respect him for having the guts to bed and marry her. She is one cold bitch. The tone held nothing but respectful admiration. Not around him, a knowing leer. You haven't seen the two after they've finished a high-class mission. They don't bother waiting for a more secure base or with private rooms or tents. A rueful chuckle. Trust me, the two of them could stay up all night and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next day. Rueful envy and admiration. It is like having sex recharges them. Malice-tinged female laughter. Too bad most males don't have his endurance and stamina or technique. I hear you have trouble keeping it up for an hour, Aikatsu. A softer, wistful feminine sigh. I met one of his old friend. Dialogue from a manga. What? Really? Did she say anything else about him? Just that he completely ruined her for other guys. How'd you find out she was telling the truth? I asked around. Most of the people in town were used to seeing Lady Mariko with 2 or even 3 lovers, but during the time she was with Namikaze-senpai, she was completely monogamous. A few weeks after they parted ways, she went back to her old habits. A hesitant pause. You don't mean Misamato Mariko, do you? Of course I mean Misamato Mariko, you idiot. Why would I address any other Mariko as Sama? But she is one of Kumo's biggest clients. She controls several trade routes and owns merchant convoys and warehouses in every single elemental country, a much younger male squeaked. And she's really good looking for a woman her age, an admiring voice said. Her chest is nearly as big as the 5th Hokage, a slap upside the head. Don't be a sexist fool, Shiba. Lady Mariko did not get her current position and influence by simply being a pretty face. She had the drive, the ambition, and the resolve to go against much more experienced merchant barons when her husband died and her stepson killed himself in that racing incident. A more thoughtful male voice. She probably taught Namikaze-sama all he knows about bargaining and negotiations. I'm surprised they're still friends. Lady Mariko said she knew whatever they had was only temporary. He made it clear from the start that he had other goals than being a merchant baron and would eventually be moving on. Did she say anything else about him? Just that whichever woman managed to snag him would be one lucky woman. A chorus of feminine sighs. Too bad he's completely devoted to her. I don't understand how they got together in the first place, she's so cold. Have you ever seen the two of them together? It's like fire and ice. Naruto smiled as he absorbed the positive energy, the respect, and the adoration of Kumo things he had once craved from Konoha. He carefully kept his gaze from the Konoha contingent. He recognized them, but they were his past and of no concern for his future. He performed a quick, customized jutsu to amplify his voice and then spoke. Welcome to the third stage of Kumo's Chunin exams. I hope all our candidates are rested and ready, but before we proceed to the one-on-one matchups, there will be another culling. His warm, soothing voice became firm. Of all the genin teams that passed, only 2 from each team will be allowed to proceed. There was an immediate uproar of protest, but Naruto was quick to counter it. You might protest this, asking why we would allow you to reach this point only to deny you. I will give you the answer. Life isn't fair. You will accept missions where you must make a decision. If you're the captain, you'll have to choose which of your subordinates to sacrifice so the rest of the team can survive or complete the mission. If you're a Chunin, you might face the most difficult decision of your shinobi career. How willing are you to sacrifice yourself for your village? Are you willing to die? Risk capture or disgrace? Are you willing to pay the price so your team and your village benefit? These are difficult questions, things you must consider, things you will face. Today you are here to display your village's strength before allies, enemies, and potential clients. Future income depends on how impressive a show you make. If you are not certain of your skills, if you know you are the weakest on your team, are you willing to make the sacrifice? To step back and allow your teammates to shine? To get the attention? This is not a life or death match. There will be other Chunin exams, so choose. One genin from each team must give up. If the decision is not made in 5 minutes, the whole team is disqualified. Each cage stared at the young man, the third stage examiner, with new interest. He makes a very good point. Forcing the candidates to face and admit their fears and weaknesses. To pay the price required to climb the ranks, the Mizu cage murmured. The Tsukikage stared at the blonde with eyes full of admiration. And the way it was announced. The candidates are completely unprepared. The pressure placed on them will be enormous. They will be admitting their weaknesses before everyone. And the argument is being counterbalanced by the need for personal sacrifice. I know many jonin who have yet to learn that lesson. The Kaze cage smirked. Naruto is like that. Full of surprises and unexpected depths. The Kusa cage frowned, then glanced at the Hokage and the Tsukikage. Nami Kaze, any relation? He trailed off delicately, looking pointedly at the raikage, who smiled. His father could have knocked me over with a feather when the boy walked up to me and said he wanted to sign up. The raikage carefully looked at the Hokage and Fire Country's daimyos. Both were smiling bittersweet smiles. The Hokage stirred, her awareness sharpening. Naruto was always like that. Good at surprising people. She latched onto a certain bit of information. He is married. The raikage nodded. Yes. His wife is a Kumo kunoichi. The Hokage nodded slowly, taking in the information. Is it possible to meet him? The raikage smirked. Oh yes. Most definitely. But he will not be available until after the third stage is finished. He is the examiner. Sakura clenched her fist, nearly splintering the wooden rail. What does that idiot think he's doing? She snarled. He is testing them, Shikamaru countered mildly as he tapped the ashes off his cigarette. Sacrifices are necessary at times. Isn't it best the candidates find out if they are capable of handling the short end of the stick ahead of time? But you don't abandon your team, Sakura cried out. The jonin snorted and looked away from the pink-haired medic nin. All of them were used to taking the more risky missions where sacrifices were sometimes needed. Sometimes it was just a teammate's general well-being, because he got wounded playing bait, but sometimes it was permanent, to delay pursuers. Suzuki stared down at the pit. What have you been doing all this time, dope? What have you done to get so much admiration and prestige? Naruto waited and watched as the genin separated into quick huddle sessions. They did not let the shock slow them down too much. Now, would they be willing to accept the bitterness? To draw the short straw? They were. One by one, only 2 candidates stepped forward from each team. In most cases, it was 2 shinobi, sometimes a kunoichi and a shinobi. Naruto smiled gently and glanced to the side where the assistants were feeding the data into the system that would generate the electronic matchup. He studied each candidate quickly. They were nervous, wondering if they made the right call, but willing to accept the burden. That was a good sign. Congratulations to those who decided to step back and to those who have stepped forward. You have made a difficult call. It is simply one of many you will have to as you grow older and advance in each of your respective villages. Now each matchup will be generated electronically 5 minutes before the duel, so all candidates have to be present at all times. There will be 1 round completed today, 2 if we have time. The remaining matches will be fought tomorrow. If you feel you cannot proceed due to injury, you can concede. The rules are simple. Anything goes. The winner will be decided by knockout, concession, or when I say so. The matchups were generated. The genin were called down. The duels were fought. For the most part, it was a standard genin battle with the occasional flashy jutsu or kekai genkai being used. Naruto was a ruthlessly fair referee, quick to interfere before any permanent injuries resulted. As the morning and afternoon progressed, the genin were whittled down into the survivors who would proceed to the semis and finals. Their names were displayed on the flashing diode board *Nobuden Sakama of IWA *K8 Mitsuko of Konoha *Mamakai Wakashi of Mizu *Shimaru of Suna *Otama Kiyashi of Kumo *Rashid Azaraki of Kumo *Meisum Raiko of Kumo. Naruto nodded, satisfied by the names that remained. Tomorrow the semi-finals and finals will take place. Candidates who need healing, please proceed to the infirmary. If you have your own medic nin, please use their services. And then he vanished in a swirl of air and a column of blue-red sparks. Suzuki glared down at the stadium that was heavily damaged by the matches. Kumo had chosen not to do any repairs other than reinforcing structural damage. The candidates had been forced to use the rubble as part of their tactics, like they would have to in real life. Where did he go? It is of no concern to us, Abarame Shino spoke quietly. Only one of his students reached the semifinals and would be fighting the next day. Besides, we will be seeing him tomorrow. Besides, Mitsuko will be fighting, and I want to go over some strategy with her for tomorrow's fights. The next day, the visitors and shinobi and candidates and potential clients assembled in the stadium for the last day of the third stage. While they waited for the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, to make an appearance, the raikage surreptitiously patted the parcel wrapped in brown paper and secured by string that lay on his lap. I will be naming my successor before the matches begin. This is a little gift I've been meaning to give him. I think presenting it to him while announcing his new promotion would make it a memorable reminder. The stadium and the dignitaries waited and watched. At the stroke of 10, the examiner, Namikaze Naruto, arrived in a swirl of sparks. The raikage nodded to the bolt operative who rang the gong for silence. Everyone in the stadium turned to the box where the kage and daimyo sat. The raikage waited until he was certain he had their attention before speaking. As most of us know, I am an old man. I took up this position when my successor died. I kept at it because I couldn't find someone I could see as the sixth raikage. That is, until now. He has been tested and ratified by his peers and Kumo's council. His candidacy was accepted without hesitation by Lightning Country's daimyo. He is a relative newcomer to Kumo, but what he has accomplished is near miraculous. After several years as a bolt operative, he is ready to leave field duty behind and accept this new responsibility to be raikage. Kumo, I will be stepping down by the end of this week, so I present to you your new sixth raikage, Namikaze Naruto. The stadium erupted into spontaneous cheers and whoops and screams of encouragement and support. Out of the roar emerged the chant, Namikaze, 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 Namikaze. Every single cage but 3 watched near shell-shocked as the new sixth raikage, the third stage examiner, bowed and waved his hands, accepting the support and tribute. Hiroshi waited for a slight lull before speaking. Most of you know Naruto as a jonin comrade, a diplomat with many allies outside our borders, a skilled contract negotiator, a teacher to many aspiring young nin, and a counselor to quite a few of our academy students in genin. Now that he has left Bolt, I have no concerns with revealing his other aspects. With those enigmatic words, he tossed the brown paper-wrapped package in an arc across the stadium. The blonde leapt in the air to catch the package. A no-seal's wind blade cut the strings, allowing the package to be unwrapped. He pulled out a handful of cream-colored material, dropping the paper and string to the floor. A garment of some kind. And then he laughed long and hard, a joyful sound. He grabbed the material in both hands and swung it to put it on, a coat of some kind. A knee-length sleeveless garment designed to be worn open with no buttons to close it. A strong breeze filled the stadium, causing the materials of the long skirts to billow and ruffle his hair. His very appearance struck a chord in the hearts of those who remembered, those who had met the fourth Hokage. It was like seeing Namikaze Minato all over again, like he never died more than 25 years ago. In kanji on the left front panel were the symbols for sixth and raikage embroidered in deep purple. On the right front panel were other symbols, a blue crescent moon wrapped around an orange swirl that resembled a whirlpool, and below in black was the silhouette of a nine-tailed fox. And then he turned so everyone in the audience could see the bigger design on his back. Embroidered in crimson silk thread were the symbols for storm. Shikamaru gaped, his cigarette falling from his open mouth. aka Arashi. Suzuki stared through Sherry-non eyes. Envy, jealousy, and regret burned his soul. Sakura shook her head. It can't be. It must be some kind of trick. It isn't, Shino countered. His eyes did not move from the spectacle. Inakai turned purple as the full implications of everything hit him. Shikako popped 2 antacids and took a deep swig from a hip flask before handing it to his old teammate, who downed half of the remainder. A lone tear trailed from Kakashi's uncovered eye. He looks like Minato, doesn't he? Everyone turned to stare at the smirking Gama-sunin who had somehow snuck up on the Konoha group. What? Did you think I'd miss seeing my second apprentice become a kage? He smirked even wider and sipped sake from his own hip flask. The Sunin smiled slowly as he settled his eyes on his student, his greatest achievement other than Ika Paradise. The brat was damn troublesome, just like his father, but he was most definitely worth it. He will make an excellent raikage since his birth village is filled with bigots, cowards, fools, and incompetents. I'm definitely thinking of settling here on a more permanent basis. Kumo is a bit cold, but the women here are more receptive to a little flirting and wordplay. His eyes glazed. Those Chunin twins made me pass out with just words and a little skin. Unfortunately, they also stole my wallet to teach me a lesson. It inspired me to shift my perspective for my next book. A she-thief who specializes in one-of-a-kind collectibles. He smirked at the males. The first release will be in Kumo, followed by Iwa and Suna. Then he walked away to join a group of pretty Kumo civilian women. Naruto smiled as the cheers died down, but the positive energy remained. He could feel the thrill, the barely restrained eagerness, and it charged him. A fierce smile split his face before he began speaking. Thank you, Kumo, for welcoming me, for accepting me, for supporting me. Hiroshige-san, you remind me of another kage, one who has been dead for a long time now, but for the longest time, he was the closest thing I had to family. For years I fought to make him proud, to live by the principles he held so high. It did not work because the people around me did not feel the same way. But here in Kumo, here I can see the will of fire. And it inspires me. The crowd swelled and cheered in response, in affirmative. Naruto looked at the awestruck Kumo genin, the three who had made the cut to reach the semis of the third stage. In each of you three and all other Kumo nin, I see a little bit of myself. The determination and drive to excel and be the best you can be. I have never been a Jonin sensei, and I doubt if I ever will with the duties of being raikage, but it does not stop me from teaching and learning. In the years to come, do not rest on your laurels. Intrigue me. Inspire me. Awe me. If I can see the spark within, I will help you. If you specialize in something I don't, I will find those that can teach you. If Kumo has no specialists, I will look for them among our new allies, Suna and Iwa. If it is truly esoteric and long forgotten, Kumo will support your quest of self-improvement. If you can make a good case, R&D or Bolt will finance your research and travels. I will not let your desire for more to go unfulfilled. Those who want to learn will have avenues that are usually only available to the wealthy or shinobi clans. Hiroshi smiled proudly, puffing on his pipe. Tsunade smiled a bittersweet smile. Naruto wanted to be Hokage so badly. He was the one who convinced me to accept the job as a fill-in. I truly hoped that one day he would be the sixth. I never considered the possibility he would be the sixth raikage. She chuckled softly. Hiroshi shrugged. Life is like that. Konoha's loss is Kumo's gain. His eyes were steely. We have no plans to invade Konoha, but we will retaliate if attacked. Put a leash on your council, Tsunade. If they go behind your back, we will not be responsible for the inevitable deaths. Naruto is very much his father's son. He will not hesitate to protect his village, which is Kumo. Tsunade nodded slowly. I see your point. I will remind the council of the foolishness in attacking a major village allied with two other major villages. Gaara snorted softly. Get your evacuation plans up to date, Tsunade-san. I can say with almost certainty that some idiot in Konoha will go half-cocked and spark a conflict. Tsunade bit her lip and did not say anything. She had the feeling the Kaze Kage was right. She turned her attention to Naruto, who was still speaking. She could see the charisma he had, the qualities of his father. Minato could make his team follow him into hell. Naruto must have that same knack to have won the love of an entire village and charmed Iwa into signing a treaty negotiated by the son of the man responsible for them losing the Konoha Iwa war. Naruto smiled softly, seeing the slightly frightened looks of the non-Kumo candidates. He looked up. The sky was cloudy, thunderheads building, traditional Kumo weather. He smiled more encouragingly at them. Tell you what, since you most likely aren't very good at fighting in this kind of weather, I'll give you a handicap. He grinned at the downcast faces of the Kumo genin who had clear plans to use the weather. You cannot always expect cloudy weather conditions that best suit your fighting styles, so suck it up, Kiyoshi, Zaraki, Raiko. This is the mantra of bolt, adapt, improvise, overcome. Mamakai Wakashi frowned and stared at the examiner, the new raikage. I don't see what you can do about the weather, Namikaze-sama. No one has enough chakra to move so much air and change weather systems. The examiner just lifted an admonishing finger. But you are mistaken, Mamakai-san. You are assuming I will be moving the clouds. I won't. He tilted his head back to stare at the sky, his hands loose at his sides. Then he raised them above his head in a faintly cup-like formation. The yellow, purple, and red tattoos on his arm began to flare and glow and burn almost white. Chakra formed a haze around his frame, concentrated in his hands. And then he spoke the name. Namikaze's secret technique, Lightning Wind Phoenix. The blast of raw power left his hand and gained the form of a huge phoenix with wings that trailed fire and lightning. The moment the apparition hit the clouds, it dispelled in a flare of chakra, lightning, fire, and wind that ripped through the clouds, literally vaporizing them. A fine drizzle hit the stadium. The sun shone brightly, creating a rainbow that arched over Kumo. The entire stadium watched this display of casual control and power, dumbstruck. Then the examiner smirked at Mamakai Wakashi, whose jaw was gaping. Satisfied? The clouds will not reform for at least a few hours, long enough for the duels to be fought and won. Besides, being from Mizu, you'll have an advantage with all the moisture in the air and on the ground. Wakashi's head bobbed, utterly stunned. The examiner smiled, pleased with the commotion he'd caused. Excellent. I expect a relative of Mamakai Zabuza will make a good showing. He was one of the first shinobis I faced in battle and one of the few role models I had as a genin. He and his student taught me that being a shinobi requires immense sacrifices. He glanced at the spinning display of the electronic match-up. It slowed, then settled, to display two names. All right folks. First match, Shimaru of Suna vs Rashinta Zakari. Korone's hands trembled. She could still feel the aftermath, the chakra burn created by such a large-scale technique. She always had a very sharp chakra sense, and years studying genjutsu had only refined it. Forcing down the reflexive terror, she looked to her companions. Suzuki? Kakashi? Did you see anything? Suzuki shook his head, deactivating his Sharingan. It was a no-hand seals technique like Rasengan. His chakra seemed strangely concentrated around those tattoos on his arms. It is probably part of the jutsu, Shikaku surmised. I've known Umbu who get a Fuinjutsu master to seal the skeleton of a favorite jutsu, so they don't have to do the complete chain of hand seals and lose time. But I've never seen that technique used for something that is clearly an A or S class ninjutsu. Sakura frowned, looking at Kakashi. You can store a jutsu using Fuinjutsu. That is one of the pinnacles of Fuinjutsu, Sakura. But it is a very dangerous and intricate field of study. Many shinobis have died trying to complete their seal mastery. I only know pieces I picked up from my Jounin sensei. Jiraiya is probably Konoha's only living expert, and it is very doubtful he would be willing to study and duplicate such techniques for us. Suzuki nodded sharply. He had first-hand knowledge of just how dangerous Fuinjutsu could be. His psyche had been twisted and shaped by Orochimaru via the curse seal. Shikamaru shook his head slowly. Naruto was always good at making up his own jutsus, even the really weird, perverted ones. That jutsu is probably only one of many more destructive ones he has. Jutsus he used in the field as aka Arashi. A cold chill ran down all their spines as each of them remembered just how many deaths had been attributed to aka Arashi. But if Naruto was the storm, who was the flower? Tsunade watched with fond pride as Naruto kept a firm hand on hot tempers, interfering before any more permanent damage was inflicted. He was an impartial judge, not favoring one genin over the other. At the end of each duel, he gave a brief critique, highlighting strengths and weaknesses for the genins, things they would have to work on, even those from villages outside the Iwa Kumosuna alliance. Shimaru of Suna vs Rashinta Zaraki of Kumo. Winner Shimaru. Mamakai Wakashi of Mizu vs Otama Kiyoshi of Kumo. Winner Kiyoshi. Then her blood ran cold at the next matchup. Heiate Mitsuko of Konoha vs Nobuden Sakama of Iwa. The Konoha Kunoichi was outclassed by the Iwa genin given his previous displays of skill and strength. His Kekkei Genkai increased his skin density, making it nearly impossible to injure him with an edged weapon, which was her specialty. She glanced at Dakin, looking for some reassurance, and her heart sank. The Tsukikage was frowning and leaning forward slightly. What is it? The Hokage wanted to know. Dakin looked at the Godame levelly. Sakama's entire clan was nearly wiped out by a Konoha assassin who managed to poison the water and food supply. More of them died on the front lines against the Yondaime, thanks to the idiocy of my predecessor. It has been very difficult for him to adjust. It doesn't help with his still living relatives shaping his opinion and views about vengeance in Konoha. He is one of our best. Rookie of his graduating year. He chose not to advance in the last two exams in order to focus on his private training regime. He'd participate so his teammates could have the chance to advance and then forfeit. Tsunade turned her attention to the pit and prayed she wouldn't have to fight for the life of a Konoha genin in surgery. Enough! Sakama struggled to break free from the iron grip around his wrist and failed. He turned and glared at the one preventing him from killing his target. Almond blue eyes were calm, almost understanding, but the grip remained firm. Konoha destroyed my clan, he hissed. And they destroyed my childhood, the blonde agreed in even tones. They beat and hurt me with words and weapons. I was thrown out of the orphanage for the sin of being a living reminder. Konoha has done terrible things against your village and perhaps your loved ones, but that doesn't give you the right to lose control. You are not the only one to survive terrible loss, and Kami knows you won't be the last. As long as there are humans, there will be wars and death and survivors. Blue eyes were glacial, laced with the subtle killing intent of an experienced nin. Sakuma couldn't help but stare and listen to this Jounin no, this Kage, the son of the man who nearly decimated IWA. They are hypocritical trash, but that doesn't mean you should lower yourself to their level and kill all those you fear and hate. You want to rub their faces in their incompetence. You want to show them just how weak they are. You want them to live in fear, terrified of shadows and the dark. You want them to know you held their lives in your hand, but it wasn't worth the effort, not when you aren't getting paid to kill. Sakuma relaxed minutely, almost hypnotized by the flowing cadence and logic. Don't you hate them? For what they did to you? How did you bear it? He wanted to know. He wanted to know just how this shinobi did it. The blonde smiled gently and released his hold. I had a few people I cared for, those who cared for me. They gave me purpose as a child. When I grew older, I found I needed more, things they could not give me, things others refused to give me, so I left. His eyes became more solemn. Remember, every nin you kill also has family, people who love him or her, a spouse, a parent, a child. When you kill them, you hurt others just like your own clan was hurt. Kill, but do it because you need to, not for petty vengeance. Remember, you are a shinobi, not a murderer. We kill only in the line of duty, in defense of our village and kin, not out of some petty, destructive emotion like vengeance or hatred that will consume you. You are better than that. Sakuma nodded slowly and blinked back tears as the large hand gripped his shoulder in a display of affection. Shusha, Nobuden Sakuma. The large hand patted his back. Get going. Your team and sensei are waiting for you. An encouraging shove sent the IWA genin on his way toward his team and sensei with a fresh new perspective and a new idol. Heiate Mitsuko cringed, waiting for the final blow. Her ears were ringing, she was certain she had fractures in her forearms from blocking the impact of the IWA genin's blows, but it never came. She could no longer see the red spots through her eyelids. The sun was blocked. Gingerly, she opened her eyes and peered up. A tall blonde Kami was standing over her. The light created a halo around the spiky mess of golden hair. The cream coat flapped around his braced legs as he stretched out a hand to her. She blinked slowly. He was beautiful. Blue eyes slanted under straight brows, the narrow straight nose, absolutely masculine features, the intriguing faint white lines around his mouth. He reminded her of someone. Am I dead? She asked faintly. He looked amused. Why do you ask? Because I must be in heaven. You look like the Yondaime Hokage. He blinked. I think you might have a concussion, Heiate-san. Let's get you to the medics. Carefully, he helped her to her feet, but she stumbled. Her ankle had twisted in the unbalanced fall. He made a sking sound and carefully slipped one arm behind her shoulders and another behind her knees to carry her bridal style, ignoring her protests. Hush now, Heiate-san. Once the medics agree, you can walk on your own 2 feet. Mitsuko frowned and protested. I still think I'm in heaven. You look just like the carving of the Yondaime on the Hokage monument. He chuckled, a low, rich sound. That is because he is a relative. Mitsuko blinked. If he is a relative, then what are you doing in Kumo? You should be in Konoha. He was quiet, though he continued to walk. Why don't you ask your sensei that question, Heiate-san? If he cannot answer, feel free to talk to your parents, any jounin, even the clan heads and the counselors in Konoha. Mitsuko frowned but nodded. A few seconds later, they were at the edge of the dueling grounds, where Shino-sensei was waiting. Mitsuko did not protest as her sensei took her from the Natyondaime. He had often carried her home after a hard training session. Vaguely, she heard the Natyondaime talk to Shino-sensei. Naruto nodded at Shino. He wasn't sure what to say to the Abarame. His clan was one of the few who supported his jounin application, though they had little influence to push it through. Shino nodded in response. Naruto, how is she? A mild concussion. She isn't quite certain of her surroundings. She should sleep it off just fine. Shino frowned faintly before speaking. You left Konoha. Naruto raised a faint, ironic brow. If you were in my shoes, would you have stayed? True. I would have smuggled myself into a merchant caravan to get out of Konoha as soon as I was old enough, Shino admitted. Naruto snorted. Oh, I tried that often enough, but the Umbu always found me. Both nin stared at Mitsuko, who stirred in her sensei's arms and blinked slowly. Shino-sensei? Yes, Mitsuko? Why is Yondaime-sama's relative not in Konoha? Shino stiffened and looked at Naruto, who explained. I think she is a little out of it. She thought she was in heaven and I was the Yondaime. But you look so much like him. Mitsuko protested. Just like the pictures. Naruto grinned, a feral, expectant expression. I told her to ask you, and her parents, and any shinobi, including the clan elders. With that little bombshell, he he turned on one foot and strode off, cream coat flapping, the kanji for storm almost afire on his broad back. Shino, what did he say? Shino turned to look at Kurane. Sakura was already standing in front of him, quickly running a diagnostic and healing Mitsuko. He didn't say anything, Shino said finally. Just that Mitsuko probably has a concussion. He struggled briefly. Mitsuko thought he was the yandame. She said he looked so much like the yandame and wanted to know why he wasn't living in Konoha. Naruto told her to ask me, and everyone else in Konoha. The Jounins looked at the genin, who was out of it, having been sedated by Sakura. She is going to want to know, Kurane surmised grimly. The more we refuse to answer, the more she will want to know. If we lie, the Godame will find out, and she will blow up. Niji shook his head. There have been enough lies. Too many, in fact. It is time the council and everyone responsible admit their sins and make reparations. Shikamaru sighed. Why don't we just table this for now? There are still 2 more matches to watch. Naruto grinned, he was practically bouncing on his feet. The 3rd stage was done. Officially, the winner was Kiyoshi, but there had been very little leeway. It could have just as easily gone to Sakuma. He had already prepared and handed in his recommendations regarding all the candidates. All he had left was to do the polite small talk and a quick circuit, then he was free. At least until the end of the week and his official inauguration. He had time to spare since he had largely handed over his old responsibilities and Hiroshi insisted on handling the ceremonial details. Naruto, there are people who want to meet you. Naruto stomped on Chibi Naruto, who wanted to throw a tantrum and dutifully made his way over to Hiroshi. He would have to do this a lot more in the future, and it was best he got used to it. Hiroshi was surrounded by the visiting kages and daimyos. Carefully, Naruto did the usual greetings and polite small talk, moving around the circle until he came to a particular trio of familiar faces. A more natural, open smile broke out. Hello, Bah-chan, and quickly dodged Tsunade's fists. What did you call me? Tsunade couldn't help the relief that flooded her system at the familiar nickname. Naruto grinned. Bah-chan. Because that's what you are, he teased, dodging her wild swings until she finally gave up and stopped, but Naruto kept a careful distance before turning his attention to the other 2. Shizune-chan. A quick, brief hug to the lightly blushing medic nin. Ero-sensei. A more taunting greeting for Jiraiya. You are never going to stop calling me that, are you? It was more of a statement from the exasperated Gama-sunin. Naruto considered the words and smiled cheerfully. Nope. You'll always be Ero-sensei. Or Ero-senin. Or, just stop it, Gaki. When you stop your research, Naruto countered, which will be never since you have no self-control. He grinned at all the cages. If you aren't very familiar, Jiraiya writes a particular series of popular literature. If any of you are Ika fans, get him to autograph your copies. The male cages and nobility looked at the Sunin, who was grumbling. Each and every one of them were closet fans of Ika Paradise. Each made private resolutions to get their volumes autographed by the author before leaving Kumo. Jiraiya was torn between laughter and horror at the brat. You know I was planning on giving you a pre-release copy of my newest book. Naruto shrugged. If you don't, I'll buy it like everyone else. Tsunade was horrified. Naruto. Naruto refused to flinch. Bah-chan, 95% of all heterosexual males read Ero-senin's books, even if they don't admit it. Hell, I blackmailed Saname Gigi often enough when I was little by using his copies as hostage material. Everyone choked at that tidbit of information. The revered shinobi known as the Professor, the longest reigning Hokage, read smut and had been blackmailed by a child who probably threatened to destroy it. Tsunade heaved an exasperated sigh. Naruto was destroying Sarutobi-sensei's mystique, his reputation. But then again, he was a dirty old man and a pervert, just like most other males. Then something struck her. Naruto, when did you start reading Jiraiya's books? Naruto pursed his lips, trying to recall the details. He managed to corrupt me during my second training trip. When things were slow, I'd critique and edit his material for him. I stopped shortly before I left Konoha. After, I was too busy. All the males blinked at that bit of information. That explained why there had been quite a few new Ika books in a 3-year period about 10 to 12 years back. After that, Ika books were published between longer intervals. But I thought you hated perverts. Tsunade was aghast. Her beloved little brother had been corrupted by her old teammate. Naruto smiled softly at the closest thing he had to a grandmother. Bah-chan, all guys are perverts. I think it is something genetic to make sure the human race doesn't go extinct. I am more honest about it, and I definitely don't chase every single female out there. One is enough for me, and she is my wife. The books are a bit of spice for our private time. Tsunade brightened at that confession. Jiraiya snickered. I don't know why you read my books for inspiration when you have definitely been the source of my inspiration. Naruto glowered. I swear, Ero-sensei, you have no idea how lucky you are to still have your balls. If she succeeded in tracking you down after she caught you spying on us, he trailed off ominously. Jiraiya tittered. Tee-hee-hee. You forget, Naruto, I am a Sunin, an expert at espionage and escape. And she is an S-class kunoichi on the trail of a self-proclaimed super pervert and writer of porn who peeked on her during an intimate encounter for the sole purpose of getting inspiration for his next book, Naruto replied deadpan. The male shinobis, with one exception, shuddered as one. But you distracted her just fine, my deshi, Jiraiya giggled perversely. Naruto shook his head and looked at Tsunade. Just keep an eye on him, Bah-chan. She might have put it behind her, but not if he continues to act like this. Hiroshi looked peculiarly at his successor. Do you mean to tell me Jiraiya actually used you in his books? Naruto shrugged, a fluid movement. Yeah, but I'm not telling you which ones. Tsunade looked intrigued. Naruto, is it possible to meet your wife? The blonde's head perked. She isn't here yet. Probably running late. Tell me a little about her, Tsunade urged. Naruto's expression softened, a warm glow filling his being. She is mine, Bah-chan. She completes me in a way I've never felt before. With her, I feel I can do anything. She doesn't hit me or ignore me like Sakura. She doesn't follow public opinion like most women in Konoha. She would never blindly obey orders from someone higher in the command chain like Hinata. She is iron-willed enough to create and follow her own path. She is strong, in heart, mind, body, and soul. With her by my side, I know I can do anything. And you have, Hiroshi chuckled softly. He caught Tsunade's eye. His wife is also his old field partner. Understanding dawned. Hanashin. Hiroshi hummed his assent. Aka Arashi and Hanashin. Hammer and scalpel. Power and elegance. The perfect team. On and off the field. The Mizukage looked intrigued. Is it possible to meet her? Naruto's head perked. She'll be here in 15 minutes. He smiled at Hiroshi. She is doing a circuit and moving in slowly. Several Konoha jounins froze from their spot behind a screen of potted plants. The old adage, eavesdroppers hear nothing good about themselves, was definitely true. Sakura bit her lip, trying to hold back her tears. She couldn't protest that it was a lie, because it was the truth. She had constantly hit and screamed at Naruto throughout their years as a genin squad and even afterward. Sasuke was curious if she was as strong as Naruto had described, as the reports and analyses had speculated. He wanted to know so much. Did Naruto restrain himself when they were genin, Chunin, after Sasuke came back to Konoha? How much power and skill did he truly possess to be so openly sought as caged to a village he was not born into? Sasuke had heard of Aka Arashi like most shinobi, but he had never seen him in person, only the aftermath of his battlefields. What kind of jutsu had Naruto created to cause such devastation? Neji shook his head, saddened by the grim truth about his cousin. She had admired and claimed to love Naruto, but in the end, she caved to the demands of the clan she had wanted to change. And nothing had changed. Perhaps if she had stayed true to her feelings, things would have been different for the better, for everyone. But now it was too late, that opportunity was gone. Shikamaru wondered if Naruto's wife, Hanashin, was as much of a pain as Ino and Temari. All women were. But then again, Naruto was the type to enjoy chaos. After all, he had created plenty of it when they were younger. Shino was certain more bombshells were on the way. There always were when Naruto was around. He wondered if Naruto's wife shared some of his abilities. Abaramis and Inyazukas could transfer a skill or a piece of their power to a truly compatible spouse from outside the clan. Did Naruto have such a bond with the person he had chosen? Korone struggled to formulate a response to refute the accusation that Konoha's women were weak-willed and had failed. All of them gave in to public opinion. The only females who had stood by Naruto were perhaps the Godame, her assistant, and Ichiraku Ayame, the ramen shop owner's daughter. Kakashi wanted to both laugh and cry. The student he had overlooked, the son of his sensei and the fourth Hokage, had earned the respect of an entire village to be named Kage. He had created his own legacy in the shinobi world by inventing unique techniques that had earned him the title of Aka Arashi. And Jiraiya had used him and his wife as inspiration. Kakashi made a decision to read his old volumes and find out which ones the Sunin had used Naruto and his wife in. Inukai wondered what kind of woman would marry a Jinchuriki. What kind of woman would be willing to trust a Jinchuriki in the heat of passion? Did she desire the status and power he had amassed, or did she genuinely care for him? It would not be easy to live a lie and maintain that facade around someone with the preternatural senses and abilities of a Baijuyu. Shikako considered the possibility of using Naruto's wife and then dismissed the thought. A kunoichi as famous as Hanashin would be ruthless in dealing with any assassins or attempts at blackmail. Naruto turned to the screen of greenery and spoke in a louder voice. Hokage-sama, I believe I need to be clear about Kumo's future relationship with Konoha. It would be helpful to have those who can each make independent reports to Konoha's council so there are no misunderstandings. Please ask your ninja to come forward and listen to me. His blue eyes were icy as he watched his former friends, comrades, and supposed sensei step out from the foliage. He refused to let compassion soften his words or weaken his resolve. You will return to Konoha and deliver your reports so there is no confusion. Kumo will never ally with Konoha. We will not sign any neutrality or trade treaties with Konoha. Our only interaction will be when our shinobi are on opposing sides during a mission or the Chuyunin exams. Tell your council that if Konoha dares to attack Kumo, we will retaliate with full force. I accepted and tolerated your scorn, hatred, and attacks when it was just me involved, but now I am no longer alone. I have a family and a village full of shinobi and civilians to protect. I will not tolerate anyone who threatens me and mine. If you send one assassin, I will send 5. If your Umbu take out 1 Kumo patrol, I will order my shinobi to wipe out 5 of your patrols. Any attempts at espionage and infiltration will not be tolerated. Do not expect us to return the corpses. If you want to manipulate other villages against Kumo, feel free. If you can. His blue eyes were coldly amused. The tactics of the Saname Hokage are widely known today, and none of the fools in Konoha have the intelligence or subtlety to carry out a similar misinformation strategy on the necessary grand scale. The Jonin recoiled, with a few exceptions, Shikamaru, Niji, and Shino, who had openly accepted their part in the whole mess. Shikamaru waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about the council. The daimyo is angry enough with them. He's already cut a lot of their funding, and Tsunade-sama has passed the debt on by slashing a lot of their pet projects and private campaigns. He smirked. Good work on NE. Naruto smiled, a fraction warmer. Thank you, Shikamaru. The shogi lessons and strategy games Ero-Senin insisted on kind of grew on me. I had hoped to play a few games with you but could never get in touch. Shikamaru froze. It had been a busy period in his life. He had received his Jonin rank and been pushed into field duty by his usually laid-back father. He had barely had the time or energy to keep in touch with his friends. It had been too easy to put it off. Naruto smirked. Shikamaru was connecting the dots. The usually calm strategist was now glaring at his cringing father. Niji bowed his head. I feel I must apologize for Hinata-sama. Naruto shook his head. Never apologize for someone else. It is something they should do, it isn't something to be delegated. Hinata made her choice. She chose her clan. I still don't think it was the best decision she could have made. Shino sighed and nodded in agreement. For a while, it seemed she had made up with her father and passed the Jonin exam, but it was for nothing. A few years after you left, her sister was declared the heiress. Tsunade-sama refused to let the elders use the caged bird seal since she was too old. She's trained as a medic nin but never takes assignments outside Konoha. Naruto snorted. Figures. He shook his head. Clans like that are control freaks. They'd rather break their children than risk changing the status quo. If the Uchihas originated from the Hyuga, it's no wonder Itake rebelled. Suzuki stiffened. Itaki was a madman. Itaki had a very good reason, Naruto countered mildly. You're just trying to cause trouble. Like you always do, Sakura accused wildly. Everyone stared at the new raikage. What do you mean? Tsunade asked hesitantly, looking at Jiraiya, who pointedly looked away. A sinking feeling filled her gut. Jiraiya knew about it, and he had not told her. Probably because Naruto had asked him not to. What other secrets, little bombshells, had Jiraiya kept quiet about? Naruto hesitated before he replied. His eyes were level with Suzuki's. I'm not lying here. I'm only telling you what I've been told. Your clan elders, they did things, to Itaki. Everyone stiffened. Uchiha Itaki was a prodigy. Was it because of an illegal experiment? Something based on Orochimaru's philosophies? Naruto chewed on his lower lip. I met Itaki a few years after I left Konoha, and we talked a bit. I don't know the full details about the mess, but honestly, it makes me very happy the Raikage has more freedom to interfere in clan matters than the Hokage. His blue eyes were open. You can choose to disbelieve me, but as far as I'm concerned, your clan got what was coming to them. The way Itake chose to accomplish that was unfortunate, killing everyone, including the civilians, and torturing you psychologically. I would have settled for killing the elders and adult ninja, blinding all the adults, and sealing the chakra vessels of every single Uchiha. He smiled faintly. In another world and another time, we would have been the best of friends, brothers. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. Tsunade frowned. Can you give us any details, Naruto? Naruto snorted. If you want proof, go digging for it yourself. There should be records in the Uchiha district and the Umbu archives. What Itake told me was strictly in confidence, and I will not betray that trust. You are not my cage, and I owe you nothing. Tsunade stopped her recoil and nodded. What he said was the honest truth. Naruto closed his eyes briefly. If you find out what I'm talking about, feel free to visit Kumo. Depending on my mood, we may or may not talk. Then he turned to his old Jonin sensei. Kakashi, I have nothing to say to you. You are less than scum to me. He snorted. See underneath the underneath. Never abandon your comrades. Too bad you never follow your own advice. The copynin took the verbal blows stoically. It was what he deserved. He had betrayed his teacher, his own ideals, his students. Naruto glanced at Sakura, feeling completely indifferent toward the pink-haired kunoichi. It was hard to believe he had once been so desperately in love with her. His head tilted to one side as he studied the fidgeting kunoichi. Harano Sakura, I have no idea what I ever saw in you. I'd say you're a bitch, but you don't even have a bitch's loyalty. Except when it concerns your beloved Suzuki-kun, he mimed in a high-pitched falsetto. He ignored her flinch and fresh tears and Korone's stilted motion to comfort the younger woman. You know what? You should apply for a seat on Konoha's council, because you are definitely a parasitic leech like the rest of them. He turned to Shino and smiled more warmly. Do you know what you are going to tell your student? Shino sighed. Everything. The more the council lies and tries to hide the truth, the more evident it will be. If things are to change, it will start with the young ones. Naruto chuckled. Oh yeah, talk to Konohamaru and his crew. He's young and a bit hot-headed, but last I heard from him, it looked like he was developing the same strategic mindset as his uncle and grandfather. He grinned. I sometimes send letters to him via Gamekiki. Jiraiya blinked and chuckled. I wondered why the brat begged to sign the frog contract when he had Sarutobi-sensei's ape contract. I was shocked when Gamabunta and Inma agreed in the first place. It's rare to have dual summons. Naruto shrugged fluidly. I talked to Gamabunta. Konohamaru agreed to never summon any frog higher than Gamekiki. Unlike the usual contracts, this one has a time limit of 20 years. At the end, it will be renewed or expire. Tou-san. A high-pitched, childish squeal cut through the conversational hum. Naruto turned away, a wide smile spreading across his face before he took 2 quick steps and crouched down with his arms open wide. A small, black-haired figure clad in dark blue barreled through the crowd directly at the 6th raikage. Naruto laughed as he easily braced for the impact, rising from his crouch with one arm braced behind the boy's legs as he lifted him up so their faces were at the same level. Got you, Ryuuki. Suzuki, Korone, and Shino froze, seeing the familiar face of a particular little boy. Suzuki's mind went blank. The boy was an Uchiha, a born genius capable of using the Sharingan. His father was Naruto, who was given the title of the #1 unpredictable ninja by Kakashi. Naruto had gotten ahead of him in resurrecting his clan. But Ryuuka's clan was not Uchiha, it was Namikaze, the clan of his father, the 6th raikage, and his grandfather, the 4th Hokage. Korone could have burst into tears and cried as she realized the full implications of the situation. But she didn't. She was a kunoichi and trained to control all displays of emotion, so she did not make a sound as her psyche absorbed yet another blow. The Sharingan Kekkai Genkai was lost to Konoha unless Suzuki chose to have children. The Namikaze legacy of the 4th was lost, driven away by Konoha's own actions. What have I told you about running at gatherings? Naruto scolded the boy, though his heart clearly wasn't in it. Don't run because shinobi have fast reflexes, the boy dutifully recited in a sing-song voice before brightening. But if they have good reflexes, they can get out of the way. Naruto chuckled. Like you did a few weeks ago? You rely too much on being able to predict others. If you don't stop, I will seal your dojutsu. Tsunade frowned. Naruto, stop threatening the poor boy. That's a job for his parents. The pair blinked mildly at the Hokage before the older one coughed discreetly. Obachan, you know how I said you really are an Obachan? Yes, Tsunade was getting confused. What was the brat getting at? Naruto patted the boy's back. This is one reason why you are an Obachan. This is my son, Namikaze Ryuuki. Pieces began to shift in Tsunade's mind. Ryuuki was not a very common name. The description fit. Sealing your dojutsu. Ryuuki peeked at the Hokage, feeling a bit shy. Tou-san, why do you call her Obachan? Because she is really old. She was on the same genin team as Jiraiya-san. Ryuuki blinked. Red bled into black irises, and Tomo swirled in each eye. Sakura hissed. Sharingan. The boy blinked again, deactivating the dojutsu. Tou-san is right. You really are an Obachan. Tsunade was torn between laughter and fits. Laughter won out. It figured the brat's son would be just as smart-mouthed as him. Then something else clicked. Your wife is here. A low, throaty voice interrupted coolly. Naruto grinned as he turned away from the group and allowed his son to slide down his front to the floor. The Kages and Jonin watched as a slim but heavily pregnant figure clad in a maternity kimono of thick peacock blue silk emerged from the crowd. The dense material was printed with the fragile, evocative design of twigs and black silhouette on the skirt. The obi was black silk embroidered with silver crescents and swirls, secured by a purple silk cord. The experienced ninja could easily discern the weapons she bore, the tanto inside the obi, the tessin she carried like an ordinary fan in one sleeve, the steel senbon securing her black silky hair in an elegant knot, even the chopsticks made of ironwood and decorated with white silk tassels. The jarring notes in the traditional image were the soft leather slippers secured by ribbons instead of the usual geta. Her triangular face was distinctly Uchiha, with the flyaway slim brows, the black almond-shaped eyes, the fine, delicate bones, and the firm, small mouth quirked in a very faint smile. She wore a mask-like expression of faint disdain. Before their eyes, the mask softened, the icy sheen melted, the stony eyes became faintly liquid with emotion. Anata. The word held so much emotion, veiled promises, whispered secrets. Bara koi. She moved until she was standing before him, but she made no attempt to reach out and touch him, until he moved first. One large, tan hand cupped her smooth cheek and pointed chin, gently tilting her face before he bent to touch her lips with his. The almost chaste touch rapidly heated before the gawking audience. In a well-practiced maneuver, the couple shifted so Naruto was at her side, one cupped hand angling her face, the other free right arm around her back and resting on her expanded waist. Her left arm was wrapped around his neck, slender fingers clenched in his blonde tresses at the back of his head, occasionally sliding down to run her nails down his scalp and then back up. Her right hand had a tight grip on his hand resting on her waist, guiding his faintly glowing hand over her belly. Tsunade gawked. The couple had been kissing for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. How long could they keep that up without breaking for air? The longest I've seen is 15 minutes, Jiraiya leered, making notes in his ever-present notebook. Naruto definitely has the magic touch. He can make all his lovers reach climax by a simple caress, by stimulating their chakra and nervous systems. A blend of genjutsu and ninjutsu that would be classified as ijutsu, perfect for seduction and infiltration. He can make any female, and even a few males, spill their guts after just a few touches. Tsunade blinked, then noticed something else. His hand, it is glowing, purple. Hiroshi nodded sagely. He's feeding his chakra into her. Hibara needs regular transfusions of his Baijuyu-laced chakra during her pregnancies. Seeing their obvious confusion, he explained. A Jinchuriki's child makes higher demands on the mother's resources. She nearly miscarried Ryuuki before the medics figured out what was needed. After she gave birth, the chakra remained in her system, giving her greater endurance and resources than most kunoichi. Not that she wasn't lethal before. Tsunade froze. You mean Naruto can literally power up anyone he wants to? Hiroshi snorted. Of course not. There has to be a powerful emotional and physical bond. And the recipient has to be strong enough to begin with. Anyone else would burn out from overload. He grimaced. The council insisted we try on a few volunteers. They survived, but now they can never mold chakra. Then he smirked. Of course, it's uncertain if Ryuuki and any future children will be able to succeed in the procedure, since they have less concentrated amounts of similar potent chakra. Then he turned to the couple in question. Ah, it looks like they are done. As if on cue, the couple parted. Both were flushed, breathing hard, eyes dilated, and mouths swollen and slick with saliva. Hibara shivered as Naruto hummed, a low, throaty sound that raised goosebumps and set hearts racing, as he moved his mouth to one cheek, swirling his tongue in her outer earlobe before dropping a series of tiny kisses, tasting the skin along her jawline down toward her collarbone. She couldn't help but allow her head to fall to one side to give her husband greater access to the sensitive chords in her throat. She was vaguely aware of their audience but didn't give a damn. Kumo was very familiar with their occasional overly public displays. The dignitaries could just suck it up and get a case of blue balls or hot flashes for all she cared. Besides, most of them were males and would enjoy the free show. Konoha. Well, Konoha had little say in what she did. In fact, she was looking forward to rubbing it in. She heard her husband's soft chuckle and felt his chakra dancing under her skin and into her core, soothing and arousing at the same time. She made a soft sound of protest, vaguely aware it made her appear soft and kittenish, but she didn't care. Those who mattered knew this kunoichi had claws. Reluctantly, she shifted so she was curled against him, practically glued against him from shoulder to thigh. His arm moved across her back to keep her close. She inhaled deeply and took in his familiar musky scent as she fortified her resolve. Naruto took great care not to look at his former comrades. Instead, he focused on the dignitaries. Sorry about that. Naruto was careful to keep a bland expression, though those who knew him well knew he wasn't sorry at all. We haven't had much time together with the Chuunin exams and the new jobs. Then he smiled more naturally at all the cages and daimyo. This is my wife, Namikaze Hibara. He smirked. Your intelligence reports might have her under a different name, Hanashin. However, both of us have hung up our bolt identities. Memory and rote practice had him introducing each of the group in turn, and then he watched with quiet pride as Hibara charmed the older males while her softly spoken insights into relationships and child psychology earned. The Hokage watched the kunoichi dismiss the Konoha group with a glance. Some of them accepted the casual dismissal, but others bristled at the clear message that she didn't consider them a threat. Tsunade, realizing the kunoichi was intentionally pushing them, trying to provoke a reaction, was intrigued. She felt a surge of pride when none of her ninja broke protocol. Eager for more information, she silently cursed Jiraiya. The bastard hadn't mentioned a single thing about Naruto's wife. What will you tell me about yourself, Hibara-san? Hibara smiled warmly. As you've surmised, my father was an Uchiha. My mother was weak and easily manipulated by him. She did nothing to protect me from him or anyone else when I was younger. The Konoha ninjas' bodies tensed at her words. Her unknown Uchiha father had been aware of her existence but had chosen to leave her outside Konoha. This could only mean one thing: he was a married man who couldn't risk revealing a forbidden affair. Ignoring their tension, Hibara continued. I was determined to become strong, to protect myself. It was a relief when Itaka slaughtered the Uchiha clan. I no longer had to fear for my safety. I spent several years traveling alone or with a partner in hunting before I met Naruto. The realization hit them: she was a high-class Oinin, a hunter ninja. How had their intelligence network missed her? We just clicked. After a while, Naruto decided to become a Kumo shinobi. While I was pregnant, we mostly handled courier and diplomatic missions. Soon after Ryuuki was born, the raikage decided Bolt needed war shinobis and combat specialists, so we signed up. We had several friends with children, so we shared child-rearing duties to ensure the kids were always with someone they knew. A delicate hand caressed the short, messy strands on the boy's head. Once Ryuuki was older, I decided to take fewer missions to teach him how to use the Sharingan. Everyone blinked. Teach a child how to use the Sharingan? But why would a child need to be taught? The Sharingan only awakened in older children with enough chakra to activate it. Uchiha Itachi had activated his at 7 and mastered it at 8, the youngest Sharingan master ever. Hiroshi smiled, as if reading their thoughts. Ryuuki had so much chakra that he was born with the Sharingan already active. Naruto had to seal the Sharingan until Ryuuki was old enough to understand chakra manipulation and control it consciously. The seal was removed when Ryuuki turned 4. He was clearly enjoying rubbing it in Konoha's face, watching their dismay and horror as they realized what they had done, what they had scorned, and what they had lost. His face turned thoughtful. For a while, I was curious to see if Naruto could enhance other Kekkei Genkai and Dojutsu. But he is married and refuses to have children with anyone other than Hibara. Naruto snorted. You're right about that, Gi. If you want to experiment, you'll have to play matchmaker with my kids. Hibara smacked her husband's bicep lightly and glared at the elderly raikage. Hiroshi-sama, don't you dare set up any betrothals for my son. He isn't even a genin. Hiroshi winced. Only because you won't let him take the academy exam. Precisely, Hibara glared. I don't want him to be a genin, not until he's at least 8. Until then, he can study at home. She glanced at Jiraiya. The old pervert is a decent teacher, since he taught both Naruto and his father. It's his unfortunate choice of other activities that concerns me. Jiraiya winced and clutched the fabric over his heart. Oh, you wound me, Hibara-sama. Hibara snorted, a rude sound coming from the otherwise refined-looking kunoichi. I see no wounds, but I'd be more than happy to give you a few, Jiraiya. She briefly touched her hair and flicked her wrist. The sun and Yelton twisted into a weird contortion to avoid several senbon. All right. I'll do my research outside the compound. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at the way the younger woman had handled her old teammate. It was a tragedy, but then again, if she had been brought in, she most likely would have been killed by Itachi like all the other Uchiha. Naruto smiled, pleased by the respectful and affectionate bonds between his loved ones. He didn't expect Hibara to ever trust Shizune or Tsunade, though. It had taken months for her to reach this point of comfortable familiarity with Jiraiya, and that was only because the Gama-Sunin had made it clear with his words and actions that he valued his students over his old village, the one that had disrespected their sacrifices and achievements. The warmth faded as he turned to his former comrades and spoke his final words. Tell Konoha's council what you've seen and heard. What conclusions they draw, I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, they are all blind fools and cowards. He glanced at Shikaka Nara and Inoichi Yamanaka. I can't understand how the two of you, of all people, just stood by and did nothing. Yamanaka-san, you're supposed to be a psychological expert, given your clan jutsus. What were you thinking by not interfering? And Nara-san, where is the logic in practically giving one of your own shinobi every reason to be bitter and resentful of his ill treatment? You're simply creating a lesser Orochimaru with more justification for his hatred. Naruto shook his head. What you choose to do in the future is your choice. Konoha is no concern of mine. With that, he said his polite farewells to the dignitaries in cages. It has been an intense month, and I want to spend some time with my family. The Konoha envoy watched the trio amble through the crowd and toward the exit. Occasionally, they were stopped by Kumo ninja and civilians. Each time, the couple responded to the greetings and inquiries before moving on. Minato Namikaze had been like that. Willing to listen to the most insignificant voice because, to him, everyone was important. Always willing to forgive. Naruto was very much the same. Perhaps, he's never coming back. Shikamaru shattered the older Jounin's daydreams. Not when he has respect and friends, an entire village that loves him, and the title of Kage. There's nothing but bitter memories and hatred for either of them in Konoha. Sakura cried silently. For once, her inner Sakura had nothing positive to say, no loud encouraging words or plans of action. Sasuke was quiet. Was Naruto right? Had the clan elders experimented on Itachi, like Orochimaru had experimented on him and other Otonin? He made a silent resolution to find those records Naruto had talked about. He was certain the Godame would give him access to the Umbu archives. A cold glint shone in his black eyes. If Konoha had known all along, if they had remained silent while his beloved elder brother suffered, if they had deliberately done nothing to help Itachi and hid all the facts, Sasuke wasn't sure what he would do, but he was absolutely certain the Godame would give him complete free rein to ensure the guilty were punished in the most painful ways. Tsunade sighed as she worked diligently through her paperwork. In the weeks since their return to Konoha, things had been dangerously quiet. The council had said nothing after listening to each shinobi's perspective and all the facts. Tsunade had put Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Neji on the task of going through the Uchiha district and Umbu archives, looking for the evidence Naruto had mentioned. So far, they had no absolute proof, but there were references to Itachi throughout his career as a shinobi, records kept by Medicnin known to take orders from Danzo, records that couldn't have been kept without the complicity of several parties. Tsunade-sama? The Godame lifted her head from her paperwork and eyed Irika. He had taken Naruto's absence very badly, blaming himself for not noticing how much the teen had been hurting. In reaction, he had cut himself off from the academy, where there were too many painful memories. In recent years, Irika had become nearly as indispensable to her as Shizune when it came to paperwork and bureaucrats. What is it, Irika? Irika scowled. There was an addendum to the council meeting agenda. Hobako Setsuna wishes to consider the possibility of invading Kumo. Tsunade snorted. Ignore the little pissant. The daimyo himself specifically forbade Konoha from declaring war on Kumo. In his exact words, if you are fool enough to go up against Namikaze Naruto, I will stand back and watch him slaughter you, and I will not send a single ryo for the rebuilding, even if 80% of Konoha starves and dies from exposure. And frankly, I agree with him. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, the first people not to get rations will be the families of the idiots who instigate the mess. She grinned with savage satisfaction. They tormented a boy for what his father did to save them, so I feel completely justified in starving their own flesh and blood for their own foolishness. Irika opened his mouth to protest and then shut it. He, too, had become jaded with Konoha. He had seen too much, heard too much. His idealism had cracked. He could very easily understand why Tsunade had left Konoha and had been so reluctant to become Hokage, why Jiraiya had left and refused to return despite the council's threats. So far, he had not been marked as a Nukenin, but from the looks of things, it would only be a matter of time. And when that happened, Kumo would welcome into their ranks the Gama-Sunin, sensei of their Rokudame, instructor of his son and heir. A faint smile curved his lips. If Ryuuki was anything like his father, Irika wondered if the Gama-Sunin would survive teaching the third generation of Namikaze ninja. Tsunade-sama. Both ninja looked up at Reidu, the Godame's liaison with Umbu Intel operations. Ibiki has noticed something. What? Reidu bit his lip and decided it would be best to just blurt it out. Several Konoha shinobi have requested downtime. It's understandable given the reduced number of missions and the tensions with Kumo. Ibiki has found evidence that the shinobi have formed an unauthorized assault mission on Kumo. Ibiki is unsure of the exact target. The heavy, dense wood splintered under the Godame's clenching fingers. I want an investigation and any hypotheses. Get Uchiha Sasuke, Nara Shikamaru, and Hyuga Neji on this immediately. They have my permission to break every single law as long as they produce results. I will declare martial law if I have to. The two Chuyunin stared at the Godame and nodded before running off to get the Jounin in question, to get out of range when she really blew. Tsunade stared at the group of young ninja before her. It had expanded from just 3 to a sizable task force. Uchiha Sasuke, Nara Shikamaru, Hyuga Neji, Tenten Hibashi, Yamanaka Ino, Akimichi Chuji, Sarutobi Kanoamaru, Udon Miyuji, Mogi Kamaki, Marino Ibiki, Heite Kakashi, Harano Sakura, Hyuga Hinata. The last 3 had insisted on joining when they caught wind of what was happening and, surprisingly, had shown positive initiative. Give me your report, she ordered. Details can wait, but I need to know if Kumo is going to attack Konoha. Shikamaru snorted. Expect the attack in 48 hours to 7 days, Tsunade-sama. That's how long it took Kumo to wipe out NE. This time they'll be going up against all of Konoha, but they have even better reason to be enraged. Niji's eyes were frozen orbs. The task force was a two-part mission. Namikaze Hybra just gave birth to twins, a son and daughter, 2 weeks ago. 3 days later, she was attacked by rogue Konoha Umbu and Jounin, the ones who were off duty. It's clear they were there to kill her and kidnap the newborns. Hybra-san was weak but held off her attackers long enough for help to reach her. One of the babies was nearly killed by a Konoha ninja who felt it was best to eliminate the Sharingan rather than let it stay in Kumo's hands. Another group attempted to kidnap Namikaze Ryuuki from the academy library. The boy killed one with a Raiten jutsu and disabled another before the kidnappers were stopped by the instructors. Not a single rogue Konoha ninja escaped to reach Kumo's walls. Kumo's elites, including Bolt and the Rokudame Raikage, slaughtered all the attackers before conducting a house-to-house search to locate and take out every single Konoha infiltrator, leaving a few alive for interrogation. According to reports, he was in a six-tailed state, in complete control and absolutely furious. I believe we felt the effects of his displeasure just a few days ago. Everyone stilled and remembered the violent wave of malicious chakra that had washed across the elemental countries, originating from Kumo. The days that followed were filled with destructive, gale-force thunderstorms that uprooted several ancient trees and caused thousands of ryo worth of damage to homes and businesses. Many of the farmers were still out assessing the damage to their crops. Konoha is thoroughly screwed, Ino summarized everyone's opinion of the situation. Naruto will never forgive this, never ever. Konoha ninja tried to kill his family. He will want blood. We were clearly warned of this. By both Raikages, the Kazekage. Control the council or face the consequences. Guess we're facing the consequences. Who authorized this? The Godame wanted to know. Something on this scale. Someone high up must have pulled strings. Shikamaru scanned his notes. We are still gathering names. So far, over half the council is implicated by not reporting what they knew. Tsunade nodded slowly. Treason. What they have done has brought danger to Konoha's doorstep. She picked up a pencil and a sheet of foolscap. Give me the names. Every single one of them will be arrested. Their personal wealth shall be used to rebuild Konoha. If they have any relatives or dependents, they can find jobs or do what peasants do when the main income earner dies, become whores or laborers. None of them shall be Konoha shinobi unless they can thoroughly prove their innocence in this mess. 3 days later, the Godame and several Konoha shinobi stood on the walls, waiting. Advance Hiwaga scouts reported the presence of a group of about 300 Suna, IWA, and Kumo shinobi just inside the border. The new Raikage and his wife were among them. They were moving slowly but steadily toward Konoha. All attempts to delay them failed miserably. They would be at the wall within the hour. Tsunade was torn between two conflicting desires. One said to just step aside and watch as Naruto destroyed Konoha, the cause of so much pain. The other insisted she was the Hokage, no matter how much she hated it, and she owed it to her lineage to defend her village. Niji was the first to spot the war party. They're here. He was proud of how steady his voice was. Niji knew he was one of the best Konoha ninja, and he also knew he was thoroughly outclassed by Naruto Namikaze. This was the one who had managed to defeat him as an ill-trained, loudmouthed genin. We cannot attack, Shikamaru spoke aloud. There might be fewer than 200 Kumo ninja out there, but their abilities and tactics are nearly unknown to us. All we know is they tend to be massively destructive. And worse, they've probably shared techniques with their allies, IWA and Suna. And Naruto won't let this go, Irika murmured. He had no real abilities to match one of the new Kumo elites in the upcoming fight. He always fought best to protect those he cares about. Right now, Konoha is a threat to his precious ones. That is exactly why I am going to hand over every single one of those treasonous bastards who have been enjoying Ibuki's hospitality, Tsunade announced grimly. There were a few grim smiles of support and winces from those who were torn. None of them noticed a young Chuyunin wall walk up to join the Jounin. Tsunade-sama, there is something else I just discovered in the private records of one of the council members in Ibuki's custody, Mogi announced softly. She was one of the many trusted Chuyunin and Kunoichi put in charge of going through the reams of scrolls and confiscated files. She snuck a peek at Suzuki, who was using his Sharingan to track the Kumo group. It has to do with Uchiha Itaki. Suzuki stiffened and turned to the young Chuyunin. What? Mogi forced her spine to stiffen. It is very personal. Suzuki closed his eyes briefly. His younger self would have demanded to know everything. His older, wiser self was more wary. Does it have any impact on the current situation? Mogi nodded. Yes. You might want some emotional support. It is ugly. Suzuki glanced at Shikamaru. The Nara had become a friend. He was more flexible in his views and didn't judge blindly. He could also be trusted to hold his tongue. I want Shikamaru to know. The Godame, Shikamaru, Suzuki, and Mogi retreated to one of the guard station barracks, where Suzuki set up a privacy barrier using a sound block jutsu he had learned in Otokage. Mogi waited until all four of them were sitting around the small card table before pulling out some scrolls from her satchel. These are copies, summaries of what I discovered. The originals are still in safekeeping. I'll summarize things for you. She took a deep breath before looking Suzuki in the eye. Uchiha Itachi never existed. Suzuki frowned. What the hell do you mean, Mogi? Of course he existed. Mogi glanced at the Godame for courage before explaining. Mikoto and Fugaku Uchiha were expecting a child about 32 years ago. She gave birth to a daughter, not the expected Uchiha heir. Suzuki froze. Then where did Itachi come from? Where did my sister go? A sick feeling knotted his belly as understanding dawned. She is Hibara, isn't she? It was a statement, not a question. Mogi nodded. Yes. Namikaze Hibara is the firstborn child of your parents, your elder sister. Suzuki frowned. Okay, my father didn't like having a daughter, so he got rid of her. Then where did Itachi come from? Was he from one of the cadet branches? Mogi extended her hand towards Suzuki's. He was a man who rarely invited physical contact, yet in this moment, he seemed to crave the comfort of another's touch. Suzuki. Itachi was Hibara. The Sharingan flared to life in his eyes, and every muscle in the Uchiha's face froze. I don't know the full details of the procedure, but your father gave any permission to transform her into the perfect shinobi. Because she was a girl and not the son he desired, they erased her female identity using a combination of funjutsu, hormonal treatments, and genjutsu. She became Itachi. When it became clear that Itachi was progressing at an incredible rate, the bastard decided that having an Uchiha prodigy would be useful for promoting the clan's image, so he enrolled Itachi in the academy, where things went more or less as we know it. However, once the Sharingan manifested, the mental conditioning started to break down. They experimented with different drugs to maintain control over their perfect weapon, but eventually failed. Itachi broke and slaughtered the entire clan. At that moment, Tsunade's face was like a brewing storm. Fools. Bastards. I want the names of every single person involved in this travesty. A malicious grin crossed her face. They will pay. I will deliver their heads or broken bodies to Hibara. Shikamaru took a deep breath and began asking the questions no one else had thought of. Did Itachi join the Akatsuki, knowing his true identity as a female? Mogi shook her head. I'm not sure. The techniques used to force the change were something neither the Sharingan nor the Byakugan could penetrate. Itachi may have broken free of the genjutsu and mental conditioning, but I don't think Itachi knew he was born a female, and no one would know. Not unless they saw Itachi molding chakra without any clothing over the area of the seals, Tsunade stated grimly. The Akatsuki might have had funjutsu specialists, but Itachi would have never risked being completely vulnerable around them. Suzuki was unaware of the tears streaming down his face. His beloved Aniki was a deception, a lie created by his own clan. Then something else dawned on him. Ryuuki was his nephew. Konoha had tried to kill his niece and nephews. Naruto is a seal master. So is Jiraiya. One of them might have damaged enough of Itachi's clothing in battle to suspect something was off, Shikamaru pointed out. Or Itachi might have learned enough about seals to get an unknown seals master to break the deception. Tsunade tapped her palm against the tabletop. It doesn't matter who broke the funjutsu. At some point, probably after the Akatsuki was wiped out, Uchiha Itachi vanished and was presumed dead. Then Hibara appeared. She said she felt safe, Suzuki murmured, looking up. In Kumo, she said she was happy Itachi slaughtered the clan because it made her feel safe. Tsunade's expression softened. She might have developed a split personality to handle the madness, the stress of the situation, to hide the truth, the shame, and the rage. Shikamaru hummed softly. She hunted. I assumed she was a Kumoinen, but these facts clearly suggest she was probably an independent bounty hunter. She probably met Naruto at this time and they got together. Suzuki's body stiffened. Do you think he knew that Hibara was Itachi? Shikamaru shrugged. Naruto is the only one who can answer that. She probably told him the facts before they married. He shook his head. Naruto was always one to roll with the punches. He probably accepted her story without a second thought. Tsunade snorted. You're right. As long as she didn't try to kill him, Naruto wouldn't have any problems with her background. Hell, Jiraiya told me he tried to befriend several Nuknins during his training trips. Quite a few of them gave in to his nagging persistence and actually taught him a few jutsus. Mogi smiled, tears welling in her eyes. Oya-bun is like that. Even if you were mean to him in the past, he is always willing to forgive and move on. Then she scowled. But he shouldn't. Not this time. They tried to kill his children. Tsunade nodded. And he won't. Naruto would take a death blow for himself, but he will never risk those he cares for. And he knows the only way he can eliminate this threat is to kill all those responsible. Mogi huffed. So hand the bastards over to him. They're going to be executed anyway for all they've done. Shikamaru tapped the tabletop with a short fingernail to get their attention before redirecting the discussion. They probably decided to sign up with a village once they committed to each other. It's hard to raise a family bounty hunting or doing mercenary work. Tsunade snorted. Hiroshi must be burning incense every day for his good fortune. He gets 2 S-class nins, a seal master in Jinhyuriki, and a dojutsu Kekai Genkai all in one go. In Kumo, a retired raikage sneezed. Naruto probably used his contacts to revitalize trade and contracts. Haibara probably worked on improving their shinobis, Shikamaru deduced. Once they had the confidence of the Yondaime raikage, they moved to Bolt and took the identities of aka Arashi and Hanashi and started messing with Konoha. Tsunade smiled ruefully. Can't blame them. Not after all this shit. The only thing I care about is surviving this upcoming storm. She eyed Shikamaru. Ideas? Hunker down and don't make a single move, Shikamaru snorted. Mogi has the right idea. Let Naruto and Haibara have all the fools. He glanced at Suzuki, who had been very quiet. What do you think, Suzuki? The Uchiha smiled, more of a grimace. Really? Mogi is right. Let Naruto have all those we've found so far. I'll take my pleasure hunting down the remaining rats. As one, the 4 of them stood up. Suzuki dispelled the barrier, and Mogi hurried off to continue her records investigation. It would be suicide to send any Chuunin against the elites Kumo would be sending. Tsunade moved to the wall. There were several Doton barriers around each gate entry point and at strategic spots. Report. Kakashi glanced at the Hokage. The invading forces have several IWA nins with them. They are using high-class Doton jutsus in tandem to create those barriers. The shinobis might be able to get over them, but the civilians will be trapped. They've even covered the unofficial side gates, even the ones Umbu use. Tsunade's face was grim. Jiraiya probably told them everything. Kakashi nodded. As Konoha's unofficial espionage master, the Gama Sunin knew a great deal about Konoha's secrets and procedures. Have they made any demands? Tsunade wanted to know. Not yet. They have been separating into groups of 10, creating a stretched line that is barely in line of sight of each other. I'm not sure of their plan of attack. A few hundred yards from the walls, Naruto watched his shinobis deploy in the predetermined pattern. A cold sense of savage satisfaction burned in his belly, and he was very sure that most of it had nothing to do with the Kyuubi. In the years since leaving Konoha, Naruto had accepted the Kyuubi no Yoko as part of him, for better or worse. To his surprise, the Baijuyu had relaxed a bit once Naruto had cut all ties with Konoha, though the Yoko was still grumpy and insulting regarding hairless pink simians. Naruto had a sneaky suspicion some Konoha faction had done something that enraged the Baijuyu into attacking the village. Frankly, it was none of his concern. All he cared about was getting his price in flesh and blood, Konohan flesh and blood. He glanced down at his wife, his mate, his love. Despite having given birth less than 3 weeks ago, she insisted on joining the Kumo war party. A full team of medics healed her up the best they could, while Kyuubi's chakra did the rest. Why are you here, Barakoi? You should be in Kumo, with the children. Haibara looked up at her husband with cool, calm eyes. It's very possible you'll lose control. Some idiot Konohan, your rage at their audacity, even the Kyuubi could stir you into venting full out. I must be here to make sure you return. Your village needs you, and so do I and our children. Naruto relaxed under her soothing strokes. Besides, I want this over and done with quickly. Her eyes were shards of jagged obsidian. Naruto nodded and cast the sound-amplifying jutsu and began to speak. Konoha, your shinobis have attacked my wife and children. They tried to kill them just like you tried to kill me. I forgave you when you attacked me. I will never forgive you for this attack on my family. Tsunade closed her eyes and prayed and hoped this worked. Raikage-sama, this action was not officially sanctioned by me or the council, but it was carried out by your shinobi. Naruto retorted. If you cannot control your shinobi and populace, I shall do it for you. Wait. I have the ones responsible for this crime, and others. You can have them. Naruto tilted his head and glanced down at his wife, who whispered to him, send them out. Tsunade glared at the protesting Jounin before giving the orders. In the space of 15 minutes, several clan heads, clan elders, counselors, and shinobi department leaders were deposited outside Konoha's walls, bound hand and foot with chakra-sealing monocles, and the gates were closed behind them. Among them were several Hyuuga, including Hyuuga Hayashi. Hyuuga Hinata watched with stone-cold eyes as Namikaze Haibara used a ninjutsu only Uchiha Itachi had ever used in living memory. Amaterasu. The black fires were amplified by the futon jutsu cast by her husband. Within seconds, the screams stopped, and there was nothing but flesh and charred bone remaining on the glassy ground. The intense heat had melted and fused the dirt. Suzuki watched the execution without flinching. They had committed great crimes against Naruto, and they more than likely had done the same to Itano, Haibara. Uchiha Itachi was gone. Only Namikaze Haibara lived. Shikamaru watched edgily. Was Naruto's bloodlust sated? Would he leave now that the guilty were dead? As much as I appreciate the gesture, I feel it is too late at this stage of the game. Naruto spoke in cold, icy tones. Since Konoha has so much money and shinobis they wasted trying to kill me, Kumo feels steps should be taken to remedy that. He glanced at the teams closest to him. Now. And then the earth shook and the air burned. For days later, the last of the casualty and damage reports were trickling in. Report. Hinata brushed a streak of black grime from her face but only succeeded in smearing it around. The Hyuga compound has almost entirely been destroyed. One of the teams was completely devoted to shifting the ground under every single building in the compound. Naruto actually used his chakra tails and techniques to open crevasses deep enough to reach lava streams. Most of the buildings have fallen into them, and it is too unstable to send anyone to recover the scrolls or artifacts in the buildings. Not that we can do anything since most of it is on fire. No amount of Suten jutsus can cool down natural lava streams. Most of the Hyugas managed to escape. Those that didn't were the stubborn ones. All of the Elder Council is gone, including my father's cronies. The same tactic was used for several warehouses and food silos, Sakura reported. The foundations were undermined, the contents destroyed or spoiled by Katon and Suten jutsus. Many public buildings, including the academy and libraries, were destroyed by the hail of burning rock. There are fires in the tourist and market districts. They were sparked by Raiten jutsus and fanned by Futon jutsus. Some of the buildings are complete losses, Chuji added. Any loss of life? Tsunade wanted to know. It was surprisingly light, Ino reported. Mainly old fools who refused to follow the evacuation plans, some shinobis that went and did a futile kamikaze attack. Most of the destroyed property is unoccupied commercial or public buildings, with the exception of the Hyuga compound. Tsunade nodded thoughtfully. Naruto didn't want to kill us. He wants us weak, terrified, and appropriately cowed. Plus, the more survivors there are, the more mouths we have to feed, the more expensive it will be. The forests will take a long time to recover, Shino reported grimly. Naruto and Hibara used some massive overpowered Arashi technique that created a controlled forest fire that took out a lot of the old growth. We cannot do any major logging or hunting for years to come, not without permanently damaging the ecosystem. The roads and bridges in and out of Konoha have also been damaged, Shikamaru reported. Naruto was aiming for a massive bill. It will take every Ryu and then some to repair the damages. Exactly what he was aiming for, Tsunade concluded with a grim smile. Kakashi stirred. Since Konoha has so much money and shinobis they wasted trying to kill me, Kumo feels steps should be taken to remedy that. He quoted the exact words of the Rokudan raikage. He has succeeded. He has weakened us, and the daimyo will not send a single Ryu to help in the rebuilding. In fact, he will probably cut missions while we rebuild. Missions that will most likely never be given to us, even when we have the manpower, Irika murmured softly. Naruto has cut us off at the knees, and he knows it. Konoha will have to recover the slow way, the hard way. Tsunade nodded absently. Any comments on the jutsus used? Kakashi began to speak. They are standard jutsus with some additional hand seal modifiers. The key seems to be doing them in tandem. All the Kumo shinobi seem to work in pairs whose elemental affinities amplify each other. Like Amaterasu and Futon jutsus, Suzuki explained grimly. The fire was terrible, but the wind made it several-fold more powerful. Shikamaru shifted. Not only that, Naruto seems to have control over all elements and then some. It probably has something to do with the Kyuubi. According to legend, it was able to level mountains and part seas with its tails. I saw Oyabun destroy the Hyuga compound, Konohamaru spoke in dry, factual tones. The usually ebullient boy was drained and down. His idol had destroyed his home and village, but in Konohamaru's black and white view, Naruto had every right to do so. Shikamaru-san is correct. The tails have control over the elements. Earth to split the ground, wind to take down weakened structures, fire to destroy what was left. He blended earth and fire to create lava streams, wind and water to create ice. The damage was incredible. Some of them were no seals, others were half seals. I'm not sure what those techniques would be classified as. Most likely hybrid kinjutsus. I always thought he was a ninjutsu genius, and this proves it. He smiled a distant, bittersweet smile filled with regretful thoughts. His grandfather would have been ashamed and so disappointed with Konoha. But then again, his grandfather could have done so much more, but he didn't, he chose not to act. Shikamaru sat up straighter. We have to get more detailed reports from up-close witnesses to try and determine just how much Naruto is capable of. Konohamaru snorted. You're being overly optimistic. By the time we figure out what Oyabun did today, he will have developed other, more powerful techniques. Besides, I cannot see anyone other than a Jinchuriki or perhaps an ex-Jinchuriki executing such jutsus. Or a Jinchuriki's child, Niji pointed out. When we were in Kumo, the old raikage said Naruto's son Ryuuki was born with so much chakra the Sharingan was active. Tsunade nodded slowly and looked around at the tired, red-eyed faces of her shinobis. Many were returning from their cleanup shifts. Alright, that's a good start. I want all of you to make your notes as thorough as possible, including even the most trivial details. Spread the word that I need everyone civilian and shinobi in the main square outside the Hokage Tower. I'll be giving a speech half an hour before sunset. Nara Yoshino sighed, scanning the crowd for an open seat. Finding none, she settled for standing near her husband's former genin team and their families. Her own son was in Kami knows where, a consequence of the situation. She knew he was alive, but the Hokage had immediately put him and most of his peers to work, just like most of the other shinobi and the calm, capable civilians. I can't believe it. We're so lucky we didn't lose the Godame in this invasion. If that demon had killed her, that never would have happened, Yamanaka-san. Yoshino tensed. Her son's usually laid-back voice was filled with loathing for Inoichi's civilian wife. Naruto loves Tsunade-sama. If there's anyone he would kill, it's 90% of the civilians, including you. Yamanaka Ryana flinched and recoiled under the barely restrained killing intent. She frantically looked to her husband and friends for support, but they all avoided her gaze. Pushing her fear aside, she opened her mouth to speak. Don't you dare take that tone with me, Shika. Shut up. Ryana flinched at the harsh interruption from her daughter, her only child. Ino stared at her mother. She was usually such a kind, friendly person, always willing to help. Was this the ugliness hidden behind her pretty facade? Was this the truth Naruto had to face every day of his life in Konoha? She shook her head. She wanted to cry, but she didn't have the energy. She buried her face in her old teammate's chest as Chuji wrapped a large arm around her. I am sick of this, Ino muttered, forcing herself to step away from Chuji and gather the strength to speak her mind. I'm sick of people treating Naruto like the devil. It's your fault, she yelled. You did nothing to help him. You drove him out of Konoha. And now you have the nerve to blame him for those idiots. Her chest heaved, and her eyes were hard and opaque. If those effing morons hadn't sent assassination squads to kill Naruto's wife and children, he never would have attacked Konoha. Those traitors brought the vengeance of aka Arashi upon this village. Everyone froze, staring at the kunoichi. Ino-chan is right. The Godame's cool voice cut through the silence. The crowd parted to let her walk to the front. Konoha brought this force of nature upon herself by not stopping the actions of old fools. Luckily for us, they are now dead fools and will not repeat their idiotic choices. The question is, will you? Her eyes were steely as she scanned the crowd. Will you risk those who still live to satisfy your petty vengeance and bruised pride? Several shinobi shifted uneasily. One spoke up. The other villages will see us as weak. The Godame laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Idiots. We are weak. Her eyes were molten. We chased away the son of the fourth, the shinobi who defeated two S-class ninjas entirely on his own. He is now the raikage and father to the next generation of Sharingan users. I have seen his son. He's a genius like his mother and a powerhouse like his father. And Konoha ninja tried to kill his children, she roared. Would you give those who tried to kill your children a second chance? A 5-year-old boy who isn't even a genin. 2 newborns less than a week old. Every parent in the room stiffened. No. Then, everything began to sink in. They had known Kumo was attacking, that a rogue faction had sent assassins to Kumo, and now the raikage was retaliating. But few had known the targets of those assassins. A Hyuga kunoichi choked. They wanted to control the Sharingan, just like Kumo wanted the Byakugan. Tsunade snorted. Yes. However, we are in no position to make demands on Kumo given who their raikage is and his bad history with Konoha. Naruto made it very clear during Kumo's Chunin exams. So did all the other cages and the fire daimyo. Control your council or face the consequences. I never imagined they were so swollen with prideful self-delusion that they would ignore the warnings and drag Konoha into open war. And look at what their actions have wrought. Konoha is practically in ruins. Our economy and income are destroyed. It is only because of Naruto's care that there hasn't been greater loss of life. He could have easily used his techniques to destroy the underground evacuation bunkers or flooded them with fire or water. Every single one of you lives because Kumo was not interested in killing bystanders. But they took their vengeance by ripping our infrastructure and wealth to shreds. The daimyo warned me months ago that he would not pay for an invasion that Konoha instigated, and he sent a messenger just an hour ago reaffirming his decision. He will not be sending us any relief for what the actions of a few bigoted, vengeful idiots have wrought. We will have to make repairs and purchases using our own funds and the assets confiscated from the clans who committed treason. And believe me, it is not even close to enough. What are we going to do? Someone whispered. Tsunade smiled a tired, wry expression. Survive. Like we always do. I am declaring temporary martial law and dismissing the council until I can find a setup that would be more dependable than letting power-mongering old fools pull strings. Now, I ask you, citizens of Konoha, will you let go of your grudge, hate, and vengeful feelings against Uzumaki Naruto, who is now Namikaze Naruto? If you don't, feel free to leave Konoha. I will not risk your foolish desires sparking a second conflict with Naruto because next time, he will flatten us. Suzuki stirred. Vengeance has no place in a shinobi's life. I learned that the hard way. If I had listened to Naruto all those years ago, I would not have suffered as I have. Don't lie and say you do not desire vengeance and then betray Konoha. His Sharingan swirled to life. Since the next few years will be very difficult, the Godane will not tolerate anyone flaunting her decrees. She gave us free rein to hunt down the traitors responsible for this mess. She will do it again to weed out all those who would weaken Konoha. She will not ignore and pretend everything is fine like the third. She is no longer bound by a meddlesome, useless bunch of power brokers who have little idea of what being a shinobi is. Konoha will be starting all over again, and there will be no allowances for civil rights when the civilian in question is flaunting the Hokage swill. Tsunade smirked and stepped closer to Suzuki, patting the taller Uchiha on the shoulder. I second what Suzuki has just said. If you wish to have the soft civilian life you had before this invasion, then leave. That time is gone and it will never return. If you are willing to truly start anew, then stay. Sarutobi-sensei allowed the hatred against one child to fester for more than a decade. That hatred twisted my grandfather's ideals about Konoha being a family into an ugly caricature. I will restore the first's ideals even if I have to banish or exile half of Konoha's population, so if you feel you cannot change, feel free to leave. I'm sure there will be enough of you to form groups, though we cannot spare any shinobi to escort you to the closest trade town. Everyone stiffened at that blatant threat. Tsunade nodded, satisfied with the silence. She looked at the group of Hyuugas. Who is the new clan head of the Hyuugas? Hinata stepped forward and spoke carefully. It was decided by general consensus that Niji will be the next clan head. She smiled bitterly. Hanabi is in no position to take the job or protest. Tsunade raised a faint brow. Oh yes. The little bitch. Let the regular medics do what they can. I don't have the time or energy to spare to treat someone who will only cause trouble. But you can't, an older civilian Hyuuga woman protested. You must treat her. Tsunade's eyes glowed. I don't have to do anything, she roared. If I want, I can just burn these robes and hat and walk away. But Hanabi-chan is paralyzed. If you don't treat her, she will learn humility and a civilian trade, Tsunade cut off rudely. If you care so much, get someone else to treat the little bitch. She smiled maliciously. Haruno Sakura has enough skill and little compassion but is more than willing to be paid in ryo or public adulation and admiration. Sakura stiffened, forcing back tears at the harsh words from her former teacher. None of the shinobi said anything. No one wanted to touch that emotional quagmire with a 10-foot pole. Satisfied, Tsunade did one last quick survey. Uzumaki Naruto is the perfect example of a shinobi, just like his father the fourth Hokage. He absorbs and refines what makes him strong, lets go of what would weaken him, never looks back or holds onto old grudges. Grudge, hate, vengeance, none of these have any place in our world. You became shinobi knowing you risk death, so if you die, your loved ones have no right to demand vengeance from your killers. I hated Konoha for years because Dan and Noeka died for her, but I never blamed the ninjas who killed them because they were just doing their duty. If they didn't kill, they would have been killed instead of Dan and Noeki, and they were doing their duty to their village. Naruto is just like Minato. Both of them never hold on to grudges. They are always willing to forgive those who tried to kill them. But what Konoha has done against both father and son is unforgivable. Konoha civilians and shinobi tried to kill both of their children when they were young and helpless. Each and every one of you is responsible. Remember that for the rest of your lives and pray that the sixth raikage is willing to give your children a second chance when they meet him or his shinobi on the battlefield. Pray that Namikaze Naruto teaches his children and the next generation of Kumo ninjas his forgiving, second chance philosophy so that when they meet during missions, the Kumo ninjas are willing to give our children a chance despite all that their Konoha parents have done. Tsunade did not wait to see the impact her words had on her audience. She had paperwork to finish. Distantly, she wondered how Naruto was handling the paperwork that came with the job. In Kumo, Namikaze Naruto created several shadow clones and assigned them to reading and signing his paperwork. When they were dispelled, he would get the information and sort through it via a few hours of meditation. Right now, he wanted to be with his family, his wife and his children. Raikage-sama. Objective Beta achieved. Namikaze Teiku. Objective ETA completed. Naruto-sama. Delta closed. Sixth Sama. Alpha objective, accomplished. Raikage-sama. Gamma achieved. Naruto absorbed the shouts from his trusted shinobi and allies. He smirked as the reports poured in via shadow clones that dispelled themselves upon receiving the progress reports from the various teams. He opened his slit red eyes and smiled broadly. He himself had completed Sai, the destruction of the Hyuuga compound. He might not have been able to reform the Hyuuga clan as Hokage, but he could cause enough destruction to force them to rethink their ways. Raikage-sama, your orders. Naruto smiled at Nobusho Ito, a very skilled IWA jonin whom Dakin had sent as the captain of the IWA ninjas. He was stolid-looking but quick-wit, not an easily offended, high-strung shinobi despite being the scion of a prestigious shinobi clan. Retreat. Primary objectives have been achieved. So have 90% of the secondary objectives. He grinned savagely. Konoha is going to find it very difficult to pay their bills for the next few years. Ito smirked. It pleased him to see the so-called strongest of the major hidden villages brought low by one of their own, by the son of their fourth Hokage, one of their strongest shinobi and most beloved hero, the one responsible for bringing IWA down so low. At first, he had protested the plan and the orders to spare the civilians and ignore the ninja unless directly attacked. That was until the sixth raikage had explained his justification. The humiliation he planned on inflicting on Konoha was more than enough reason. Naruto was practically bouncing on his toes. The adrenaline rush of a successful mission completed well within acceptable parameters was invigorating. The Kumo ninjas smirked and nudged their fellow shinobi. Those who had worked with the raikage in the field were well familiar with his post-mission habits. Naruto inhaled sharply as he fought the urge to rush back into Konoha for a good fight. He had done what he planned to do. What he needed now was Haibara. Where is Haibara-sama? Is inventorying the injured. There were a few casualties. Their bodies are being katoned, and the ashes are being retained for their families. And we are done. 50 lightly injured, but still mobile. 14 with more serious injuries. Stabilized but need to be carried. 5 verified dead. Namikaze Haibara announced calmly as she stepped in to join the circle around her husband. She was clad in black leather pants with metal wire lacing up the sides of her legs and black combat boots. Her torso was covered in a fishnet mesh over a burgundy t-shirt. Over that, she wore a weapon harness to hold her naginata and various pouches and weapons. Naruto shifted forward so he was balanced on the balls of his feet. Good. We've done what we came to do. Now we withdraw. 2 days of non-stop running at a controlled, steady pace. Naruto was determined to be clear of Konoha's area of influence before allowing the pace to slow or stop. When the wounded or exhausted were pushed beyond their limits, the sixth raikage created shadow clones to carry those who could not run anymore. Finally, he felt it was safe to take a longer break and set up camp. What are your plans, Naruto? Kankuro asked briskly. His brother had put him in charge of the Suna ninjas for this particular joint mission. Kankuro knew strategy for warfare wasn't his best strength, so he listened and followed the suggestions, especially when the IWA Jonin in charge had agreed with Naruto. Naruto took a sip of water to wash down the chewed jerky before answering. Now we split up and head home. He looked at Nobusho Ito, the IWA Jonin, and continued. We have accomplished the primary objective week in Konoha. You can make your reports to your respective cages and prepare a more detailed record of your observations and commentary from your subordinates. When it is complete, copies shall be exchanged between our villages. He glanced up at a silver-haired, blue-eyed Kumo shinobi. Tsukino Akito will prepare the report from Kumo. My observations will be part of the commentary, perhaps as an appendix. He growled. But Akito will not be getting any information from me for a few days. You know the routine, get back safe. Don't worry about me or Haibara. I will contact Gaara and Dikken by the usual means after I get back to Kumo. No more than 2 weeks. Give them my thanks and compliments on their support and the quality of IWA and Suna's ninjas and leadership. Kankuro's eyes widened as he noticed the knowing smirks and amused glances from the Kumo ninjas surrounding the joint task force leaders. He watched Namikaze Haibara rise from her crouch and glide over to her husband. She draped herself over his back, her arms loosely clasping his chest as she bent her head to whisper something only he could hear. Naruto chuckled, turning within her embrace to press a kiss against her lips before rising. Her lithe body slid against his as he straightened, his hand cupping the back of her neck to deepen the kiss. Without a word, the couple left the main group and walked toward the edge of the clearing. 2 smirking Kumo ninja handed them a pair of packs, and with a shared look, the pair vanished into the trees. What the hell was that? Kankuro demanded. He's the raikage, isn't he? Shouldn't he stick around to make sure things don't get messy? Tsukino Akito laughed. Why should he? We're clear of Konoha. If the Godame has any brains, she'll be focused on putting out fires and rebuilding. We can easily handle any stray lunatics seeking revenge. Akumo Kunoichi with vivid green hair and hazel eyes smirked. Besides, nothing can keep the Teiku away from Haibara after a battle. I'm surprised he held out for 2 days. Usually, they're in bed just hours after a mission is done. Ito blinked. You mean, hours after they get back to base? Kamiya Kaed smirked. No, I mean hours after the mission objective is completed. Assassination, kidnapping, retrieval, once the job is done and they're clear of retaliation, they go at each other like bunnies. She laughed throatily. More like foxes in heat. And IWA Jounin frowned. Isn't that unprofessional? And unsafe? What if they get unexpected company? Kaed laughed loudly. Several Kumo ninja winced, a few even covering their groins in a protective reflex. Kankuro sensed a story behind their reactions. What happened? Kaed's smile turned wicked. No one accepted the Teiaku's post-mission routine at first, so a few tried to dissuade him. Hibara-san was not appreciative. 2 poor bastards each lost a ball. 5 others still have trouble getting it up after the Teiaku was done with them. Some kind of medic jutsu. After that, they started using a wide area Funjutsu that keeps intruders out and contains most of the damage. Ito's eyes were wide. Damage. Kaed blinked. You don't know. Ito was confused. Know what? Kaed tilted her head. Does the Tsukikage and Yujito-sama ever go on private trips into the wilderness? Ito nodded slowly. Yeah, they usually take the minimum number of gem guards. Gem were the elite of IWA, like Konoha's Umbu and Kumo's Bolt. Kaed nodded. When Jinchuriki mate without restraint, they pour power into their mate and the land around them. When the Teiaku lets go, it can cause forest fires or a miniature paradise of nature. Haven't you noticed the number of new public gardens in Kumo? Ito blinked. It was odd, having such flourishing greenery in a stunted landscape. Then it dawned on him. You mean, the Teiaku made an arrangement with the fox. When they're in Kumo or allied lands, the overflow of energy results in flora. In enemy territory, it's a forest fire. So, Naruto can do something similar to the first Hokage would style jutsu, Kankuro surmised. Kaed grinned wickedly. Only when he's getting lucky with Hibara. She then grew more serious. Haven't you noticed something similar in IWA? A younger IWA Chunin stirred. Ito Teiaku, Tsukikage-sama has been auctioning the mineral rights in areas that were thought to be barren of or suitable for mining, like Blue Crag and Shadow Peak. Tsukikage-sama and Yujito-sama were in Blue Crag a few months ago, another added. Kaed spread her hands. There you have it. Yujito-sama has the 2 tails, whose primary domains are lightning and death. The energy spilling into the earth probably fused the minerals, forming suitable or for mining. Kankuro shook his head in disbelief. I've never seen Gaara do anything like that. Kazekage-sama does not have a true mate, Kaed countered. She smirked. If you don't believe me, watch the Teiaku. Of course, it's your balls at risk if he catches you. Kankuro stood up. I'll believe it when I see it. Several Kumo ninjas stared at him in disbelief. A few muttered prayers for misguided, headstrong fools. Akito was bemused. It's your future progeny and sex life at risk. Kankuro pretended not to hear as he walked off to see for himself if what they said was true. If it was, what could Gaara do with a mate who accepted him with no reservations, as the Tsukikage did Yujito, or Hibara did Naruto? Did Gaara know what he could do? What was the potential? Shukaku's elements were earth and wind. His mind wandered as his feet and senses took him on a barely visible trail to a specific clearing. Shinobi instincts kept him from going any further. His eyes found the reason why. Charred lines burned into the grass and dirt formed intricate kanji and designs. A massive seal was centered around the clearing he had nearly blundered into. Kankuro was no sealing expert, but he could easily imagine the potential effects on a trespasser. The Kumo Kunoichi had said Naruto used a seal, but Kankuro had not imagined it was possible to set up such a huge area Funjutsu in just minutes without outside assistance. Then he realized Naruto used his chakra and intent to literally burn the design instead of using ink and paper. A semi-permanent Funjutsu, one that would last until the next rainfall rinsed away the carbon and blurred the lines. A soft feminine moan drew his attention. Kankuro strained his eyes, trying to find a spot with an unobstructed view past the trees toward the source of the sound. And then he found it. Standing barefoot in just her tight burgundy top and dark green bikini panties under an ancient oak, her back to him, was Namikaze Hibara. Her weapon harness, fishnet mesh, boots, and leather pants were discarded in a heap a few feet away. Her hands were clenched in the thick golden tresses of her husband, who was kneeling before her still fully dressed. One of his hands slipped under her top, resting on the small of her back to keep her from moving, while the other wrapped around the top of one leg. He nuzzled her belly and did something that made her cry out and her knees buckle. But she did not fall, only sag forward and wrap her arms around his head, holding him close to her waist. He chuckled as he shifted her limbs, altering her balance and center of gravity so her back rested against the rough surface of the ancient oak tree. She shifted restlessly against the trunk, reaching up to grab a low branch. The action thrust the full curves of her chest out and up. A faint red haze surrounded Naruto as he caressed her lean, bare thighs, urging them to part, an urge with which Hibara complied without resistance. What happened next stomped on Kankuro's doubts and ground them into non-existence. The small creepers growing around the base of the oak began to grow before his eyes. They grew and coiled like snakes, encircling Hibara's limbs, pinning them apart and against the oak trunk. She whined softly. "Nu, I want to hold you," the blonde chuckled. "Your legs or your arms? Which will be bound?" She considered the choices. "My arms," she decided after some thought. "As you command, my love." The vines unwound from her legs and twisted around the trunk to reach the lower branches. There, they wrapped around her wrists, binding her grip on the branch. Naruto rose from his crouch and bent to kiss his wife thoroughly. His hands were on her hips, testing the edges of her panties, cupping her ass through and under the material. At this point, Kankuro decided discretion was the better part of valor. He did not want to be beaten by an enraged kunoichi and lose his balls if she found him peeking, and he would if he stayed and watched because he would not be able to stop being an appreciative audience for the raikage and his wife. Without making too much noise, he stepped back and retraced his steps to the campsite. He had to get back to Suna and talk to Gaara about Jinchuriki matings. Gaara, it's time. The familiar voice of his elder sister broke the silence. The raikage nodded and stood up to join his sister. The pair walked down the quiet hallways, occasionally stopping to speak to a shinobi or bureaucrat. Or rather, Temari spoke, and Gaara watched. The kunoichi was used to it. It was Gaara's strength. He observed and spied out flaws and weaknesses. Often others babbled to fill the silence and inadvertently spilled interesting information. Once they were in the more restricted areas, she relaxed and decided to broach a topic that intrigued her. Are you serious about finding a wife? Not a wife, Temari. A mate. When Naruto destroyed Akatsuki's statue container, the tailed beasts trapped within had been freed. Most had chosen to return to their home plane, Makai. However, Shikaku had chosen otherwise. The brief freedom from his human host and the subsequent events had changed the tailed beast's view on humans, enough so that when he was freed, he had returned to Gaara and asked to rejoin his vessel. Gaara's first thought had been to refuse the request. His growing observational skill stilled his knee-jerk reaction. The safe path would have been to politely refuse. If he accepted, Suna would once again fear him. However, that was what most would do. Gaara was never one to follow conventional wisdom, so he agreed after insisting on specific conditions that would not allow one to be completely subject to the other. To his shock, Shikaku had agreed and commented it was the proper way, the true way, how the first Jinchuriki were created. In the months that followed, Gaara had spent several nights just talking with the tailed beast and found the tanuki was a sharp, insightful individual, quite good-humored and tolerant of those he respected. Gaara found the key was to give Shikaku choices and options, just like any other he was negotiating with. Gaara had not told anyone he was once again a Jinchuriki until after his daughter died and he went on a hunting excursion, collecting a good chunk of bingo bookheads. Along the way, he had broken down into Mary's arms. To his shock, she had not turned from him in disgust but supported his choices. She would not have supported him when Shikaku had made his offer, but now that she had seen Shikaku was not pushing Gaara into bloodlust frenzies and there were no Akatsuki hunting Jinchuriki, she saw no real problems. She had seen the positive changes in Gaara. Even the hunting excursions had fattened Suna's coffers. So, are you serious about finding a mate? A true match? Like Hibara-chan is for Naruto-kun? Temari wanted to know. Gaara smiled faintly as he remembered the conversation he had with Kankuro just after the puppet master returned from the joint mission with IWA and Kumo. Start flashback. Gaara blinked at the sight of his disheveled, smelly brother. Kankuro had not bothered to stop for a bath or a change of clothes, but from the initial comments, the joint mission had been a success. There was no real hurry to get the report immediately. Is something wrong, Kankuro? The puppet user hesitated briefly before bracing himself. Gaara, are you aware of the advantages of a Jinchuriki having a mate? Teal-green eyes widened briefly. Gaara waved at a chair and poured out a cup of flavored water from an ewer resting on a sideboard. After handing a cup to Kankuro and sipping from his own, Gaara felt somewhat ready to talk. How did you find out? Kankuro blinked. He had not expected Gaara to give in so quickly. I saw Naruto and Hibara after the mission was completed and camp was set up. He put a Kumo jounin named Tsukino Akito in charge and left. I asked the others why, and they told me when Naruto and Hibara mate without restrictions, it sparks firestorms and floral growth. The IWA jounin indicated when that Tsuchikage and his wife go on camping trips, it brings her suitable for mining close to the surface. He hesitated and pressed on. Would a mate have similar benefits for you? Gaara decided to be blunt. Yes, but only one who was accepted by Shikaku. That rocked Kankuro back on his heels. But the benefits for Suna, what would the spillover create? Kankuro wanted to know. Gaara thought hard and decided to be truthful. Shikaku's domain is over the earth, more specifically sand. He also has a lesser domain over streams and rivers. I can sense the waters traveling under the sands. Kankuro's eyes widened, and he suddenly realized just how Gaara had become so good at pinpointing the best places to dig wells. Can you bring the water to the surface? As a spring to create an oasis? Gaara shook his head. Water style is not my domain, just as wood style is not Naruto's. It will only be brought out during a mating. So, has Shikaku shown interest in anyone? Gaara smiled faintly. No. Most of the females in Suna are afraid of me. He will not tolerate a mate who fears us. Kankuro nodded slowly. Okay. Someone outside Suna then. Naruto probably knows girls who aren't easily scared. He nodded more firmly. Yeah, he spent years traveling. I'm sure he must have told a few folks about being a Jinchuriki. Kankuro, what are you talking about? The puppet user blinked. I'm trying to find someone for you. Someone who knows of Jinchuriki and is not afraid. She doesn't have to be a shinobi, but a fighter of some sort would be preferable, and not too much older than you. Naruto knows more people outside the hidden villages, so we should ask him. Gaara blinked. Kankuro was trying to play matchmaker. Kankuro, the matchmaker. Shukaku was laughing hysterically. Stop it, Kankuro. If and when I decide I want a mate, I will start the search. Kankuro blinked. Don't you want a girl? It's been years since Matsuri died. And don't tell me you have a girlfriend because you don't. Gaara sighed. Kankuro, I'm not going to find a mate because it will benefit Suna. Kankuro cocked his head to one side. It won't just benefit Suna. It will benefit you. You'll have someone who supports and trusts you, someone committed to you and only you. Seeing he was getting through, Kankuro decided to back off. Just think about it, Gaara. Someone who makes you happy. Like Hibara makes Naruto happy. Gaara was silent for a long while. I'll think about it. End flashback. Temari sighed. It was nice to see Gaara beginning to show an interest in the softer side of life. He was a distant uncle to her own children. She only hoped he would be more affectionate towards his would-be mate and future children. She only wondered where he would find a woman who would accept him and the One Tail as Hibara accepted Naruto and the Nine Tails. Have you any plans? How to go about finding this mate? Gaara tilted his head to one side. I am uncertain. His first wife had been a political arrangement to solidify his alliances within Suna. She had died in childbirth. Gaara had cared for her and mourned her passing. It had taken him longer to recover from the loss of his only child, a daughter. An infection that went out of control. At the time, Suna's medics were not the best. The alliance with Konoha had been shaky at the time. He had sent a message to Tsunade. The medic she'd sent had not reached Suna in time. A few months after, Gaara had found out the medic had taken her own sweet time traveling to Suna. She had lost relatives in the Nine Tails attack and hated Jinchuriki. Tsunade had her arrested, stripped of her shinobi status and chakra vessel sealed, but it would never bring back his daughter. That was when he completely gave up on Konoha and actively began looking for other allies. When Naruto contacted him, claiming to be an agent of the raikage, he was more than willing to listen. Temari huffed impatiently. You must have some idea. She gripped. Gaara blinked. Shukaku will help. Now it was Temari's turn to blink. Are you nuts? She yelped. No, don't answer that because it is the truth. Gaara smirked. To get the benefits, a mating must be one Shukaku approves of. Someone strong, loyal, and honorable. Qualities of a demon. Temari blinked. Demons will only respect individuals with those characteristics, viewing them as equals or potential mates. But how will you know? Temari pressed the point. Gaara shrugged slightly. I'll let Shukaku choose the candidates and make my choice from them. I believe I will be spending many months traveling to find as many candidates as possible. Once I narrow my choices, it will take even longer to court her and gain the consent of her and her clan. Temari sighed. Oh, yeah, she'd forgotten that. Then she brightened. With any luck the girl would be an orphan, or one with relatives who didn't give a damn or lacked the brains to distinguish the Baijuyu from the Jinchuriki. That sounds good. You could use the excuse of diplomatic meetings to travel. Busily she began making plans and plotting an itinerary for her brother. She was barely aware of her feet taking her to a particular room with a heavily engraved metal door. Gaara shifted and drew on Shukaku's chakra to open the heavy doors. Once he and Temari were inside, he closed the door and activated the seals, causing the engraved walls to glow and illuminate the room as brightly as the sun. Temari and Gaara walked toward the center of the room and waited. Gaara concentrated and activated the seal array beneath their feet. A faint haze filled their vision, a haze that solidified into illusions of two platforms directly across from him. It was not a typical genjutsu but the true representation of events taking place in two similar rooms in other hidden villages. Gaara smiled slightly as two others joined the virtual conference. The energy slightly shifted to accommodate the presence of the raikage and his wife, Namikaze Naruto, and Namikaze Hibara ne Uchiha. The method Naruto used to create this communication means was ingenious and impossible to duplicate by a regular shinobi due to the huge chakra requirements. Gaara and Temari stood within a special seal etched within the sealed buffered room in Suna. Dakin and Yujito stood within a similar room in Iwa. Naruto and Hibara had just entered and activated the similar room in Kumo. When activated, it linked with other similar active seals, allowing those within to communicate with each other as if they were standing just a few feet away. One could see and hear everything occurring in the other active rooms. Taste, smell, and feel were not shared between the rooms. The Yuki traveled along the planetary ley lines, distributing the sensory information, and was impossible to block except perhaps by another Jinhyura key. But even so they could not share/experience the data without a special room. Currently there were only 3 in existence and they needed a willing Jinhyura key to activate and maintain the sharing link. Luckily enough there were 3 such individuals in or near the cage seat of 3 hidden villages. Naruto smiled broadly at Dakin and Yujito. The Jinhyura key to Nibi no Nikomata was visibly pregnant, nearly 6 months along. I wish I could hug you, Yujito-ne-chan. I promise I will visit as soon as the baby is born. Nobunaga Yujito smiled and smoothed her hand over her bump. You don't have to rush, Otauto. Her smile turned teasing. If you are thinking of a suitable gift I imagine a garden would be wonderful. Naruto considered the request and glanced at Hibara who smiled and nodded. Agreed. Next time Hibara and I are in IWA, you'll have a new garden before we leave. His smile became more playful. I'll be certain to put lots of catnip in it. Yujito sputtered and pouted as everyone laughed. After the usual catching up routine, Naruto opened the subject that was the purpose of this conference. Has everyone received copies of the Pruneback Konoha report? Nods. Any comments? Suggestions? Ideas? Dakin gingerly took the ball. Has Konoha retaliated? Naruto smirked. Not on this end. Of course Kumo doesn't have any ties beyond the minimal trade ties with Hai no Kuni. Everyone looked to Gaara. It was Temeri who answered. The Godame Hokage sent Nara Shikamaru to Suna to negotiate a neutrality treaty. Gaara has enjoyed denying Shikamaru but to be honest, he has been pretty good-natured about the whole thing. He knows Konoha is in the wrong and is not pretending otherwise. He wants to start on a new sheet. Hibara huffed. Konoha has blotted many pages. I am not willing to even consider a neutrality option before getting a better handle on them. A lot of their power brokers and council has been destroyed. How do we know the replacements are any better or more trustworthy? Dakin strangely found himself playing devil's advocate for Konoha. A strange position for the Tsuchikage. No one knows that. But closing doors is what my predecessor specialized in. I do not want to say this but perhaps we should give Konoha a chance. Naruto snorted. You can do what you wish in IWA, Dakin, but in Kumo no Konoha shinobi will ever be allowed entry. The 5 others in the room stared at Naruto. You are being very unforgiving, Naruto, Temeri said at last. To make such a broad unilateral decision. Then Hibara broke into peals of laughter. The other 4 stared at her. What are you laughing for, Hibara-chan? Yujito wanted to know. Black eyes gleamed with laughter. No Konoha shinobi will ever be allowed entry in Kumo. No Konoha shinobi. Then the light dawned in other faces. Temeri laughed. No shinobi. Nothing about the regular civilians. Or even the shinobis on personal business visiting as private citizens. Of course if they break the rules and start spying, you will kick them out. If they try to bypass and sneak in, they will be treated as an enemy spy, perfectly justifiable. Naruto shrugged broad shoulders and grinned. Shinobis are barred from many places but private citizens they can enter with no concerns. When they enter Kumo it will be on private business only. His face was hard. I will not tolerate anything to do with Konoha politically. Not for at least another 5 years. If they have any brains, they will not send any genins for Chuyunin exams in Kumo. Temeri shivered. I'll stress that point to Shikamaru when I see him. Dakin relaxed minutely. Please, Naruto was not on a vengeance kick. So you have no plans to move against Konoha? Naruto snorted. My view is to ignore them. If they have any brains they will not do anything to draw my attention. He frowned faintly. I know I will have to deal with them in the future but not now. Not now. Hibara wrapped her arm around his waist from behind and wriggled under one arm, dragging it across her shoulders. That is the best thing to do. Not when ire and rage is still hot. If you come into contact with them right now the aftermath would be unfortunate. She winced. Naruto brushed his lips across her temple and drew her closer. She was remembering her own past, the slaughter she had dealt out on her own clan, unable to distinguish guilty from bystander and innocent with one exception, her own brother, the only one who loved and admired her unconditionally. Her heart clenched at the thought of Suzuki. He would have found out more about the Uchiha clan by now. How did he feel towards her? Did he still hate her? Did he feel she should have handled things better? Hibara did not know. She would never know without talking to Suzuki, but as things stood she would never take the first step. Yujito was sympathetic. She knew more of Hibara's difficult past than anyone except Naruto. When the couple had signed up to be Kumonins it was Yujito who became Hibara's first and most trusted female friend. She squeezed her husband's hand. Dakin had the usual difficult past that came with being a high-class nin but he did not have as much emotional baggage as Naruto and Hibara. Gaara had his own baggage but his kin had never tried to warp and twist him like Hibara's. He might have been hated, but he had chosen to bury his heart in hate back, unlike Naruto, who continued to reach out because he wanted to give and receive love. She glanced around. I think we are done for now and I really need a nap. If we need to set up another conference, arrange the time by the usual means. There was a murmur of consent and then couples began to leave their respective sealed comm rooms. Once Naruto and Hibara were outside theirs, Hibara broke down and sagged against Naruto, sobbing softly. Naruto ignored the discreet looks of the aides around and carried his wife to a small meeting room and activated the privacy seals. He sat down in one of the overstuffed leather chairs and settled his wife on his lap. What is it? He asked softly. She buried her face in his shoulder. Sasuke must know by now. Naruto nodded. Yes. He probably does. He probably hates me. She whimpered softly. Naruto shook his head. I don't think so. If there is anything, Sasuke knows what it is like to be controlled and influenced by a seal. I doubt his time in Oto was easy. Hibara considered the reminder that Sasuke had been under the influence of the snake Sunin and a cursed seal, molded and trained to become the perfect vessel, just like she had been shaped to become the perfect nin. Sensing he had her interest and complicity, Naruto pressed the point. Don't let fear control you. Sasuke is your brother no matter all that has happened. I understand all that has happened has fragmented the ties between you. I am not saying you should reach out for him, but do not deny him if he reaches out to you. You might have been his perfect idol when you were younger, but now he is old enough to know idols have feet of clay and that reality isn't as absolute as one would wish it would be. And then he chuckled. Curious, Hibara lifted her head to look at him. What is it? She wanted to know. Naruto's eyes were distant. You know, when I was younger I considered Sasuke as a brother. An irritating one you always fought with but defended against outsiders. He explained. After he left I chased him because he was my friend, one of the first ones who saw Uzumaki Naruto. He was my brother. When he returned everything fell apart. I could no longer pretend and lie to myself. I could not stand the hypocrisy and delusions. He smiled gently. Sasuke caused me a great deal of pain. By his own choices. He stressed firmly. It is a bit of an irritant to know that now he is my unwanted brother, my brother-in-law. Hibara's eyes were wide with shock then laughter. She pressed a kiss on his lips. Look at this way, Anita, with Sasuke it will be very unlikely he will visit. You will never have to deal with obsessed controlling in-laws since I've killed most of them off. Humor gleamed in dark eyes. If Sasuke ever visits, I promise to reward you very well for dealing with an unwanted in-law. Naruto grinned and kissed her hard. Then he lifted his head and responded to her teasing promise. I'll hold you to that. Then he stood, slipping her off his lap. Come on, the twins must be waking from their nap by now. Uchiha Sasuke resisted the urge to fidget as he waited for the Godame to speak. Yelling would not help, only put him in the hospital when Tsunade-sama let loose. She tended to forget most shinobis did not have the resilience of Jiraiya or Naruto to her blunt force trauma. After several long minutes she looked up from the scroll she had been reading and met his eyes. I got a positive response from our agent in Suna. Shikamaru managed to negotiate a visa for you. Unfortunately it is for you and you alone. All applications for shinobis have been declined. Even your visa is for a private citizen visiting relatives in Kumo. If they find you engaging in shinobi activities unless in defense of your life, or a practice spar in a training ground with the permission of the local nins, or in your own rooms, it will be justification to arrest you. I doubt Naruto will agree to execute you, but you will be expelled without a second chance. Sasuke nodded brusquely. I understand. I will be Uchiha Sasuke, kin to Namikaze Hibara, not a jounin shinobi of Konoha. Tsunade nodded and produced a bag filled with scrolls. Currently most of our mail to Kumo goes through Suna. They have refused to accept personal mail, only matters of state. There are people in Konoha that wish to send letters to him, but they have always been returned. I haven't used the diplomatic seal in case Kumo takes offense and refuses all contact with Konoha. I'd like you to take these when you go. Mainly letters from Irika, Konohamaru and his friends, and a few shinobis. She smiled sourly, including Harano, Heitake, and Hyuga Hinata. Sasuke made a face but said nothing. Encouraged, Tsunade continued. Most of my letters have been to Jiraiya via summons and purely personal. Nothing to do with Konoha. He says Naruto has no positive feelings towards Konoha, and with the views of those around him, positive feelings will never form. I am not asking you to establish ties between Kumo and Konoha because that is impossible. What I am asking is for you to get to know your family there. They are your only living relatives and family is more important than politics. Sasuke chuckled, a rusty sound. You know, when we fought in the Valley of the End, Naruto said he thought of me as a brother. Now, close to 2 decades later, I find he is my brother, my brother-in-law. Tsunade laughed. I would never have thought it possible. She shook her head ruefully. But then again, this is Naruto we're talking about. Then her expression sobered. You are not the only shinobi going from Konoha. Shikamaru managed to negotiate visas for himself and Abarame Shino. Both are going on matters of private business. Shikamaru is a silent partner in Ichiraku Tuka's ramen business. Shino is representing his father to negotiate a contract for certain supplies. The Abarames used to find certain plants they need in the forests before the destruction. For the past few months they have been using their stockpile, but now they need to replenish it. Strangely, the best sources for the plant material has not been Kusa anymore but Kumo. Even Kusa is buying certain floral harvests from Kumo because it is more potent than what they've been able to grow. Suzuki's eyes were wide. How long has Shikamaru been a silent partner? 5 years, Tsunade admitted. He kept visiting the ramen stand because he felt guilty for what happened, because he didn't do anything. When he found out Tuki was having financial problems, he offered to help. He has a part ownership in the Suna stand that is run by Ayam and her husband. Her older children used to cycle through Konoha to help their grandfather run the stand here. Suzuki became still. Didn't Ichiraku sell out to the Akimichis 2 years ago? Tsunade nodded. Tuki moved to Kumo. He didn't tell Shikamaru why, just that he got an offer that looked promising and he didn't want to live in Konoha anymore. Technically Shikamaru doesn't have any ownership in the Kumo stand, he is just visiting an old business associate. Honey brown eyes were bright. You might want to clear your calendar for a few months and visit Shikamaru and Shino. She held out a sealed scroll and placed it next to the bag of message scrolls. Your visa. Suzuki accepted both items and bowed slightly. Quick, light steps took him out of the office and toward his new apartment near the Nara compound. He had to talk to Shikamaru and Shino and plan a trip. Shikamaru stubbed out his cigarette on a convenient rock. Dark eyes never wavered from the fluffy clouds dotting the pale blue sky. A change in perspective. You're late, he announced lazily as he pushed himself into a sitting position. Suzuki did not say anything, but settled himself just ahead and to the side of Shikamaru. Shino mirrored the Uchiha, creating a triangle with the 3 men. My apologies, I had to fetch Shino. His tone was not apologetic. Shikamaru sighed. Yeah, when do you want to head out? He didn't need to specify where. Suzuki pondered the question. As soon as possible. Tsunade is trying to keep this under wraps, but someone will talk. I have enough of my own things to worry about without listening to fools. Shino nodded in agreement. I concur. My clan needs the maiden's tongue moss and Jillian tears leaves. Several of the species we breed must consume those particular plants at certain points of their life cycles. The cache we used to replenish from Konoha's forests will be depleted within 10 weeks. Our agent in Kusa could not secure a local supply once they started trading certain plants with Kumo. Shikamaru nodded slowly. 2 weeks out, 3 weeks back. 5 weeks to find a supplier, negotiate a contract, and get the raikage's permission. He grimaced. That's cutting it too close. We could just leave, Suzuki offered. I would prefer it. I don't trust Shizun to hold her tongue. She's soft enough to tell Sakura. All 3 men winced at the thought of the guilt-ridden Kunoichi descending on them in hysterics, begging them to bring Naruto back, just as she had once begged Naruto to bring Suzuki back. We'll leave tomorrow at dawn. I'll tell my mom I have a delivery mission to Suna. Shikamaru decided. Please be discreet when making purchases, and then they went their separate ways. Suzuki headed toward the Uchiha compound. He had spent several weeks turning the place upside down, searching for hidden caches and records. Abarame Shino, Kyoga Niji, and Inyazuka Kiba had been essential in locating the documents he had been searching for, documents that contained the full details of the ugly truth. That information spurred him to search through the private rooms of the others involved. Uchiha Mikado, who maintained a public facade while falling apart in private, guilt-ridden every time she looked upon her firstborn child, her eldest, the daughter she could never acknowledge. Her fear and hatred of her husband, the clan elders, and herself for doing nothing. She maintained her continued blindness to what was happening around her because if she accepted the reality she would have to accept the truth that she was just as criminally responsible as her husband. She was like those who assisted the Snake Son in Orochimaru in his experiments. Uchiha Fugate, who felt nothing but greed and satisfaction at what his choices yielded, the perfect Uchiha, the perfect shinobi. His faint dissatisfaction when the tool began to rebel and remember despite the mind wipes. His distaste towards his eldest son, Suzuki, who was a disappointment. His plans to sire a 3rd child, hopefully a son who would be a better heir than Suzuki after he underwent the same training, slightly modified to wipe out the rebelliousness of his eldest. Uchiha Shishu, who was assigned to observe and report any signs of surfacing memories to the designated handlers. His growing obsession with his cousin and target, the perfect shinobi. If that was the case, why not make use of what she never would, her feminine sexuality? The next time she remembered and broke the Funjutsu, Shisha didn't have to report the signs immediately. A few hours would not make much of a difference. Several other cousins who suspected something was off but said nothing, because it was for the good of the clan, for the good of Konoha. records of training accidents and deaths of those who kept pressing on the prodigy's behalf. Each was planned and executed by Uchiha ninjas or umbu under the direction of the clan elders. Uchiha Itachi never kept a journal. His room was barren of personal possessions. Everything was umbu or Uchiha issue. The futon was thin and the linen standard. The furnishings were plain and unadorned. The scrolls and books were on strategy, tactics, and topics regarding various shinobi fields. There were no literary works of fiction, no artwork or softness. Sasuke wondered why he never realized how much it resembled a cell. There was nothing of his sibling here. No wonder Hibara could so easily walk away after slaughtering her oppressors with no second glance. Sasuke made a vow to cleanse the place in the next few years. After locating all the documents, he would create a historical archive and then destroy the compound. He would not bury and ignore his clan's sins. He would not deny the suffering they inflicted on their own and those around them. Sasuke resisted the urge to activate the Sharingan as he followed the Kumo Jounin from the administrative offices to the raikage tower. The Jounin had informed them in smug, bland tones that the raikage had the final say on the presence of those with shinobi training from hostile villages. Activating the Sharingan would indicate hostile intent or lack of control, things that would get Sasuke kicked out of Kumo. Just bite your tongue, Sasuke. Shikamaru sighed before taking a deep drag. They are looking for a reason to kick you out before you even reach the raikage. Sasuke huffed but remained silent. Shikamaru was right. The three Konoha nin remained on their best behavior as their guide took the scenic route to the raikage tower and led them up the stone steps winding around the outside of the structure. Occasionally the Jounin would stop and greet other ninjas and civilians on various levels of the building before continuing up. Almost near the top of the structure, he entered the tower core and guided the three following him through a maze of narrow hallways to a comfortable, mid-size meeting room with no windows. Wait here. I will find the raikage. And then he left, closing the door. They waited for 20 minutes before someone entered the room. Jiraiya, the Gama-sunin. His expression was unexpectedly serious, without any of his usual carefree humor. He was dressed in his usual green and red garb, but he had abandoned the Gita sandals for black combat boots favored by Kumo ninjas. Dark eyes narrowed upon seeing Sasuke. He snorted softly. Naruto was always soft when it comes to family. Remember this, Uchiha, he once called you brother, and now you are brother by law, but if you do anything to jeopardize his wife and children he'll rip your throat out without a qualm. Sasuke inhaled sharply and nodded. Then Jiraiya relaxed and smiled more openly. Good. Now that's out of the way, let's get going. He led the trio out of the waiting room and down a series of narrow corridors, up and down stairs until they stood before a set of heavily carved, brass-bound oak doors guarded by two masked bolt ninjas. The Konoha ninjas could feel the scrutiny, though it was not betrayed by a single movement. The Gama-sunin nodded to the guards and pushed the doors open to reveal a large, pleasant office painted and furnished in soothing neutral tones. There were large, neat-ceiling windows that framed a view of a lush, private garden below. The raikage had company. The raven-haired Kunoichi stiffened and spoke softly, urgently, whispering so they could not hear her words. The blonde Kage nodded and smiled faintly before cupping her cheek. Then he kissed her. It was a quick, brief brush of lips before he moved away. She followed his retreat on tiptoe for a longer, more intense kiss. When they parted, the intimate warmth faded behind a mask of cool detachment. Her eyes did not betray any interest or emotion as she walked over to a window and stepped onto the ledge before stepping off and vanishing. With her departure, the softness and pleasure faded from the raikage's face. With brisk movements, he moved to pull a scroll from a pile and a folder from a small stack. He did not speak, though he indicated for them to sit. Shikamaru whined internally as he accepted the invitation and sank into the wooden but surprisingly comfortable chairs. Jiraiya and Shino sat as well, but Sasuke remained standing, too tense and needing the freedom to pace around the spacious office. Hoping the Uchiha held his tongue, the Nara waited for the invitation to speak. And then it came. It was unexpected. The visa applications for Konoha Jounins. Shikamaru bit his tongue. The Abarame clan needs a new supply of specific plants and Kusagakure says Kumo has the best supply. I'm used to negotiating contracts. And the Uchiha? Namikaze Naruto murmured in arched tones as he examined the details in the files. Cool blue eyes demanded complete honesty. He wishes to get to know his relatives. The raikage glanced at the Sunin who gave a tiny shrug. That is a private matter. We can negotiate contracts with the Abarame clan for the flora specified. It can be delivered on a monthly basis at best. If you wait a few days you can get a quarter of what you've specified for most of what you've specified. 3 species on list C are not readily available and we have a waiting list. Unless the new greenhouses are built in the next week, you will have to wait 3 months. If you wish to be bumped to the top of the waiting list you will have to pay a 30% premium. Shino winced but nodded before speaking. 10% of the usual quarterly shipment to go when we leave at the premium rate. Naruto rested his cheek on the L formed by the thumb and pointer finger of one hand and studied the konoha ninjas with cool, detached eyes. My advisors have suggested I insist on an outrageous penalty premium, but I won't. 5% on the usual market rates. It will decrease 0.5% for each year that passes without any konoha idiots attacking my ninjas. On the flip side, it will increase 0.1% every quarter it does. Shikamaru and Shino winced at the penalty clauses. Naruto's smile was razor sharp. I trust my shinobi not to attack first, but if they do and it is proven to my satisfaction, the incident will not count. The next 30 minutes were spent negotiating the actual quantities, payment methods, delivery schedules, courier fees, etc. Once the contract was signed and sealed, Naruto relaxed a tad. Any other reason why you are in Kumo? He inquired in arched tones. Shikamaru removed his satchel and placed it on the desk. Letters, he replied simply. Naruto glanced at Jiraiya, who moved to open the bag and sort through the contents. The Sennin examined the scroll and seal for any tampering or traps and spoke the name of the sender before handing it to Naruto, who made two piles, one very large one from those seeking forgiveness, and one from those who were neutral or supportive of Naruto. The larger pile was shredded into minute confetti with a brief half-seal. The small scraps of paper swirled on a gust of chakra-infused air before falling into a trash can. Shikamaru winced minutely seeing the missives from many of his fellow ninjas shredded without even being opened. But he did not say a word of protest. Naruto was amused. No word of protest? How it is best to forgive and forget? He inquired in arched tones. Shikamaru snorted. Why should you? They never did. Besides, it's not like you have to see them every day and live in the same village. Besides, telling you to do something is a waste of energy. The smile became more open. Intriguing, he murmured and did not say another word on the matter. Follow me. He walked without an apparent care for the konoha ninjas at his back, though the three of them knew better than to imagine the raikage was not ready for a potential attack. As they followed him downstairs and corridors, past respectful Kumo ninjas and civilians, he kept up a running commentary. The Moribanos are Kumo's experts and specialists on flora. They are in charge of the fields, gardens, and greenhouses of exotic harvests. With our increased trade in herbal flora, there is a bottleneck due to labor and experience constraints. A branch of the clan in Kusa will be moving to Kumo, but is not due for another 2 months. If you wish to leave within the week, you will have to help with the harvest. It has to be done entirely by hand by civilians or shinobis with very good chakra control to avoid tainting. He turned to look at the three shocked jounin. And that means you. It will keep you out of trouble and get you out of Kumo as quick as possible. He led them through a well-tended garden and towards a cluster of greenhouses near an orchard and open fields. As for Uchiha-san, I'm afraid I am not sure what to do with you. My wife is not ready to deal with you and I am not sure if she will ever be ready. His eyes were shards of ice. And believe me, her comfort and emotions matter to me a hell of a lot more than yours. If she is still unwilling by the time the shipment is ready, you will leave with your fellow ninja. Then the ice vanished and he smiled warmly. Here we are. A short, middle-aged woman with white-streaked red hair emerged from one of the greenhouses. She was clearly a retired or off-duty kunoichi given the way she moved. This is Moribano Tsubeki. She will be giving you orders on prepping the field and harvesting the crop. If she is unsatisfied with your efforts, she will have someone escort you to your hotel room for the rest of your stay, and you will leave at the end of the week with less than what was decided on. He smiled blandly. Consider this a D-rank mission. I will see you in a few hours. And then he vanished with the Sennin. Shikamaru eyed the older woman, the faint scowl on her face, the way she stood feet shoulder-width apart, her hands resting on her hips, arms akimbo, and he sighed. She reminded him too much of his mother. Mendakus.